Lin Yu perished in a desperate battle against a demonic boss, only to find himself reborn 10 years in the past. At this moment, the mobile game Piaomiao Xiantu had yet to begin feeding back cultivation to its players. Such an opportunity had actually fallen into his lap. Without hesitation, Lin Yu liquidated all his family assets and invested a full billion into the game. One by one, the top spots on every in-game ranking list turned into Lin Yu's name. When the game shut down its top-up channel and began feeding cultivation back to reality, all the players were utterly dumbfounded. On Blue Star in Longhua in the western suburbs of Binhai City, inside a luxurious villa, everything was about to change. Lin Yu jolted awake from the bed, abruptly sitting up. Sweat drenched his forehead, and lingering terror flickered in his wide eyes. Wasn't I dead? What is going on? Lin Yu murmured to himself as he examined his clean, uninjured hands. Just a moment ago, he had clearly died under the hand of that ancient demonic creature. Even his soul had failed to escape and had been utterly annihilated. How had he suddenly returned here? Lin Yu took a careful look at his surroundings. It was a bedroom furnished in refined and elegant Chinese style. The large bed beneath him was soft and comfortable, clearly of extraordinary value at a glance. As he took in the familiar setting, memories from 10 years ago surged back. This villa, this very bedroom, had once been Lin Yu's home. He had lived here since childhood, right up until the day when a mobile game called Piaomiao Xiantu began returning the cultivation its players gained in-game back to their real bodies. From that moment on, the entire world fell into chaos. Not only Longhua, but every nation possessed its own game capable of feeding back cultivation. Beyond cultivation levels, all kinds of magic treasures and items, mounts and spirit beasts, and heavenly materials and earthly treasures began manifesting in the real world. Yet that was not the end. Later on, even in-game NPCs and villainous bosses started appearing as well. The arrival of those villainous bosses nearly brought Blue Star's entire civilization to the brink of it. Players who had once dabbled in those cultivation feedback games rose up to fight the malevolent villains, yet the bosses forged in the games were far too powerful. In the end, humanity's strongest were defeated. Lin Yu himself had died at the hands of a powerful demonic boss from Piaomiao Xiantu. At this instant, he hurriedly snatched up the phone by his pillow and opened the calendar. February 7th, 2123. As I thought, I've come back to before the game starts feeding back cultivation. Shock and delight churned together in Lin Yu's heart. Lin Yu remembered clearly that on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2123, the game Piaomiao Xiantu would shut down its recharge channel and immediately afterward begin feeding cultivation back to the players. At this moment, there were still 7 days left before the game's cultivation feedback began. Although he was a rich second-generation heir, he had not invested much into the game back then. Only tens of thousands just for fun. Within the game, Lin Yu's strength had barely been enough to rank within the top 100. When the game finally started feeding back cultivation to the players, everyone scrambled to recharge in hopes of boosting their in-game strength, only to discover that the recharge channel had already been closed. From then on, improving one's cultivation and power became exceedingly difficult. Piaomiao Xiantu was an extremely pay-to-win mobile game with a myriad of recharge options. Especially in the later stages, advancing one's cultivation without spending money was almost impossible. With that thought, Lin Yu quickly swiped across his phone screen and soon found that familiar icon. Piaomiao Xiantu was indeed still there. Lin Yu hurriedly tapped to open the game. Accompanied by majestic, resounding music, the game interface slowly unfolded on his phone screen. The first thing that appeared before his eyes was an in-game notice. Honored VIP 7 player Chengfeng Junren, you have been away from the game for 3 hours. To welcome your return, we present you with a veteran player comeback pack. For only 648 yuan, you can experience the thrill of your cultivation soaring at high speed. Seeing this familiar prompt, the corner of Lin Yu's lips unconsciously curled up. In the past, messages like this had always felt annoying, but now it seemed unspeakably endearing. In 7 days, he would not even be able to recharge if he wanted to. Raising his in-game cultivation would then be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. For him, this was unquestionably an enormous heaven-sent opportunity. Lin Yu decisively tapped the purchase button inside the game. Congratulations, player Chengfeng Junren, you have received the Veteran Return Pack, High-Grade Spirit Stones 100, Xian Yuan Pills, 20 Purple Equipment Refinement Stones 5. After the payment went through, those spirit stones and other items immediately appeared in Lin Yu's inventory. Lin Yu's character was named Chengfeng Junren, a cultivator whose realm had reached the out-of-body stage. The game's cultivation realms were divided into 10 stages from low to high: Qi, Refining Heart, Movement, Foundation, Establishment, Golden Core, Nascent, Soul, Out-of-Body, Soul Division, Unity, Cave, Void, and Great Perfection. At present, the highest cultivation in the entire game had already reached the Unity stage. Rumor had it that this player had invested several million, and their VIP level had climbed all the way to the highest VIP 10. Lin Yu, by contrast, had recharged just over 40,000 and was only VIP 7. As a reborn man, he understood all too well how crucial that VIP level truly was. VIP levels increased a player's cultivation speed. With each level, the rate at which one gained in-game cultivation rose by 10%. When the game fed cultivation back into reality, it did so according to this VIP percentage as well. For example, with Lin Yu's VIP 7, when the feedback occurred, he would only receive 70% of his character's full cultivation in the real world. In his previous life, Lin Yu had indeed obtained only 70% feedback. His VIP level had not been especially high, not because he lacked money, but simply because he had only played the game for amusement, never imagining that one day it would actually return cultivation to the players. Now, however, things were completely different. Lin Yu began tapping rapidly across the screen. When he opened the Events tab, a dazzling array of recharge options flooded his view. The Today's Special Offer section contained 3 tiers of gift packs priced at 6 yuan, 128 yuan, and 648 yuan respectively. Lin Yu bought them all without a second thought. Congratulations, honored VIP 7 player Cheng Fengzhenren. Your purchase was successful. VIP experience has increased by 782 points. You are now 37780 points away from becoming an esteemed VIP 8. We hope you continue your efforts and progress further on the path of cultivation. In truth, the so-called VIP points were simply the total amount of money recharged, crude and straightforward. Lin Yu had already spent over 40,000 before. To reach VIP 8, he needed a total of 80,000 in recharges. After he bought the daily special packs, 3 new ones appeared in their place titled the Keep It Up pack. Again, there were 3 tiers, 128 yuan, 648 yuan, and 188 yuan. Lin Yu once more bought every single one. Once he finished, yet another set of packs appeared in the same slot, this time called the Step-by-Step Ascension pack, priced at 648 yuan, 188 yuan, and 588 yuan respectively. After purchasing the Step-by-Step Ascension packs, an entirely new offer surfaced, the Eternal Glory pack, this time a single bundle worth 188 yuan. Lin Yu unhesitatingly spent another wave of money. In less than a minute, he had already poured over 20,000 into the game. After buying these packs, he did not rush to recharge further. Instead, he opened his character's inventory and began consuming the pills inside. There were still 7 days left before the recharge channel closed. Time was on his side. Ever since the in-game bosses had started appearing in reality, Lin Yu had not played any games for nearly 10 years. Now he first needed to reacquaint himself with everything. The packs he had just purchased contained all manner of pills. There were over 100 Xian Yuan pills alone that could directly increase cultivation. Lin Yu tapped on a Xian Yuan pill and chose to use it. Instantly, his character's body was enveloped in flamboyant golden radiance. The system chimed. System, notice you have used a Xian Yuan pill. Cultivation increased by 1000 points. System, notice you have used a Xian Yuan pill. Cultivation increased by 1000 points. System, notice you have used a Xian Yuan pill. Cultivation increased by 1000 points. System, notice your cultivation has risen to mid-out-of-body stage. Please keep up the good work. As his character advanced to the mid-out-of-body stage, Lin Yu's rank on the cultivation leaderboard also climbed by 1, rising from 100th to 99th. Piao Shinta featured many different ranking lists, yet each displayed only the top 100 players. Every weekend, those on the list would receive rewards issued by the game. The higher one's placement, the better the rewards. The game had been out for a long time and players' enthusiasm for spending had waned. Most leaderboards were essentially fixed with little change. Just as Lin Yu was about to study the other items in his inventory, a private message suddenly popped up, catching his attention. Brother Qingfeng, the cultivation leaderboard hasn't budged for a whole week. We're nearly at the weekend rewards, and you suddenly ambush your way up. Doesn't seem very righteous, does it? The sender was precisely the player whom Lin Yu had just surpassed on the cultivation leaderboard, a user going by the name Fengzhenren. Yet when Lin Yu saw this private message, his expression abruptly turned cold. Fengzhenren, this man was anything but decent. After the in-game villain bosses descended into reality, this fellow had actually chosen to submit to them and became an enemy of humanity. Lin Yu did not respond to his message. For now, his plan was to recharge quietly, steadily, increasing his character's strength to the utmost before the game began returning cultivation. Among the players on the leaderboards, many were far from virtuous. There was no need for him to flaunt himself. If those people also began recharging aggressively, it would spell trouble. The best course for now was to invest modestly, at first raising his strength, and when the game was on the verge of closing its recharge channel, to pour every last bit of his wealth into it all at once. With that decision, Lin Yu dialed a phone number. Xiaoyan, I'm giving you 3 days. Cash out all of my shares and all of my properties and fixed assets. Aside from the villa I'm living in now, dispose of them all. I need cash as much as possible. His instructions were absolute. He was staking everything on this second chance. Xiaoyan, whose full name is Zhang Yun, served as Lin Ye's steward. She was in charge of managing his stocks, properties, and other assets. Lin Ye's parents had died early, so he inherited the family estate when he was still very young. Huan Yu Group was the company his parents had left behind. In Lin Ye's hands were 51% of Huan Yu Group's shares. Although he disliked managing the company and had entrusted its daily operations to his uncle's family, the annual dividends he received were still an astronomical figure. However, unlike the typical infighting scene in many wealthy clans, Lin Ye's uncle treated him with genuine kindness. For more than a decade, he had been scrupulously proper, never overstepping even the slightest boundary. Moreover, Lin Yu had an excellent relationship with his cousin from his uncle's branch of the family. The two often played together. Not long after Lin Yu finished his call with the steward Jiang Yun, his uncle's call came through. After all, Lin Ye's uncle was the company's second largest shareholder. Lin Yu intended to sell all his shares. It was naturally impossible to keep this from him. Xiaoyu, have you run into some kind of trouble? If you need money, just tell your uncle. There's no need to sell off all your shares. On the other end of the line, Lin Ye's uncle spoke in a flustered, worried tone. For the company, the decision of its largest shareholder Lin Yu to liquidate his stock was nothing short of a catastrophe. Not only would it trigger violent fluctuations in the stock price, but if Lin Ye's shares were acquired by Huan Yu Group's rivals, the consequences would be unthinkable. Yet Lin Ye's resolve was clearly unshakable. He spoke slowly. Uncle, this isn't about money. My mind is made up, so there's no need to try to talk me out of it. Lin Yu did not offer further explanation. After all, how could he possibly explain that a cultivation mobile game could feed back real cultivation to him? Even if he said it aloud, no one would believe it. It was especially true for a middle-aged man like his uncle. The chance of him accepting such a thing was far too small. On the other end of the call, Lin Ye's uncle still wanted to continue persuading him, but Lin Yu cut him off. Uncle, I still have things to do, so I'll hang up first. Oh, right when you have time, ask Xiao Wang to come over and hang out. I haven't seen him in a long while. With that, Lin Yu ended the call. The Xiao Wang Lin Yu mentioned was named Lin Chengwang, his cousin. Strictly speaking, the two of them had just been hanging out together 2 days ago. But for the reborn Lin Yu, it truly felt as if he had not seen this cousin of his for a very long time. After hanging up, Lin Yu immediately unlocked his phone and began operating it again. If his uncle was perceptive enough to let his cousin Xiao Wang come over, Lin Yu would take him along to play the game. That would be Xiao Wang's chance by fate. But if Xiao Wang did not come, then there was nothing Lin Yu could do. With chaos about to descend upon the world, Lin Yu could only first push his own strength to its utmost limit in order to stand firm in the new era to come. First, Lin Yu opened his WeChat wallet to check his balance. After all, 10 years had passed in his previous life, and he had no idea how much spare cash he currently had on hand. The balance showed a little over 400,000 yuan. Next, Lin Yu checked his bank cards. He had only 2. Since Lin Yu usually did not spend extravagantly, most of his money had gone into fixed assets, so the liquid cash he carried was not particularly large. The 2 bank cards together held a little over 3 million yuan. Adding the funds in his WeChat wallet, he had roughly 4 million in total. After gaining a clear picture of his financial situation, Lin Yu once again launched the mobile game Piamiao Xiantu. Converting all 4 million directly into spirit stones was not the optimal choice. There were many bundles in the game that offered far better value than simply using spirit stones to buy items in the in-game shop. Lin Yu once again opened the mobile game Piamiao Xiantu. The first thing that appeared before his eyes was, unsurprisingly, the returning veteran bundle for old players. Esteemed VIP 7 player Chengfeng Jinren, you have not returned to the game for 10 minutes. We have specially prepared a returning veteran grand gift pack for you. For only 648 yuan, you can enjoy the exhilaration of your cultivation soaring at lightning speed. In the past, every time he launched the game, this would pop up. He had always had to manually close it, which was extremely annoying. But now Lin Yu curved his lips into a faint smile and decisively tapped the recharge button. A notification appeared. Congratulations to player Chengfeng Jinren for obtaining the returning veteran grand gift pack, receiving high-grade spirit stone x 100 Xianyuan pills x 20 purple equipment refinement stones x 5. Lin Yu then opened the events interface. He had already purchased all of the daily value bundles, but there were still many other packs available. Lin Yu did not bother reading their details. Whenever he saw a bundle, he simply tapped purchase. Messages flashed across the screen. Congratulations to player Chengfeng Jinren for obtaining the Pearl and Treasure Pack, receiving blue equipment refinement stones x10, purple equipment refinement stones x10. Congratulations to player Chengfeng Jinren for obtaining the Super Mount Pack, receiving Purple Mount Experience Pills x100, Mount Advancement Pills x5, Mount Refinement Pills x5. Congratulations to player Chengfeng Jinren for obtaining the Spirit Beast Evolution Pack, receiving Spirit Beast Collars x3, High-Grade Spirit Beast Attribute Reset Pills x10, Random Height Ear Spirit Beast Skill Books x10. Lin Yu bought every bundle the game would allow him to purchase. At last, Lin Yu's VIP level finally rose to 8. A new prompt appeared. Congratulations, esteemed player Chengfeng Jinren. Your VIP level has risen to 8. You require 213500 more experience points to reach VIP 9. Please keep it up. In this game, the higher your VIP level climbed, the harder it became to advance. VIP 9 required 300,000 points, and rumor had it that VIP 10 demanded a full 1 million. There was simply no way an ordinary player could spend 1,000,000 yuan on a game like this. Even for a rich second-generation heir like Lin Yu, if he had not been reborn with knowledge of the game's secret of feeding back real cultivation, he would never have squandered so much money. Just as Lin Yu thought he had purchased every available bundle, the events button in the game suddenly lit up again. When the events button lit up, it meant a new event had appeared. Lin Yu hurriedly tapped it open. Sure enough, a new event had been added. Valentine's 7-day fun event. Spend 6 yuan each day to purchase the Valentine's pack. Both you and your DAO partner will receive the same rewards. One act of giving, double the return. After 7 days, the final grand prize will be awarded based on the heartbeat index rankings of all players. Next to the event was a leaderboard recording each player's heartbeat index. Lin Yu was all too familiar with this kind of ploy. The so-called heartbeat index was clearly just a measure of how much you had recharged. At the same time, seeing this event jogged his memory. He seemed to recall that he still had a dual cultivation DAO partner in the game. However, they did not keep in close contact back when they formed their DAO partnership. It had been purely to make completing various events more convenient. In his previous life, Lin Yu had not participated in this event at all. But this time he had no intention of missing a single event. Lin Yu decisively opened the bundle purchase page within the event. The game's prompt claimed it was only 6 yuan per day, but in truth there were 6 tiers of Valentine's packs. They were priced at 6 yuan, 18 yuan, 78 yuan, 588 yuan, 128 yuan, and 588 yuan. Underneath the packs there was a line of small text. Love cannot be measured with money, but for your dual cultivation DAO partner, please offer your true heart. The higher the tier of the pack you purchase, the easier it is for your sincerity to be seen by the other party. Let your names appear on the heartbeat rankings. The game used every trick imaginable to coax players into spending. The 6 yuan price point was indeed real, but if you wanted to make it onto the leaderboard, spending only 6 yuan was pure fantasy. In the past, Lin Yu would only have curled his lip in disdain, inwardly cursing anyone who joined such a trash event as a fool. After spending tens of thousands on the game before, he had long since seen through its methods. But now, he paid without hesitation. He bought every one of the 6 tiers of Valentine's packs. At the same time, as soon as he completed the 6 purchases, the name Chengfeng Jinren instantly appeared on the heartbeat rankings. However, the top spot on the heartbeat rankings did not display only the name Chengfeng Jinren. Another name sat directly beside his. Between the two names, a tiny pink heart pulsed and flashed without pause. Lin Yu naturally recognized the name after the little heart. It was his in-game dual cultivation DAO partner Shui Yunxianzi. Just then Lin Yu noticed he had received a private message. It was actually from Shui Yunxianzi. I thought you didn't really play anymore. I didn't expect you to even recharge the Valentine's packs. Send me your bank card number. I'll cover half of what you... Upon hearing the words of the water cloud fairy, Lin Yu was suddenly reminded of many things. He knew she was not joking. This dual cultivation partner he randomly found in the game was indeed different from ordinary women. Lin Yu recalled that when they had just registered as partners in the game, he had bought a gift for her in the game mall to express his feelings. Lin Yu had a slight inclination towards male chauvinism. Although it was just a game, they had just tied the knot, and as a man he felt he should show some intention. However, to his surprise, as soon as he gave the gift, she sent him an even more expensive one, accompanied by Lin Yu still vividly remembers, "I don't lack money, don't show off in front of me." Since then he has not sent any valuable gifts in the game. Nevertheless, in the game it was still necessary for both to exchange gifts to increase their affinity. The affinity of dual cultivation partners allowed them to complete specific game tasks together. Thus Lin Yu could only send some strange items. For instance, broken spirit stones, defective low-grade artifacts, irreparable damaged formations, and so on. Lin Yu looked at the private message in the game and couldn't help but smile. After some thought, Lin Yu replied, "No need to be polite, I'm not short on money." He wasn't saying this just for fun. After all, the game would start feedbacking cultivation in 7 days, and he needed to recharge more while he could. As a reincarnator, Lin Yu understood many things better than in his past life. What he said had a bit of a provocation to it. The water cloud fairy would surely spend money after seeing this. After all, having a partner meant she could invest more, which would benefit them in the future. Sure enough, within 3 minutes Lin Yu received a notification in the game. "Dear VIP8 player Chengfeng, your dual cultivation partner Water Cloud Fairy has purchased a Valentine's Day gift package in the game. You have received the corresponding rewards, and the package has been sent to your backpack. Please check it." After the Water Cloud Fairy also purchased all the Valentine's Day gift packages, the affection index on the Heartthrob leaderboard for Chengfeng and Water Cloud Fairy changed. Although they still ranked first, the affection index doubled. It was clear that to climb this leaderboard, both needed to make efforts simultaneously. After purchasing the Valentine's Day gift packages, Water Cloud Fairy did not continue chatting with Lin Yu. Their relationship was not particularly close, and their interactions were limited to the game. No longer concerned about Water Cloud Fairy, Lin Yu began to open the gift packages to enhance his strength. In the game, a player's strength was not solely determined by their cultivation, many other factors were at play. These included spiritual beasts, equipment mounts, techniques, sect bonuses, and so on. In the future, all these elements would gradually reflect on the players. Whether it was equipment or spiritual beasts, they would ultimately appear in the real world. Even the player's sect along with the NPCs within it would come to reality. Of course, cultivation was the most significant factor affecting strength. Lin Yu decisively opened various gift packages in his backpack, beginning a new round of opening. Various elixirs and refining stones quickly filled his inventory. Without hesitation, Lin Yu started using different elixirs. Some increased cultivation, some enhanced spiritual sense, and others improved the quality of his spiritual roots. After using up the elixirs that boosted his cultivation and attributes, Lin Yu paused. He decided to save the elixirs that enhanced equipment and spiritual beasts for later when he could purchase stronger. Time flew by while playing the game, and before he knew it, it was noon. Lin Yu's stomach began to growl. Upon hearing the sound, he couldn't help but smile slightly. Since the game's cultivation feedback, he hadn't eaten for a long time. Moreover, it had been quite a while since he felt this sensation of hunger. Getting up from his bed, Lin Yu made his way to the dining room. There the maid was busy cleaning. Upon seeing Lin Yu approach, she quickly smiled and asked, "Xiao Yu, what do you want to eat for lunch?" Living alone in such a large villa, Lin Yu naturally hired a maid for cooking and cleaning. This maid had worked for Lin Yu for several years, and their relationship was quite good. Lin Yu smiled and said, "Make a bit more for lunch, let's have some meat, I'm feeling a bit hungry." After nearly a decade without eating, he truly missed the sensation of dining. "All right." Upon hearing Lin Yu wanted meat, the maid smiled and quickly began to get busy. Meanwhile, Lin Yu sat at the dining table and took out his phone to check the official forum of Misty Immortal Path. The official forum had a wealth of information such as how to recharge most cost-effectively and how to boost combat power the quickest. Although Lin Yu was wealthy, spending money wisely was what mattered. At that moment, a post suddenly caught Lin Yu's attention. The title was, "Has anyone noticed that the rewards for the game rankings have improved significantly recently?" Lin Yu clicked to read. Most of the content was a rant about the game's imbalance, exacerbating the gap between paying players and free players. However, some points made sense to Lin Yu. The rewards for the top positions on various leaderboards in the game had seen substantial increases. For instance, this time before midnight, the reward for the first place in the cultivation leaderboard was quite absurd. It was actually a half-immortal artifact, Flying Sword. There were probably only a handful of half-immortal artifacts in the entire game. To think that the weekly reward for just being first on a leaderboard was a half-immortal artifact. This was simply a benefit for paying players. Meanwhile, free players received nothing. If this continued, the gap in strength between paying players and free players would only widen. Moreover, according to the post owner's analysis of the recent week's leaderboard rewards, the rewards for the top positions next week would be even more exaggerated. Upon reading this, Lin Yu recalled many things. In his past life, he hadn't spent much money, so he didn't pay much attention to the rewards for the top positions in the leaderboard. Now it seemed that the game had started preparing for cultivation feedback. This time he had to obtain all the rewards from the leaderboards. As Lin Yu read the post, dishes began to be served one after another. There was a steamed base, braised pork, and large prawns. It was truly a feast. In his own home, Lin Yu certainly would not hold back and began to devour the food. However, before he could finish, the doorbell suddenly rang. The maid hurried over to open the door. Soon Lin Yu heard the maid's voice conversing with someone. "It's Xiao Yun, come in quickly." Xiao Yu is eating in the dining room. The visitor was Lin Yu's housekeeper, Zhang Yun. Although Zhang Yun was the housekeeper, she did not live in Lin Yu's villa, only coming to report work when there were important matters. Soon a woman in a black suit, skirt, black stockings, and wearing black-rimmed glasses appeared in the dining room. Zhang Yun was not very old, just a year younger than Lin Yu. However, she had already graduated from a top foreign university with a degree in finance. Not only was she attractive, but her professional knowledge was also quite solid. This was why Lin Yu entrusted his assets to her management. She was both eye-catching and capable. The only thing that somewhat annoyed Lin Yu was that Zhang Yun was a bit aloof. With her high education and beauty, such women were generally more reserved. Even when facing Lin Yu, her boss, she rarely showed a smile. Soon Zhang Yun arrived at the dining room. Lin Yu was still eating heartily, devouring the braised pork. "Boss, I want to ask you face-to-face again, are you really going to cash out all the shares and fixed assets under your name?" Zhang Yun stood before the dining table, her eyes fixed on Lin Yu, asking solemnly. Lin Yu swallowed the red braised pork in his mouth and confidently replied, "Of course, didn't I tell you that over the phone?" Zhang Yun nodded and said, "After all, your idea involves significant interest, so I must ask you in person." Lin Yu tossed another piece of red braised pork into his mouth. Zhang Yun's sense of responsibility was also the reason why Lin Yu felt at ease, letting her manage his assets. Then Zhang Yun continued, "However, cashing out such a large sum at once is not an easy task. The group has strict requirements regarding the flow of shares for major shareholders, especially for someone like you, the largest shareholder. Cashing out is quite troublesome. The time you've given is a bit short. If you want to cash out everything in such a short time, the price may shrink by at least 20% compared to its actual value." Lin Yu waved his hand, stopping Zhang Yun's report. He then directly asked, just tell me how much cash I can get if I liquidate all my assets. Lin Yu didn't care about the intricacies involved. What he was most concerned about was how much he could recharge before his progress in the game. Piao Miao Xian 2 began to reflect his cultivation level. Upon hearing Lin Yu's words, Jiang Yun sighed. Her boss was simply too impatient. But she was already prepared. She took out several sheets of A4 paper from her bag and placed them on the table in front of Lin Yu. I calculated that the amount you can cash out from all your assets within 3 days is on these sheets of paper. Lin Yu picked up the sheets of paper and flipped to the last page where he saw a string of numbers at the very bottom. 10000000000. How many zeros is that? Lin Yu asked. Jiang Yun's face darkened as she replied, 1 billion exactly. Lin Yu nodded, casually handed the sheets back to Jiang Yun and said, go ahead and arrange that. Jiang Yun took the sheets and put them in her bag. Boss, I'm curious, what do you need so much cash for? Jiang Yun suddenly asked weakly. Usually she rarely asked questions on her own. She usually did whatever Lin Yu instructed without asking further. But this time she was simply too curious. Cashing out all assets felt like the boss was planning to abscond with the money. However, as far as Jiang Yun knew, her boss lived comfortably and had no enemies, so there was no need to run away. Jiang Yun's question made Lin Yu pause slightly. A piece of red braised pork that he was holding with his chopsticks suddenly fell onto his pajama pants. Lin Yu put down his chopsticks, reached down to pick up the pork from his pants, and put it in his mouth. Then he sucked on his fingers vigorously. Oh, I have a project worth over 100 million. Goodbye. Jiang Yun turned and left. Lin Yu, still chewing, turned his head and said, aren't you going to eat something? Jiang Yun's figure had already disappeared from the villa's dining room. After eating and drinking to his fill, Lin Yu returned to his bed. Half laying on the soft bed, Lin Yu opened the Piao Miao Xian 2 mobile game again. At home, apart from the cooking maid, Lin Yu was the only one there. Naturally, he could do whatever he wanted without anyone supervising him. The game leaderboard rewards would be distributed at midnight. Since the game had been online for a long time, the number of players spending money had decreased significantly. This led to fewer changes in various leaderboards, and hardly anyone paid attention to the changes in leaderboard rewards. The players posting on the official forum were only a handful. Lin Yu was determined to secure this leaderboard reward. Although he only had over 4 million, it was sufficient. In pay-to-win games, spending money is far more effective than playing hard for a year. If it's not enough, then just spend. Lin Yu opened the leaderboard in the game and began to study it. Trying to achieve first place in all the leaderboards within an afternoon was slightly unrealistic. So he would only aim for the best rewards. Lin Yu studied and found that the best reward was from the Cultivation leaderboard, which offered a semi-mortal flying sword and 10 golden refining stones. 10 golden refining stones could directly upgrade this semi-mortal flying sword to the highest level. Attack-type weapons are the category that boosts combat power the most. Thus, Lin Yu was determined to win this semi-mortal flying sword. However, achieving first place in the Cultivation leaderboard was not an easy feat. Currently, Lin Yu's cultivation level was only at the mid-stage of the out-of-body realm, while the first-ranked player in the game had already reached the early stage of the nascent soul realm. There was still a gap of 1 realm in between. Fortunately, the game shop sold Xianyuan pills. Xianyuan pills are the most commonly used items in the game to enhance players' cultivation and are the only purchasable items that can boost cultivation. Each one costs 1 high-grade spirit stone. Directly recharging to buy high-grade spirit stones costs 10 yuan each with no discounts. This means that Xianyuan pills cost 10 yuan each. Lin Yu had already exhausted all his game gift packages, so he could only buy this to enhance his cultivation. He calculated the gap between his cultivation and the nascent soul realm. This data could all be found on the official forum. After calculations, Lin Yu needed 50,000 Xianyuan pills to reach the early stage of the nascent soul realm. But that wasn't enough. In that case, Lin Yu didn't hesitate. After all, spending money in the Piao Miao Xian 2 game didn't hurt at all. He opened the recharge panel and directly entered 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. Dear VIP 8 player Chung Feng Jinrun, would you like to spend 1 million cash to purchase 100 high-grade spirit stones? Friendly reminder: game items are non-refundable once sold. I must say the game Piao Miao Xian 2 is quite conscientious despite some money-grabbing aspects. At least they remind players when making large recharges. Of course, even if players want to refund their money, it's impossible. As a reincarnated person, Lin Yu was well aware that the developers behind this game didn't exist at all. Those games that feedback cultivation levels globally had no developers. How they came to be, even Lin Yu couldn't figure it out. Looking at the recharge button on his phone, Lin Yu decisively pressed it. Just 1 million. It's merely an appetizer with another billion to follow. Dear VIP 8 player Chung Feng Jinren, you have recharged 100 yuan, and your VIP level has been upgraded to level 10. Keep it up. Meanwhile, the VIP 8 above Lin Yu's character changed to VIP 10. VIP 10 is already the highest VIP level in the game. After reaching this VIP level, future game feedback on cultivation will be at 100%. Immediately after, Lin Yu opened the game shop and began purchasing Xianyuan pills. Dear VIP 10 player Chung Fengzhen, Ren, the quantity of Xianyuan pills you purchased exceeds your backpack storage limit. Would you like to use them directly? Lin Yu smiled slightly. Was there really such a good thing? He was worried that purchasing 100,000 Xianyuan pills at once would be troublesome to use. Confirm. After Lin Yu clicked the confirm button, his game character was enveloped in a frenzy of golden light. System prompt: you have used a Xianyuan pill, and your cultivation has increased by 1,000 points. System prompt: you have used a Xianyuan pill, and your cultivation has increased by 1,000 points. System prompt: your cultivation has been raised to the late out-of-body realm. Keep it up. System prompt: your cultivation has been raised to the late nascent soul realm. Keep it up. The golden light of cultivation enhancement flickered for a full 2 minutes before gradually subsiding. Lin Yu's game character had already reached the late stage of the nascent soul realm. He was just one step away from breaking through to the Dongxi realm. Lin Yu hurriedly opened the cultivation leaderboard, and at this moment the name of the player in first place had already changed to Lin Yu's Chung Fengzhen Ren. Lin Yu smiled slightly and began to study the other leaderboards. Being first place in the cultivation leaderboard wasn't enough. Lin Yu started to research the Spirit Beast leaderboard. Spirit Beasts are crucial in this cultivation mobile game, significantly increasing players' combat power. Once Spirit Beasts appear in the real world, they will become powerful allies for players. The entire night Lin Yu was recharging. While recharging, he purchased various equipment and pills from the store to enhance his strength. That night Lin Yu spent a total of 4 million. He was left with only a few 100,000. Perhaps due to the lack of changes on the game's leaderboard for a long time, Lin Yu's sudden emergence did not immediately attract the attention of those in the top ranks. It wasn't until midnight, when the game distributed leaderboard rewards, that many players suddenly woke up. In the rankings for cultivation, Spirit Beasts equipment and Spirit Roots, the first place in all 4 of the most important categories changed to a player named Chung Fengzhen Ren. At this moment, those in the top ranks were already late to react. The generous rewards had already been claimed by having spent only 4 million to reap such bountiful rewards. Lin Yu couldn't imagine what would happen if he recharged 10 billion. This is the benefit of a pay-to-win game. For someone like Lin Yu who doesn't care about money and has plenty of it, anything that can be solved with money is not a problem. After claiming the first place reward, Lin Yu went to sleep. However, that night, the official forum of Pyamiao 2 erupted. Countless veteran players discussed the news of someone spending millions in a single night. Though they did not know exactly how much Lin Yu had spent, the veterans could roughly calculate that suddenly claiming 4 first places on the leaderboard could not have been achieved without spending several million. The hottest threads on the forum were all about Lin Yu. A divine level fool appears. The game is about to collapse, yet someone spent millions in one night. I bet this player named Chung Fengzhen Ren is just an elementary school student who stole his parents' credit card to spend millions, and tomorrow's morning news will report about the kid's parents suing the game company. Players are laundering money through Pyamiao 2, recharging millions, then selling accounts. Just wait for tomorrow's mobile game account trading information. Winning the lottery wouldn't lead to such spending. This world is too ridiculous. I am the most beautiful female player in Pyamiao 2. Please help me investigate the true identity of Chung Fengzhen Ren. I am willing to marry him. The next morning, as the sun rose, Lin Yu opened his eyes. Although he woke up quite early, he felt incredibly refreshed after that sleep. After all, in his past life, he rarely had the opportunity to sleep. It had been a long time since he experienced such a deep slumber. Lin Yu stretched comfortably and leaned back before picking up his phone from the bedside. He opened the Pyamiao 2 mobile game. A flurry of private message notifications sounded. Lin Yu had already anticipated this situation. These private messages were sent by some friends in the game. Most were inquiries about his situation, while some congratulated him on his cultivation improvement. Lin Yu casually glanced at them and did not reply. However, 2 private messages caught Lin Yu's attention. One was from the guy who was previously first on the cultivation leaderboard and was now second. Songyun Maju, kid, do you dare to send me your address? Songyun Maju was the guy who was previously first on the cultivation leaderboard. He was a demon cultivator. In the Pyamiao 2 mobile game, players can choose to cultivate as either immortals or demons, but being a demon does not necessarily mean being evil, it's just a different path of cultivation. Lin Yu was naturally familiar with the name Songyun Maju. In his past life, this guy was also one of the players who sided with the demonic faction. Moreover, unlike Yun Jinren, who was ranked 100, his cultivation was very strong. If he hadn't been reborn, he would have remained the strongest cultivator in the entire game. His allegiance to the demonic faction had dealt a significant blow to the player faction. However, now he was no longer the top-ranked player. As long as Lin Yu recharged enough, even if all the other players sided with those demons, he would not be afraid. Lin Yu could already imagine his furious expression. Of course, the most furious moment was yet to come. When he learns that the Piao Xian 2 mobile game can reward players based on their cultivation, he would definitely hate that Lin Yu stole his first place. Lin Yu couldn't help but smile slightly. He then looked at the last private message. This private message was sent by Shueiyun Xianzi. Lin Yu didn't expect that Shueiyun Xianzi, who usually rarely chatted with him, had actively reached out to him twice in the past 2 days. Shueiyun Xianzi, are you crazy? How much did you spend? Aren't you afraid your parents will spank you? Lin Yu thought for a moment and replied, what? Can't you keep up, little girl? Unlike those other players' messages, Lin Yu had no intention of responding to them. There was no benefit in chatting too much. But Shueiyun Xianzi was different. Using a bit of provocation might encourage her to spend more. Shueiyun Xianzi was not online in the morning, so she naturally did not reply to Lin Yu's message. Lin Yu began to continue studying the game. The rewards for claiming the 4 first places yesterday were quite substantial. He decisively upgraded his game character once again. He equipped all his gear and used all the pills that enhanced his cultivation and spirit roots. After using various items, Lin Yu began to study other things. Everything Lin Yu was doing now was to ensure that once the game started rewarding players for their cultivation, his strength could be even stronger. To enhance his strength aside from his own cultivation and equipment, there was another crucial element, the sect. In the Piao Xian 2 game, players would join a game sect. Within the sect, players could complete various tasks and receive sect rewards, as well as gain protection from the sect's elders. As a reborn individual, Lin Yu understood the importance of a sect very well. In the future, not only would those demonic factions descend into reality, but NPCs from the game would also appear. This meant that the elders of the players' sects would also manifest in the real world. Therefore, joining a powerful sect would provide a strong backing. The sect Lin Yu was part of was a first-rate sect. In the Piao Xian 2 mobile game, the sect levels range from low to high: third-rate sects, second-rate sects, first-rate sects, super sects, and finally sacred lands. A first-rate sect is already considered quite good, ranking above average among all sects in the game. But that was Lin Yu's backing was still lacking a bit. Currently, there were 2 options available to him. One was to change sects to a more powerful super sect or a sacred land. The second option was to donate some spirit stones or resources to elevate the sect's rank. After considering, Lin Yu decided to go with the second option. The reason was simple: once a player leaves a sect, they need to wait 7 days before they can rejoin a new sect, and it's uncertain if the super sects or sacred lands have enough disciples. Changing sects carries too much risk. There's a chance that it could leave him isolated. Since that's the case, Lin Yu decided to donate some items to help the sect quickly elevate its rank. Of course, there was another reason. Lin Yu had joined this sect called Changha sect since he started playing the game, and his intimacy with the sect leader had reached the highest level. This meant that the leader of Changha sect would not betray Lin Yu. If he were to switch to another sect and start building intimacy from scratch, it would take a long time to reach the current level. Moreover, the leader of Changha sect was a righteous NPC. Most importantly, the leader was an incredibly... Every game sect has a donation option. Players can donate various items and spirit stones to elevate the sect's level. However, as a reborn individual, Lin Yu was aware of certain facts that other players did not know. Donating items or spirit stones to a sect may enhance the overall strength of the sect, but it does not make a specific NPC within the sect stronger. 100 nascent souls cannot compare to a single major ascension cultivator. Although Lin Yu had money, he wouldn't waste it knowing it was futile. He had a better plan. Lin Yu decisively controlled his game character to find the leader of Changha sect. The leader was a female NPC named Jingxin Jinren. Though she was dressed in a Taoist robe, her graceful figure could still be vaguely seen. Lin Yu clicked on Jingxin Jinren, and several options appeared before him. Talk, gift information, goodbye. Previously, Lin Yu had spent 4 million, but did not use it all. There were still many resources left, including several pills and equipment that Lin Yu had no use for, along with some surplus spirit stones. Therefore, Lin Yu decided to give everything to the master of Changha sect, Jingxin Jinren. Although Jingxin Jinren is an NPC, Lin Yu knew that as long as his intimacy with the NPC reached the highest level, she would never betray him. She might even be more loyal than real humans. Moreover, most importantly, the NPCs in Piao Xianlu cultivate faster than players. As long as the resources are sufficient, they can rapidly enhance their cultivation. Players have to work hard to improve their cultivation by grinding dungeons, secluding themselves for training, or using Xian Yuan pills. However, NPCs are different. As long as players are willing to give resources, their training speed will be astonishing. They are not limited by time at all. However, no player would casually give their cultivation resources to NPCs. But as a reborn individual, Lin Yu understood the importance of NPCs better than ordinary players. To elevate an NPC to the same cultivation level as himself, the money spent would be less than 1/3 of what he would need for his own cultivation. Given this, providing the surplus resources to closely connected NPCs would definitely create a powerful backing for himself. Would you like to gift Jingxin Jinren 5,800 high-grade spirit stones? Lin Yu had already gifted all the equipment and pills, and now he was about to give away all the spirit stones he had. Looking at the two options that popped up, Lin Yu decisively clicked confirm. Immediately, a line of prompts appeared in the game. System prompt: your intimacy with the NPC Jingxin Jinren has increased by 5,800 points, meeting the requirements to unlock hidden intimacy levels. System prompt: your intimacy with the NPC Jingxin Jinren has reached a level of deep bonding. If you continue to improve, you may ultimately achieve the level of life and death together. Players should explore the specifics of hidden intimacy levels themselves. Seeing this prompt, Lin Yu was somewhat stunned. He never expected that there would be hidden levels of intimacy for NPCs. In the past, Lin Yu only knew that the highest level was intimacy without bounds. Once that level was reached, NPCs would basically not betray players. However, he was unaware of what effects would arise from achieving deep bonding. Moreover, what did life and death together mean after reaching deep bonding? It seems that when his 10 billion funds arrive, he should gift Jingxin Jinren even more. Perhaps by then he could create a backing more powerful than himself, and one that would be absolutely loyal. After playing the game for a while, Lin Yu prepared to get up for breakfast. The aunt had already made breakfast. However, before Lin Yu could start eating, guests arrived at the house. Before the person even reached the dining room, the voice arrived first. "Brother, I haven't eaten, yet have you prepared breakfast for me?" Hearing this voice, Lin Yu immediately smiled. This voice was very familiar. It belonged to his cousin Xiao Guang, who had the best relationship with him. Xiao Guang was 3 years younger than Lin Yu and had followed him around since he was little. Since Lin Yu was an only child, he had taken good care of his cousin since childhood. Their relationship was incredibly close. Naturally, breakfast had not been prepared as Lin Yu did not know Xiao Guang would come today. However, without Lin Yu having to arrange it, the aunt started to make breakfast again. Xiao Guang often came over to mooch meals, and the aunt was quite familiar with it. Soon Xiao Guang appeared in Lin Yu's dining room. Xiao Guang was a chubby boy, fair and tender, looking slightly younger than his actual age. Upon entering, he was unceremonious and directly sat down beside Lin Yu. "Brother Yu." Xiao Guang was just about to say something when he caught sight of Lin Yu looking at him with a smile. Instantly, a bitter expression appeared on his face. "Brother, you can't have guessed what I was going to say, right?" Xiao Guang asked with a wry smile. Lin Yu chuckled and said, "Is it that your dad sent you to be a mediator? To persuade me not to sell company shares?" Xiao Guang pressed his lips together, nodded, and gave Lin Yu a thumbs up. "Brother, you really are insightful." Lin Yu naturally had guessed it. After all, such a significant matter as selling all his shares would not go unnoticed by his uncle. But he also knew his nephew's personality, so the best way to persuade him was to send Xiao Guang. With their brotherly bond, perhaps Xiao Guang's persuasion could change Lin Yu's mind. However, Lin Yu couldn't help but secretly chuckle. It seemed that his uncle did not understand his cousin as well as he did. Because their relationship was so good, it was possible that it was not Xiao Guang persuading him successfully, but rather Lin Yu pulling Xiao Guang to his side. "Xiao Guang, do you believe me?" Lin Yu asked. Xiao Guang hurriedly nodded. He had always trusted his cousin Lin. "What are you talking about, brother? If you ask me to drink 3 cups, I will definitely not drink 2.5, even if I puke in my pants." Lin Yu quickly stopped Xiao Guang from continuing. This kid always loved to talk nonsense. Last time he drank, he indeed vomited in his pants, but it was in his female companion's pants. "Xiao Guang, this time I'm not asking you to drink, I'm asking you to play a game." "Play a game? What game?" Lin Yu extended his hand and said to Xiao Guang, "Take out your phone." Without hesitation, Xiao Guang handed his phone to Lin Yu. Lin Yu easily unlocked the phone without Xiao Guang needing to enter the password, quickly downloading the Piaomiao Xianlu mobile game onto Xiao Guang's phone. "Isn't this the game you used to play all the time, brother?" Xiao Guang asked. Lin Yu nodded, then lowered his voice intentionally and said, "You need to start playing this game right now. For the next few days, don't do anything else. Use all the money you can get to recharge in the game to make your character as strong as possible, understood?" Xiao Guang was somewhat stunned, not quite understanding what his cousin meant. However, Lin Yu did not give him the chance to ask. Instead, he directly said, "If you trust me, don't ask anything, just do as I say. I want to deceive you." Although Xiao Guang trusted his cousin Lin Yu very much, Lin Yu still did not tell him about how the game would later reflect on his cultivation. This matter was indeed too outrageous. If it weren't for Lin Yu being reborn, he himself would not believe it. Hearing Lin Yu's serious words, Xiao Guang could only nod. Indeed, throughout their lives, his cousin had never deceived him. "Okay, then I'll start playing now." Xiao Guang picked up his phone, opened the Piaomiao Xianlu mobile game, and began creating a character. However, Lin Yu was even more decisive. He said to Xiao Guang, "Send a message to your dad saying you will be staying here for a few days, and then take out the SIM card and use my Wi-Fi to play the game." Xiao Guang was just starting to play the game, so it was indeed a bit late. It was only by ignoring everything outside that he could catch up a little. Fortunately, Xiao Guang had always listened to Lin Yu. Additionally, he had come here to persuade Lin Yu not to sell the company shares. His dad would be more than happy for his son to stay with Lin Yu a few more days. Xiao Guang busily fiddled with his phone, while Lin Yu spoke to the aunt. "Aunt, Xiao Guang will be staying here for the next few days, so please prepare a room for him, and when you cook, make enough for 2. However, Lin Yu looked at Xiao Guang's figure and said, "Make it enough for 3. The aunt brought out breakfast for Xiao Guang and smiled. Okay, they'll go tidy up his room right now. In the dining room, Xiao Guang ate while starting to play the game. Brother, I'm just starting. Can you show me how to play? Xiao Guang asked. What a load of crap. Spending a day teaching you isn't as good as spending $6. The Piaomiao Xianlu mobile game can indeed have a high-level character, help a low-level character, saving quite a bit of time for the low-level character. But that's how pay-to-win games are. No matter how hard you try, it's not as fast as paying to win. Hearing Lin Yes' words, Xiao Guang was slightly stunned, seemingly coming to a realization. Okay, then he'll recharge $6. Lin Yu said helplessly, do you only have $6 in pocket money? No, I have a lot. How much is a lot? Lin Yes' eyes lit up. Xiao Guang extended one finger. 1,000. Lin Yu asked. Xiao Guang shook his head and said 1 million. Wow, that's a lot. Lin Yu was genuinely shocked. Usually this kid didn't have much pocket money. Every time they went out to play, it was Lin Yu who supported him. He never expected Xiao Guang to be so well off this time. Xiao Guang chuckled and explained, I borrowed $1 million from my dad to persuade you and planned to buy a new car. Hearing this explanation, Lin Yu couldn't help but give Xiao Guang a thumbs up. That money must be at least half of his. If it were before Lin, you would definitely take half. But considering he would soon have 10 billion, he thought about it and decided against it. What car to buy? Just put the million into the game. Thus, Xiao Guang took up residence in Lin Yes' villa. The two of them spent their days sleeping, eating, and entirely absorbed in games. Lin Yu logged in each day to finish tasks and had reserved several $100,000 to fully cover the Valentine's event top-ups. The names Chengfeng Jinren and Shuiyun Xianzi remained perched atop the romance leaderboard. Meanwhile, Xiao Guang poured his entire 1 million into the game. Although he usually played late, the vast expenditure quickly elevated his character's strength. He had even climbed into the top 100 on the Cultivation leaderboard. Had he not started so late, it would likely have been simple for Xiao Guang, after spending $1 million, to surge into the top 10. What's your in-game name? Lin Yu asked casually, having not added Xiao Guang as a friend after a day of play. Xiao Guang smiled faintly and replied, in the game I'm called Yushui Jinren. Hearing that, Lin Yu paused. He was Chengfeng and his companion called himself Yushui. Together the two names sounded oddly like brothers. But then Lin Yu suddenly asked, did you know my in-game name all along? Xiao Guang knew he had been playing a mobile game, but had never probed for details. How could he have known that Lin Yes' in-game handle was Chengfeng Jinren? Hearing the question, Xiao Guang was slightly taken aback and asked, what name? I don't know. Lin Yu was momentarily baffled. You don't know I'm Chengfeng Jinren? Then why did you choose to name yourself Yushui Jinren? Xiao Guang laughed. Brother, I've just started seeing someone her nickname is a Shui. At those words, Lin Yes' expression immediately darkened. So it was just a coincidence. I'd been imagining things. Yet Lin Yes' brow furrowed as if a thought had just occurred to him. Xiao Guang chuckled and teased, brother, did you once have a girlfriend nicknamed A-Foam? Get lost. Lin Yu booted a Guang in the backside. The arrival of Yushui Jinren had once again ignited a wave of discussion on the Piaomiao Xiantu forum. Many players checked Yushui Jinren's profile and discovered it was a newly created account. Newly made, yet already in the top 100 of the cultivation ranking. Clearly a substantial sum had been spent. Some estimated the outlay at no less than $1 million. Previously, Chengfeng Jinren had spent several million to contest the top spot. Now Yushui Jinren had spent $1 million to squeeze into the top 100. There seemed to be a strange connection between the two incidents, especially since the two names themselves suggested some Over the past 2 days, the forum had been dominated by discussion of the pair. If Chengfeng and Yushui aren't connected, then I'll eat my words. My name backwards would be Fu Bao. If you reverse that name, it should read Qiong by right. I think the names Chengfeng and Yushui are not simple at all. It's a pity for the two water-like maidens. What do you mean, what maidens? Are you genuinely clueless or pretending to be? One is Cheng, the other Yu. Could it be any more obvious? The forum's tone has gotten coarse. Let's discuss why these two players are spending so much. After all, this game feels almost dead. It's hard to believe anyone would spend millions out of sheer boredom. This dying game has been around 2 years and still only has one server. If they opened a new server, they'd surely attract new players. 3 days passed in a flash. While Lin Yu and Xiao Guang hid away in the villa and played a monumental event rocked Binhai City. Huanyu Group, one of Binhai City's top 3 by market value, saw its largest shareholder sell all his shares at a surprisingly discounted price. It was not outrageously cheap, merely lower than normal due to urgency. The news shook Binhai's business circles to their core. At that moment, in a detached villa on the city's outskirts, a slightly portly middle-aged man received a call, slammed his hand on the table, and stood up. His face was sullen. A middle-aged woman hurried in and asked with concern, "What's wrong, Lao Lin? Why are you so angry?" Lao Lin sighed bitterly. "I sent Xiao Guang to persuade Xiao Yu, but 3 days passed with no response, and the calls went unanswered. Now Xiao Ye's shares have been sold." The woman looked shocked. "That quickly? It's only been a few days." "Yes, only 3 days. I don't know why Xiao Yu was in such a hurry to cash out." After a moment's thought, the man prepared to leave, saying, "No. I must go see Xiao Yu in person. But the woman stopped him. If the shares are already sold, it's too late to confront him now. Better to think about how to recover, she urged him earnestly. A change of the primary shareholder was nothing short of a cataclysm for Huanyu Group. Back when Lin Yu had been the largest shareholder and had paid little attention to company affairs, his uncle had effectively ruled over Huanyu Group. His words had come to represent the group's decisions, and thus Huanyu had grown swiftly. But now the primary shareholder had changed, and future decisions would likely require the new shareholder's approval. After thinking it over, the man paused. He sighed again and told the woman, "Go to Xiao Yu's place and see if he's facing some difficulty or other trouble. Leave the company's matters to me." Although the middle-aged man was angry, Lin Yu was after all his nephew. With his elder brother and sister-in-law having died young, he had always treated Lin Yu as his own son. Despite the corporate crisis, he remained deeply concerned for his nephew. The woman gave him a gentle look, nodded, and said, "All right, don't worry. He'll go to Xiao Yu now and have a look." Meanwhile, just as Lin Yu's uncle received that call, Lin Yu himself received a text message. It was from the bank. "Dear valued XX Bank client, your savings card ending in 0001 received RMB 100 at 1803 on February 11th. Your current balance is RMB 100320000. Lin Yu opened the message, his eyes lit up and the corner of his mouth curled into a small smile. Xiao Guang, who had been playing nearby, hurried over, glanced at Lin Yu's phone, and asked, "Brother, what's got you so happy? Go play your game." Lin Yu hastily shoved Xiao Guang aside. He could not let him see this. Otherwise, the boy would be begging and sobbing for a share. Lin Yu knew that trait of the boy all too well. At the same time, Lin Yu received a call from Zhang Yun. "Boss, did the money arrive?" "Yes, it did." "Well done. They'll give you a year-end bonus." Hearing the word bonus, Zhang Yun sounded noticeably pleased on the other end. Lin Yu, the employer, was generous. Zhang Yun had received generous year-end bonuses before. It seemed this year would be even better. "Thank you, boss. By the way, do you have any arrangements for my work going forward?" Zhang Yun suddenly asked. Her original job had been to manage Lin Yu's assets. But now Lin Yu's assets had been converted entirely to cash, and Zhang Yun appeared to have no tasks left. Lin Yu considered this and admitted he had nothing to assign. "Perhaps there will be work in the future. For now, take paid leave. Keep your phone on and we'll call if anything comes up." He then hung up. At that moment, the Xiao Guang he had shoved away returned. "Brother, does Sister Zhang Yun still not have a boyfriend?" Xiao Guang asked with a conspiratorial air. Lin Yu frowned slightly. "Don't you already have a shui?" Xiao Guang hurried to explain. "I mean, you and Sister Zhang Yun would be a good match. Similar ages, she's beautiful and graceful, and she's a top graduate." Xiao Guang visited Lin Yu often and naturally knew Zhang Yun. Lin Yu snorted and said, "Go play your game. A high achiever like Zhang Yun wouldn't look twice at game-obsessed country bumpkins like us." As he spoke, he lifted a foot. Startled by Lin Yu's movement, Xiao Guang scrambled back a few steps, muttering, "How do you know top students don't play games?" In the heart of Zhanghai City, within a high-end apartment in a prestigious neighborhood, Zhang Yun stretched lazily after hanging up the phone by the floor-to-ceiling window. She then reclined on the sofa in front of the window. "Paid vacation, truly wonderful. I've been exhausted for 3 days. Finally, I can enjoy some gaming time." Zhang Yun murmured to herself, then opened the mobile game Piao Xintu. Soon, accompanied by grandiose music, the familiar interface appeared before her. "As a distinguished VIP 7-player Fairy Shuyun, you have not returned to the game for 19 hours. We present you with a returning player gift pack. For just 648 yuan, you can experience a rapid enhancement in cultivation." Zhang Yun is actually Fairy Shuyun, the dual cultivation partner of Lin Yu in the game. Yet both Lin Yu and Zhang Yun are unaware of this. They usually converse more about work and have never discussed gaming. If Lin Yu knew that Zhang Yun was Fairy Shuyun, he would undoubtedly be astounded. Recently, Zhang Yun has been busy assisting her boss Lin Yu with financial matters, leaving her little time for gaming during the day. The only time she logged into the game was during lunch yesterday. Now, seeing this familiar Peidoan interface, Zhang Yun prepared to close it and play the game. She had spent quite a lot at the beginning of the game, but her enthusiasm for spending had waned over time. However, this time she hesitated for a moment. Then almost instinctively she clicked the confirm button. "Why did I click confirm?" Zhang Yun said, speechless. But since she had already clicked, she decided to spend 648. Although Zhang Yun wasn't as wealthy as Lin Yu, spending a few tens of thousands on gaming was commonplace for her. Of course, her spending habits were largely influenced by her dual cultivation partner Master Qingfeng in the game. That guy has been inexplicably spending heavily lately. Zhang Yun is not someone who likes to take advantage of others. In the game during the Valentine's event, if one partner makes a purchase, both would receive the same gift pack. This left Zhang Yun somewhat speechless. She couldn't just take all those gift packs without reason. While the other party was unwilling to share the cost, Zhang Yun had no choice but to spend money to also purchase all the Valentine's gift packs. Zhang Yun's interest in spending suddenly increased a bit because of this matter. Next, she opened the Valentine's event interface and began to recharge for those gift packs one by one. Since she was participating in the event, she aimed to claim the top spot. Zhang Yun was also a competitive person, otherwise she wouldn't have reached VIP level 7 in the game. At Lin Yes Villa, Xiaoguang's mother Lin Yes aunt finally arrived. However, she didn't stay for long after arriving. She just scolded Xiaoguang a few times, telling him to put the SIM card back in his phone, then chatted briefly with Lin Yu before leaving. Her main purpose for coming was to check if her nephew Lin Yu was in any trouble. Seeing the two of them full of life and evidently in good spirits, she left with peace of mind. She rarely interfered with matters at the company. With her son at his cousin's place, she felt quite reassured. After all, compared to her own son Lin Yu was far more. After Xiaoguang's mother left, Lin Yu continued to play games with Xiaoguang. Xiaoguang's cultivation was improved. Previously, due to spending 1 million, he had quickly caught up to some players, and now he had been focusing on completing important tasks over these past few days. However, his cultivation still only ranked at the very bottom of the cultivation leaderboard. In other rankings, he didn't even make it onto the list. Time was still too short, and catching up in other aspects was still somewhat difficult. As for Lin Yu, since he played often, the best way to enhance his character's combat power was just one. That is spending money. With 10 billion in his bank account, Lin Yu needed to carefully plan how to spend this 10 billion. Lin Yu opened the Piao Shinta mobile game forum, then took out a small notebook to begin formulating a spending plan. If he was going to recharge a lot, he needed a detailed plan. At that moment, Xiaoguang quietly leaned over again. He was always restless. If Lin Yu hadn't forced him to play the game, he wouldn't be so calm. Bro, what are you writing? What era is it that you're still using a pen? Xiaoguang leaned beside Lin Yu, teasingly asking. This time Lin Yu didn't hesitate and directly kicked Xiaoguang away. Just play the game honestly. I'm jotting down how much you've spent while staying here with me, and you'll have to pay me back later. Upon hearing Lin Yes' words, Xiaoguang was instantly stunned. Bro, I'm sorry. He'll go play the game right now. Please don't ask me for money. I'm so broke, I don't have a penny left. Xiaoguang had only 1 million, and after spending it all in the game, he was completely broke. He would have to stay at his cousin's place until the next time his mom sent him his pocket money. But the next time he got pocket money from home seemed a long way off, especially since he had just asked for 1 million. Seeing Xiaoguang hurriedly open the game and play obediently, Lin Yu couldn't help but smile slightly. In his previous life, although his uncle's family survived under his protection after he perished in battle, their fate was unimaginable. But this life was completely different. Not only would his strength surpass that of his previous life, but even Xiaoguang possessed considerable cultivation now. No one, no villain or monster in the game could harm himself or his family. Lin Yu calculated how to spend the 10 billion cash, meticulously calculating for an entire day. Using various resources from the official forum combined with Lin Yes' understanding of the game, he divided the 10 billion cash into several parts. Among them, the most important part was to enhance his character's actual combat power. This was divided into many sectors, including equipment, cultivation, spirit beasts, mounts, spiritual roots, skills, and elixirs. Among these, equipment and cultivation were the most vital. These two areas would receive the largest investment from Lin Yu. In addition to these, some external forces were also quite significant for game feedback. For example, sex. And also caves. Having a powerful cave not only provides strong protective capabilities for players, but also enhances their cultivation speed in the later stages. Yes, the feedback of cultivation to players after they level up in the game doesn't mean their cultivation is fixed. Players can continue to cultivate in the real world. However, the speed of cultivation in the real world is much slower than in the game. But even the smallest mosquito is still meat. Having a powerful cave could still slightly enhance one's cultivation. That night, Lin Yu stayed alone in his bedroom, locked the door, and began his spending spree. Although there were still 3 days left until the game closed the recharge channel, he couldn't wait until that time. What if something unexpected happened? As a distinguished VIP 10-player master Qingfeng, would you like to spend 100 million cash to purchase 10 million high-grade spirit stones? Friendly reminder, once game items are sold, they cannot be returned. Lin Yu decided to first purchase 100 million high-grade spirit stones to buy Xin Yuan Dan from the game store. First, let's enhance his cultivation to the peak. Confirmed, since the launch of Piao Shintu, it was the first time a player had recharged by the hundreds of millions. Therefore, even Lin Yu didn't expect that after recharging 100 million, a shocking prompt would pop up on the game. Congratulations, distinguished VIP 10-player Master Qingfeng. You have successfully recharged 100 million. You have activated the hidden VIP level cap. The highest hidden VIP is level 12. Your VIP level has increased to VIP 11, and you need 900 million more to reach VIP 12. Lin Yu was utterly astonished. This game actually has hidden VIP levels. Once a player's VIP level reaches level 10, they can receive 100 feedback on their cultivation. If the VIP level reaches 12, wouldn't that mean a 120 feedback on cultivation? At that time, if his cultivation reaches the peak of the Great Ascension stage, multiplying it by 120. Wouldn't that be? As Lin Yu looked at the game prompt before him, his eyes began to shine brighter. A bold idea took shape in his mind. In his past life, the highest cultivation level among players after game feedback was only the fusion stage. The strongest among the demonic villains was at the Mahayana stage. Players' cultivation levels could not compare to those demonic antagonists at all. But now he could not only raise his cultivation level to the peak of Mahayana through in-game purchases, but there was also a chance of receiving a 120% feedback on his cultivation. At that time, wouldn't his cultivation surpass the Mahayana stage? Moreover, he still had 900 million in his account, which was just enough to elevate his VIP level to level 12. It felt as if it was tailor-made for him. Could it be that he had the opportunity to surpass the cultivation limit in the game? What lies beyond the Mahayana stage? The more Lin Yu thought about it, the more excited he became, and it took a long time for him to gradually calm down. Then Lin Yu began purchasing Xian Yuan pills in the game shop. 10 million Xian Yuan pills were enough to elevate his cultivation to the peak of Mahayana. Dear VIP 11 player Changfeng Jinren, the quantity of Xian Yuan pills you have purchased exceeds your bag storage limit. Would you like to use them directly? Lin Yu decisively clicked the confirm button. Immediately, a familiar golden light began to shine around his character. The system prompts began to flash continuously. System prompt: you have used Xian Yuan pills, and your cultivation has increased by 1,000 points. System prompt: you have used Xian Yuan pills, and your cultivation has increased by 1,000 points. System prompt: your cultivation has risen to the early stage of the void opening realm. Keep it up. System prompt: your cultivation has risen to the peak of Mahayana. Keep it up. Once Lin Yu's character's cultivation reached the Mahayana stage, Xian Yuan pills could no longer be used. However, Lin Yu had calculated accurately. He had only a few 100,000 Xian Yuan pills left. A few 100,000 Xian Yuan pills were not much compared to 10 million. Moreover, the remaining Xian Yuan pills had other uses for Lin Yu. In other words, Lin Yu had used over 9 million Xian Yuan pills just to elevate his cultivation to the peak of Mahayana. If he wanted to rely on completing tasks and ordinary meditation to increase his cultivation, it would probably take several years to reach this level. Spending money indeed was the correct way to play Piao Miao Xian 2. Meanwhile, while Lin Yu elevated his character's cultivation to the peak of Mahayana, the cultivation ranking list in the game also experienced changes. Changfeng Jinren still ranked first. However, behind Changfeng Jinren's name, the cultivation level had changed directly from the late stage of fusion to the peak of Mahayana. Reaching this level meant that even if others spent 100 million, they could not surpass Lin Yu's cultivation. Because Lin Yu's cultivation had already reached the pinnacle of the game. After raising his cultivation, Lin Yu did not rush to continue spending money, but prepared to test his current strength. Previously, through the ranking reward, Lin Yu had already obtained a semi-immortal flying sword, and with his now powerful cultivation. Logically speaking, Lin Yu's combat power should be quite formidable. Lin Yu decisively controlled his game character to arrive at the entrance of a dungeon. The name of this dungeon was Blackwater Demon Cave. It was one of the most difficult dungeons in the game. This dungeon was just right to verify his strength. Opening the dungeon information, Lin Yu could clearly see the situation inside. Dungeon name: Blackwater Demon Cave. Dungeon difficulty: held. Dungeon BOSS: Blackwater Demon Lord. Boss level 8. Mahayana. Player completion count 0. Dungeon description: the Blackwater Demon Lord was originally a black snake with the bloodline of the ancient candle dragon. After absorbing the essence of heaven and earth for thousands of years and receiving guidance from foreign demon gods, he devoured millions of souls to forge the Blackwater domain. As long as the Blackwater is alive, the soul of the Blackwater Demon Lord cannot be extinguished. The player completion count in the dungeon information represented the total number of times all players in the server had completed this dungeon. The number 0 also indicated that up to now no one had completed this dungeon. This shows the terror of the Blackwater Demon Cave. The Blackwater Demon Lord later appeared in the real world, causing tremendous disaster. His cultivation was too strong. Thousands of players formed an army to try to defeat him, but they suffered heavy casualties. In the game, as long as the Blackwater Demon Lord's body was killed, it meant the players had completed the dungeon. However, when the Blackwater Demon Lord appeared in the real world, it was just as the dungeon description stated: as long as the Blackwater is alive, the Blackwater Demon Lord can never be killed. The terror of the Blackwater Demon Lord is unimaginable. In his past life, Lin Yu was killed by the Blackwater Demon Lord's subordinates. In his past life, Lin Yu's cultivation was not even in the same league as the Blackwater Demon Lord, with a vast difference. But this time, Lin Yu's character's cultivation had already surpassed that of the Blackwater Demon Lord. Moreover, Lin Yu also possessed a semi-immortal flying sword. He felt that he should be able to clear this dungeon. If he could slay the Blackwater Demon Lord in the game, it would mean that when the Blackwater Demon Lord appeared in the real world, he would also be able to battle against him. Lin Yu controlled his game character and entered the Blackwater Demon Cave. Just as he entered the Blackwater Demon Cave, a chilling wail echoed from his phone. It seemed as if countless souls were wailing and crying, extremely terrifying. In his past life, after the Black Water Demon Lord appeared in the real world, that endless wailing would always linger around him. That sound came from the Black Water domain surrounding him. It was said that the Black Water domain was formed by the souls he devoured. The Black Water Demon Lord who came to the real world was indeed terrifying. Any ordinary person hearing those wails would be frightened to death. But now he was in the game. Lin Yu was not afraid of a boss that hadn't even left the game yet. Lin Yu controlled his game character to easily defeat several underlings of the Black Water Demon Lord and then approached the Black Water Demon Lord. Cultivator, do you dare to challenge the terrifying Black Water Demon Lord? Do you wish to become a soul in the Black Water domain? The Black Water Demon Lord sat on a throne in the center of the Black Water domain, looking down at the arrival of Changfeng Jinren. A great battle was about to commence. Lin Yu did not hesitate, controlling his game character to draw out the semi-immortal flying sword and immediately charged forward. This dungeon was originally a 5-person dungeon, but Lin Yu didn't care about that. His goal was simply to test his own strength. Nothing more. Meanwhile, while Lin Yu controlled his game character to battle against the Black Water Demon Lord, some players finally noticed the changes in the cultivation ranking. The player named Changfeng Jinren had actually increased his cultivation level to the peak of Mahayana. It must be known that although this is a cultivation mobile game, the highest level players could reach was only the Mahayana stage. In other words, the player named Changfeng Jinren had reached the top tier. On the official game forum, nearly all players were discussing this issue. Changfeng Jinren has gone mad. He was still at the fusion stage yesterday, and today he is at the Mahayana stage. Did his cultivation take a rocket ride? A rocket ride isn't that fast. He must have consumed Xianyuan pills. Xianyuan pills. Have you calculated how much cultivation is needed to go from the fusion stage to the Mahayana stage? If it were just relying on Xianyuan pills, it would take a few 100 million, right? I just calculated it. Around 100 million should be enough. Crazy. This Changfeng Jinren spent a small fortune in just one day? Who on earth is he? I am the most beautiful female player in Piao Miaoxian 2, and I am willing to marry into Changfeng Jinren's family, as I offer a paid investigation into his true identity. Before I was saying I would submit and marry down, but now I want to marry up. What a money-minded woman. At this time, while players were discussing Changfeng Jinren on the forum, another big event occurred in the game. That is one of the most difficult dungeons in the entire game. Blackwater Demon Cave was actually cleared by someone. A banner announcement also appeared in the game. Announcement: congratulations to player Changfeng Jinren for being the first to clear the Blackwater Demon Cave dungeon, receiving the first completion reward, a semi-immortal treasure, Jade Void Robe. Note: the Blackwater Demon Cave is a 5-person dungeon. Since Changfeng Jinren cleared it solo, the reward is increased 5-fold. A semi-divine artifact. Once again, a semi-divine artifact. Lin Yu felt a surge of excitement. Unexpectedly, after clearing a Blackwater dungeon instance, he was directly rewarded with a semi-divine artifact. Previously, Lin Yu had seen other players' announcements about their first instance clear, and while the rewards were decent, they paled in comparison to the semi-divine artifact he received. As Lin Yu read the final note in the game announcement, he gradually came to understand. The Blackwater dungeon is a 5-person instance. If a team of 5 cleared the instance, the rewards would be divided among them, resulting in much less generous rewards. However, he had cleared it alone. Thus, the first clear reward was multiplied by 5. Lin Yu excitedly donned the semi-divine artifact, the Yushu Robe. The Yushu Robe is a light azure color adorned with black patterns at the sleeves and collar, and features a yin-yang fish pattern on the back. Wearing the Yushu Robe, Lin Yu's game character exuded an entirely different aura, resembling a true enlightened master. Now Lin Yu possessed 2 semi-divine artifacts. One was a weapon, and the other a robe. In the entire game, the number of semi-divine artifacts is quite rare, not exceeding 10. They were all obtained by the top players on the leaderboard who had spent vast amounts of money and time. But now Lin Yu had suddenly discovered a new method. That was to leverage his formidable cultivation to tackle the instances that no one had cleared yet. The first clear rewards were so abundant, they were even more satisfying than spending his own money. Lin Yu controlled his game character and arrived at another instance. In the game, there are 5 instances with difficulty levels on par with the Blackwater dungeon. None of these 5 instances had been cleared by any players. Thus, Lin Yu decided to spend the night clearing these 5 instances. He would secure the rewards first and continue spending money tomorrow. Instance name: the Fallen Kunlun Sacred Land. Instance difficulty: Hell. Instance boss: Dark and Yuchuan Jinren. Boss level: late stage of the Great Ascension. Player clear count: 0. Instance description: the Kunlun Sacred Land was originally one of the 5 sacred lands in the cultivation world, but its master fell from grace, choosing to ally with foreign demons to enhance his power, ultimately leading to the entire sacred land's descent into the abyss. At that moment, as Lin Yu was preparing to continue clearing this instance, there was a sudden knock on the door. Outside, Xiao Guang knocked on the door while calling out, "Bro, open the door. I know you're not asleep." "Ooh, I saw the game-wide announcement." Xiao Guang was also playing the game, so he naturally saw the announcement of Changfeng Jinren clearing the Blackwater dungeon. Lin Yu got up to open the door. Xiao Guang entered with a sly grin on his face, looking somewhat like a thief. "What's up?" Lin Yu asked. Xiao Guang glanced at the phone in Lin Yu's hand and chuckled, saying, "Bro, you must have several semi-divine artifacts by now, right?" Recently, not only players on the official game forum were discussing Changfeng Jinren, but even the world chat channel in the game was buzzing about it. Xiao Guang had thus learned that Lin Yu possessed 2 semi-divine artifacts. Hearing Xiao Guang's words, Lin Yu furrowed his brow slightly, but nodded in acknowledgement. Xiao Guang rubbed his hands together and said, "Bro, can you give me the gear you've replaced? I'm still wearing low-grade spirit artifacts. It's so pathetic." The grading of treasures in the game ranges from low to high as follows: common artifacts, treasure artifacts, spirit artifacts, law artifacts, earth artifacts, heaven artifacts, semi-divine artifacts, and divine artifacts. Having spent $1 million on the game, Xiao Guang was indeed somewhat pitiful, with only a full set of low-grade spirit artifacts. However, Lin Yu shook his head. "Go ahead and play for now, I'll give you some gear in a couple of days." Fine." Xiao Guang reluctantly left Lin Yu's room. Lin Yu had his own reasons for this decision. Giving the gear to Xiao Guang at this point would be meaningless. By keeping the gear for himself, when the game started providing feedback on the equipment, Lin Yu would receive a 120% return. At that time, those items might even be upgraded by a level. Including his semi-divine artifact flying sword and robe, they might also see a 120% return due to his VIP level. With that in mind, it made more sense to wait until the gear was returned to him before handing it over to Xiao Guang. After Xiao Guang left, Lin Yu resumed his dungeon grinding. That night was destined to be a sleepless one. By the time he finished the remaining 4 instances, it would likely be dawn. This night was also destined to be one of unrest for all players of the game Misty Immortal Path. Throughout the entire night, 5 server-wide announcements were made. Each announcement stated that Changfeng Jinren had cleared a high-difficulty instance and received generous first. In total, the 5 instances rewarded Changfeng Jinren with 5 pieces of gear, all semi-divine artifacts. It was utterly ridiculous. Had it been 5 players teaming up for the first clear based on players' understanding of the game, the reward level should have only been that of heaven artifacts. Yet unexpectedly, a single player clearing it alone was rewarded not with 5 heaven artifacts, but directly with semi-divine artifacts. With 5 semi-divine artifacts in hand, combined with his extraordinary cultivation, players could hardly imagine just how powerful this Changfeng Jinren was. It was likely that even half of the players on the leaderboard would not stand a chance against him. At this time, not far from Lin Yu's villa, in a villa of similar size, a man in his 30s was lying in bed. Beside him lay a woman scantily clad and alluring, yet he seemed completely uninterested in her. It was as if the phone in his hand was far more interesting. However, the man's expression was not good at all. Damn it, has this Changfeng Jinren lost his mind? Spending so much money and clearing 5 of the highest difficulty instances in one night. 5 semi-divine artifacts. This is too much. I don't even have one. Should I spend some money too? 3 days ago, his cultivation was still below mine. I wonder how much he has spent. Damn it. The middle-aged man cursed under his breath. He was Yifeng Jinren, ranked 100 on the cultivation. Of course, he had previously been ranked 9 only to be surpassed by Lin Yu later on. But ultimately, he had only spent on a few 648 packages. After all, this was just a mobile game. He wasn't like Lin Yu, a rich second generation. Although he had money, it was earned through hard work, and he had to support his family and save for investments. As for Changfeng Jinren in the game, he could only admire him, or perhaps feel a twinge of jealousy. The man opened the chat interface, looked at Changfeng Jinren's avatar, and ultimately decided not to say anything. After all, the last time they chatted, that guy hadn't even replied to him. The more he said, the more he felt like a clown. Finally, around 5 in the morning, Lin Yu finished clearing all 5 instances. Lin Yu yawned, closed the game, and lay down to sleep. He ended up sleeping until noon. When Lin Yu got up, he found that Xiao Guang was still asleep. That guy seemed to have stayed up all night, sleeping later than Lin Yu. Lin Yu chuckled and didn't wake Xiao Guang, but went to the dining room himself. He was a bit hungry. In the dining room, the aunt was already preparing lunch. Upon seeing Lin Yu, she hurriedly asked, "Xiao Yu, what do you want to eat for lunch?" Lin Yu thought for a moment and said, "Let's have some meat." The aunt smiled slightly and replied, "All right." Lin Yu then sat at the dining table and opened the official forum for Misty Immortal Path to take a look. However, after a while of browsing, Lin Yu closed the forum. There wasn't much to see lately. All the players were discussing him. He knew his own affairs best and didn't need to read others' wild speculations. Lin Yu simply opened the game again and started to examine the 5 pieces of equipment he had obtained last night. The 5 pieces of equipment included the semi-divine artifact robe, Yushu robe, semi-divine artifact boots, Feiyun boots, semi-divine artifact hat, Huan Yu hat, semi-divine artifact necklace, soul casting necklace, and semi-divine artifact storage ring, stargazing ring. Among them, the one that pleased Lin Yu the most was the storage ring. As far as he knew, this storage ring was likely the only semi-divine artifact level storage ring in the game. Storage rings generally have a lower tier compared to other treasures. They are harder to obtain than other treasures, making them relatively rarer. The storage ring, a type of magical artifact, is essential for every cultivator. In the game, it can also be referred to as the player's inventory. The higher the quality of the storage ring, the more items it can hold. In the game, this is reflected in the number of slots in the inventory. However, as a reincarnator, Lin Yu understands that once the storage ring appears in reality, those slots will become actual space. One slot is approximately equivalent to 1 cubic meter. In his past life, his storage ring had 100 slots, but due to his VIP level being only 7, the space in the storage ring was about 70 cubic meters after it was reflected in reality. Now he unexpectedly possesses a semi-divine storage ring. The initial number of slots is 5,000. Generally speaking, after refining equipment to the highest level, it can enhance its quality or capability by about double. The same applies to the storage ring. If refined to the highest level, it should be able to reach 10,000 slots. With a 120% feedback to reality, that would amount to 12,000 slots. 12,000 slots equate to 12,000 cubic meters. It's simply outrageous. With such a vast storage space, Lin Yu can store whatever he desires. Lin Yu glanced at the refining stones he had and began refining the semi-divine storage ring, the starry ring. In the game Misty Immortal Path, there are 3 types of refining stones: blue equipment refining stones, purple equipment refining stones, and the most expensive gold equipment refining stones. The main difference among the 3 types of refining stones is the success rate. The success rate of the blue equipment refining stone is 50%, and a failure will decrease the refining level of the equipment by 2 levels. The success rate of the purple equipment refining stone is 70%, and a failure will reduce the refining level of the magical artifact by 1 level. Lastly, the gold equipment refining stone has a 100% success rate with no chance of failure. As a pay-to-win game, it is unacceptable not to have a refining stone that allows paying players a 100% success rate. However, the gold equipment refining stone is incredibly expensive. One could say it's ridiculously costly. Despite purchasing numerous game packages, Lin Yu only has a few gold equipment refining stones. Moreover, 10 of those were rewards for ranking first in the cultivation leaderboard last time. This clearly shows how difficult it is to obtain gold equipment refining stones. Of course, this difficulty is nearly non-existent for Lin Yu, who is prepared to spend $1 billion. Because in the game store, gold equipment refining stones are available for purchase. However, the price is 500 high-grade spirit stones. 1 high-grade spirit stone is equivalent to 10 yuan. This means the price of 1 gold equipment refining stone is 5,000. The highest refining level for equipment is level 10. Generally speaking, to safely reach around level 6 using blue and purple refining stones, one must use gold refining stones. Even excluding the costs for blue and purple equipment refining stones, refining a piece of equipment to level 10 still requires 20,000. Furthermore, this is only for ordinary equipment. The game stipulates that semi-divine equipment and above cannot use blue and purple refining stones. This means that any semi-divine magical artifact must use gold equipment refining stones to reach the highest level. Refining to the top level requires 50,000. In the game, among the players on the leaderboard with semi-divine artifacts, only the top-ranked Sunyan Demon Lord has refined an attack-type semi-divine magical artifact to level 10. The refining levels of the other semi-divine artifacts are quite low. Very few people would spend 50,000 to refine a piece of equipment. But for Lin Yu, 50,000 is merely a drop in the bucket. Lin Yu did not hesitate and decisively began to spend money. He spent a total of 250,000 and directly purchased 50 gold equipment refining stones from the game store. Adding the few he already had, Lin Yu now possesses over 60 gold equipment refining stones. At this moment, Lin Yu has 6 semi-divine artifacts. As a distinguished VIP 11-player master of the winds, would you like to use gold equipment refining stones on the semi-divine storage ring starry ring? Confirm. System prompt: your semi-divine storage ring starry rings refining level 1. With the gold equipment refining stones that cannot fail, there is truly no worry at all. This is the difference between pay-to-win players and ordinary players. Soon Lin Yu raised the refining level of the semi-divine storage ring starry ring to its maximum level 10. At this moment, the equipment attributes of the starry ring have undergone tremendous changes. Equipment name: starry ring 10, equipment quality: semi-divine, number of storage slots 10,000, equipment description: to exaggerate, with the starry ring you can store an entire starry sky. After glancing at the description of the starry ring, Lin Yu couldn't help but curl his lips. It is indeed a bit exaggerated. After refining the starry ring, Lin Yu did not hesitate and continued refining the other equipment. Yusu robe, Feiyun boots, illusion feather hat, soul casting necklace, and the semi-divine flying sword previously rewarded for ranking first, named Xin Shuang sword. A total of 6 semi-divine equipment have all been refined to 10. After completing the refinement, Lin Yu opened the equipment leaderboard and couldn't help but smile. At this moment, the equipment leaderboard in the game is basically dominated by him. The top ranked is his semi-divine storage ring Starry Ring. The second place is his Xian Shuang sword. However, the third place is Tsangyun Demon Lord's semi-divine flying sword, which is also the only other artifact refined to level 10 besides Lin Yes 6 pieces. From 4th to 7th place, all are Lin Yes equipment. In the top 10 of the equipment leaderboard, Lin Yu occupies 7 spots, and both the first and second places are his equipment. It seems that he will also claim the reward for being first on the equipment leaderboard this week. At this moment, Aunt Wang has already brought up lunch while Lin Yu was refining the equipment. Lunch is quite sumptuous. Lin Yu closed the mobile game and opened the official forum of the game, devouring his meal while browsing through the forum messages. Being able to enjoy delicious food is indeed a very happy thing. However, in his past life, since the feedback from the game Cultivation started, Lin Yu hardly had any good meals. The entire world has undergone tremendous changes. Lin Yu, with his cultivation that ranks among the top 100 players in Misty Immortal Path, can only be swept up in the rolling tide, unable to extricate himself. But now it's different. He has gained enough power to live the life he desires. While eating, Lin Yu asked Aunt Wang, I remember you live alone at home, right? Aunt Wang, who was tidying up in the dining room, was slightly taken aback and hurriedly replied, yes, my daughter is studying abroad and only comes back once a year. This daughter studying abroad seems to make Aunt Wang quite proud, as she often mentions her. However, besides that daughter, Aunt Wang has no other family. Although Aunt Wang comes here every day, she returns home to sleep every night. In his past life, Lin Yu remembers that not long after the game feedback on Cultivation began, Aunt Wang suddenly disappeared and stopped coming to work. Lin Yu specifically went to Aunt Wang's home to check, but it was empty. He had no idea where she had gone. But Lin Yu is certain that something unfortunate must have happened to her, otherwise with Aunt Wang's character, she wouldn't have left without a word. Lin Yu thought for a moment and said, Aunt Wang, why don't you just live here from now on? After all, it's such a big house with many rooms. Just pick one. Aunt Wang has worked for Lin Yu for a long time, is a good person, and cooks delicious food. If she lives here and he's around, nothing tragic should happen. Aunt Wang hesitated slightly. Lin Yu continued, if you live here, you can work 24 hours a day and your salary will... Upon hearing this, Aunt Wang immediately swallowed her words of refusal. She indeed needs the money. Although her daughter is studying abroad on a public scholarship, the expenses overseas can be quite high and she needs to... If the salary doubles, she has no objections. All right, then I'll go back tonight to pack my things. Aunt Wang thought for a moment and then asked, which room will I stay in? Lin Yu smiled and said, pick any room, there are plenty. Lin Yu was very happy, as this is a mutually beneficial arrangement. Aunt Wang gets safe shelter and Lin Yu gains the right to enjoy delicious food in the future. After finishing the meal, Lin Yu returned to his room. The current date is February 11th. Lin Yu remembers clearly that the day the game began to reflect Cultivation was at midnight on February 14th. This means there are still 2.5 days left. Lin Yu still has 900 million unspent. Lin Yu recalls having seen a movie where the protagonist needed to spend $1 billion within a month. He felt that it was a joke. Is it really difficult to spend $1 billion? Even if it were 10 billion Lin, you could spend it all in seconds in the game. However, Lin Yu doesn't have 10 billion. He only has 1 billion. So he needs to plan carefully how to spend it to maximize the enhancement of his game character's strength. The official forum for the mobile game Misty Immortal Path has seen an increasing number of discussions about the character Qingfeng Jinren. Almost every post revolves around him. It seems that every day Qingfeng Jinren brings new surprises to these players. Or should I say new frights? Wow, Qingfeng Jinren has indeed taken action on the equipment leaderboard again. The top 10 on the equipment leaderboard, Qingfeng Jinren occupies 6 slots. Is there any room left for other players? Did you see the number 1 ranked equipment? The semi-divine storage ring is simply outrageous. My storage ring only has 50 slots while his has a staggering 10,000. The top item on the equipment leaderboard is actually a storage ring, which is quite absurd. This Qingfeng Jinren must have money to burn. How much stuff is he planning to store with a 10 refined storage? No more talk him off. I'm going to help the most beautiful female player find Qingfeng Jinren's home address. She said she would give me $1 million as a reward. Wow, I want to go find him too. My dad works in the household registration office. If I say I'm Qingfeng Jinren's brother and am currently at his house living right next door, would you believe me? At this moment, Lin Yu, who was being discussed by many players, was comfortably leaning against his bed in his room. Lin Yu opened the Misty Immortal Path mobile game once again. Dear VIP 11 player Qingfeng Jinren, you have been away from the game for an hour. We present you with an exclusive returning player gift pack. For only 5800 yuan, you can enjoy the sensation of rapid cultivation improvement. Misty Immortal Path truly understands every player. Previously, the returning player gift pack was only 648, and now it has changed to 58,000. This is when I finally realized I was a big fool. Lin Yu chuckled. Then he decisively clicked to recharge. Congratulations, player Qingfeng Jinren, on receiving the returning player gift pack, which includes 800 spirit stones, 200 Xianyuan pills, and 5 golden artifact refining stones. After seeing the contents of the pack, Lin, you couldn't help but nod in approval. The recharge pack is still more cost-effective than directly buying spirit stones. The value of the items in the pack definitely exceeds 100,000 yuan, while the pack only costs 58,000. A conscientious game. Lin Yu decisively recharged for today's Valentine's Day pack. He bought all 6 tiers. Meanwhile, Lin Yu also noticed the Valentine's Day event's excitement leaderboard. His dual cultivation partner Shueyun Fairy seemed to have been stimulated by him, as well continuously spending money on the Valentine's Day event for several days. The names of the two of them had consistently held the top position on the excitement leaderboard. After participating in the Valentine's Day event, Lin Yu bought all the newly refreshed gift packs in the game. In total, he spent around 100,000. Following that, Lin Yu took out the piece of paper he wrote a few days ago. The paper was densely filled with Lin Yu's spending plan. Next, it should be the spirit beasts. Lin Yu muttered to himself. Spirit beasts are the most beneficial helpers for enhancing the combat power of cultivators. In almost all cultivation games, spirit beasts are crucial. The Misty Immortal Path mobile game is no exception. Moreover, to fully stimulate players' willingness to spend money, the Spirit Beast system in Misty Immortal Path is quite. The grades of Spirit Beasts range from low to high: Fierce Beasts, Demon Beasts, Rare Beasts, Immortal Beasts, Divine Beasts, and Sacred Beasts. The strength of Spirit Beasts can be upgraded, can have attributes added, and can learn skills. In short, Spirit Beasts are an inexhaustible pit. Of course, the most important aspect is still the grade of the Spirit Beast. The highest grade Spirit Beasts can be obtained in dungeons, but the drop rate is very low. If you want a higher grade Spirit Beast, there is only one way. That is, the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel, which is said to be the most expensive and most unrewarding activity in Misty Immortal Path. This event has been around for a long time and refreshes once a month. The Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel event has 3 tiers. One can spin for 10 Spirit Stones, 100 Spirit Stones, or 1,000 Spirit Stones. It is said that if you spend enough money, you can draw a Sacred Beast level Spirit Beast from this Lucky Wheel. But no player dares to fall into this trap. Because the basic logic of the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel is that for every 1 million spent, the chance of obtaining a Sacred Beast increases by 1%. In other words, you can only have a 1% chance to draw a Sacred Beast if you first spend 1 million on this activity. Since the game's launch, only Lin Yu and a guy named Songyun Maju have spent over 1 million. Moreover, the most important thing is that all players who have played Misty Immortal Path know one truth: a 1% chance of winning in the game is basically equivalent to none. Less than 50% is just a joke. An 80% chance and success is considered lucky. Lin Yu smiled slightly and opened the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel event. 1 million increases by 1%, so 100 million is 100% right. This simple math problem could be solved by an elementary school student. Lin Yu decisively clicked the recharge button for the highest tier draw on the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel. Then he entered the amount he wanted to recharge in the recharge interface. 100,000,000,000. 100 million. Dear VIP 11 player Qingfeng Jinren, are you sure you want to recharge 100 million and spin the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel 10,000 times? The amount Lin Yu wanted to recharge was so large that even the game's prompt seemed to turn into a question. It was as if the game itself was somewhat incredulous. The highest tier of the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel draw requires 1,000 Spirit Stones for a spin, which translates to 10,000 yuan per spin. 100 million allows for 10,000 spins. Very scientific. Very simple. Lin Yu decisively clicked confirm again. Immediately, the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel on Lin Yu's phone screen began to spin wildly. System prompt: you spun the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel with great force, and your luck exploded, gaining 5 random height-year Spirit Beast skill books. System prompt: you spun the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel with great force, and your luck exploded, gaining 5 random height-year Spirit Beast skill books. System prompt: you spun the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel with great force, and your luck exploded, gaining 50 height-year Spirit Beast experience pills. System prompt: you spun the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel with great force, and your luck exploded, gaining 10 high-tier Spirit Beast attribute reset pills. System prompt: you spun the Spirit Beast Lucky Wheel with great force, and your luck exploded, gaining 1 Sacred Beast level Spirit Beast egg. Lin Yu's phone, which he bought for tens of thousands, still felt somewhat laggy. This draw lasted a full 10 minutes before finally coming to a slow end. Lin Yu didn't even know what he had drawn. After the draw ended, he received a deduction notification from the bank. It was evident how laggy it had been. At this moment after the draw ended, Lin Yu could finally open his backpack to see what he had obtained. His backpack was filled with a variety of prizes from the draw. Among them, the most numerous were the Spirit Beast egg. Other Spirit Beast skill books and experience pills could be stacked, but Spirit Beast eggs could not. Therefore, looking around, there were nearly thousands of Spirit Beast eggs. However, Lin Yu immediately spotted the Spirit Beast egg at the very back. It was a Spirit Beast egg radiating with colorful light, completely different in shape from the other Spirit Beast eggs. Without needing to open it, Lin Yu already knew the grade of this Spirit Beast egg. It seemed that he hadn't truly hit the jackpot, but had drawn this fellow when the chance of obtaining a sacred beast reached 100%. But that didn't matter, the result was good enough. Lin Ye's finger excitedly tapped on that spirit beast egg, and immediately the information about the spirit beast egg appeared before Lin Ye's eyes. Name Spirit Beast Egg Grade Sacred Beast Level Race Ink Qilin Hatching Time 48 Hours Spirit Beast Egg Description. This is an Ink Qilin Spirit Beast Egg. The description was very perfunctory. However, it still couldn't dampen Lin Ye's excitement. As long as one is from the Dragon Kingdom, just hearing the name Ink Qilin would make it clear that this is definitely not an ordinary spirit beast. Lin Yu decisively placed the spirit beast egg into the hatching slot. The hatching interface also displayed the countdown for successful hatching. Hatching countdown 475959. Lin Yu chuckled. How could he possibly wait 48 hours? In a money-spending game, as long as one is willing to spend, nothing is a problem. Lin Yu opened the game store and spent 300 yuan to buy a Spirit Beast Rapid Growth Pill. This Spirit Beast Rapid Growth Pill sounds very mystical, but in reality, it's just an accelerator. The Spirit Beast Rapid Growth Pill can be used to instantly hatch the Spirit Beast egg without affecting its quality. After using the Spiritual Beast Ripening Pill, the countdown on the hatching interface immediately reset to 0. Lin Yu gently clicked, and a dark green light appeared beside his character. It was a rather imposing pet with 2 horns on its head and a body resembling that of a lion, yet covered in dark green scales. The dark Qilin was not very large, reaching only up to the waist of the true person Changfeng. However, this was merely a first-level dark Qilin. As the level of the spiritual beast increases, its size will also change accordingly. At this moment, although the quality of the dark Qilin was very high, its level was still somewhat lacking. To enhance its combat power, the level of the dark Qilin must be raised. Lin Yu would certainly not hesitate. Having obtained this legendary holy beast, he naturally aimed to elevate its strength to the highest level. Immediately, Lin Yu began to feed the dark Qilin with spiritual beast experience pills. He had just drawn many of these from a lottery, which were enough to elevate the dark Qilin's level to the maximum. In the game, the maximum level for spiritual beasts is 100. However, leveling up a spiritual beast is quite difficult. Just look at the spiritual beast leaderboard. The highest level listed is only a level 60 Crimson Flame Tiger. Its tier is merely that of a celestial beast. Yet Lin Ye's dark Qilin right after its birth had already reached the top. Although its level had not yet been raised, its quality as a holy beast was enough to surpass all other spiritual beasts. Before long, Lin Yu had exhausted all his spiritual beast experience pills. After all, he had directly spent 100 million to draw from the lottery, so he had accumulated a lot of experience pills, perfectly leveling the dark Qilin to 100. Next, Lin Yu began to draw various high-tier skills for spiritual beasts, as well as attribute pills. He used all the good items on this holy beast. After spending half a day, by evening, the dark Qilin had been cultivated by Lin Yu into an invincible existence. On the spiritual beast leaderboard, besides displaying the tier and level of the spiritual beasts, it also showed their combat power. The second place was that level 60 celestial beast, the Crimson Flame Tiger, with a combat power of over 30,000. In contrast, Lin Ye's dark Qilin ranked first, boasting a combat power of 960,000. Without needing to say much, the combat power value clearly indicated just how strong Lin Ye's dark Qilin was. If Lin Yu were to challenge those dungeons now, he probably wouldn't even need to lift a finger. This dark Qilin alone could handle everything. Having taken care of the spiritual beast, the sky had already darkened. Lin Yu pushed open the door of his room and stepped outside. At that moment, it seemed he had heard Lin Ye's door open as the small light living next door also came out. As soon as he stepped outside, the small light hurriedly approached. "Bro, it's been a day since I last saw you. Oh, I miss you so much," the small light exclaimed, arms wide open as if wanting to hug. Lin Yu quickly lifted his foot. This guy, although he looked chubby and fair, had messy hair, and it was unclear how many days it had been since he last showered. Seeing Lin Ye's foot, the small light decisively hit the brakes. He chuckled a couple of times and suddenly shifted the topic to the game. "Bro, my spiritual beast is so weak, only level 18, and it's just a demon beast here. Can you help me out?" the small light pleaded with a sad face. Although he had spent 1 million, most of that money went to improving his cultivation. In other aspects, he was still quite weak. This time Lin Yu did not refuse. After all, he still had so many spiritual beast eggs in his backpack. Giving him a few to use wouldn't hurt. The small light had been staying here for a few days and hadn't mentioned searching for his little girlfriend. Clearly, the small light had become somewhat addicted to the game Piao Shintu. Giving him a few benefits would help maintain his interest. "Let's go eat first, and I'll give you some on the way," Lin Yu said. The small light's face immediately showed it. "Bro, your dark Qilin is so cool. Can it have offspring?" Lin Ye's expression darkened as he replied, speechless. "Why are you so concerned about me? Just focus on improving your own strength." Lin Ye's dark Qilin had just appeared, and the small light was already aware. He must have been keeping a close eye on Lin Ye's situation. The small light chuckled a couple of times and moved closer. Bro, what tier is the spiritual beast you gave me? Does it have a holy beast? A divine beast would work too. In the restaurant, Lin Yu and the small light were eating, and Lin Yu opened his phone to send a trade request to the small light. Then he placed a divine beast-level spiritual beast egg on the table along with many remaining spiritual beast skills and experience pills. Divine beasts are already considered very strong spiritual beasts in the game. After all, other than Lin Yu, the strongest other players had only celestial beasts. Seeing that there really was a divine beast egg and so many resources, the small light was very satisfied. Then he ate 3 bowls of rice. Eating so much, are you going to be able to sleep tonight? Lin Yu asked. The small light snorted and replied, sleep. I'll have to last until tomorrow morning with this meal. Lin Yu was basically certain that the small light was completely addicted, but Lin Yu himself was no different. Moreover, he still had 800 million left unspent. This night was destined to be a sleepless one. After dinner, Lin Yu returned to his room. Lying in bed playing games was the most comfortable. Although Lin Yu's villa had a large study, he rarely went there. Leaning against the soft, comfortable bed, Lin Yu opened the mobile game Piamiao 2. According to Lin Yu's understanding of the game, there are 4 main aspects that can enhance a player's strength. They are cultivation, equipment, spiritual beasts, and techniques. For the first 3 aspects, Lin Yu had already used his spending to resolve. So tonight he would focus on enhancing his techniques. As a reborn individual, Lin Yu was very clear about the importance of techniques. This is because techniques not only enhance a player's strength. If one has a powerful technique, then, after the cultivation feedback in the game, the player can continue to enhance their strength in the real world. The stronger the technique, the faster the improvement. Thus, Lin Yu would definitely not skimp on spending for techniques. In the mobile game Piamiao, the tiers of techniques are classified from low to high as human level, earth level, heaven level, celestial level, and emperor level. In the game, there are 3 ways to obtain techniques. The first and simplest is to learn from the sect. However, the sects only possess some low-tier techniques, which are the most basic. The second method is to purchase various activity packages within the game. Sometimes when the package prices are high, one might obtain a heaven-level technique at most. The third method, which is the most difficult and expensive, is to encounter fortuitous events in the game. The term fortuitous event originally implies a bit of luck. But in the cash-intensive game Piamiao, it means the more money spent, the better the luck. In other words, players who spend 0 or minimal cash are unworthy of fortuitous events. Lin Yu opened the fortuitous event interface. The fortuitous event interface is quite simple, featuring many mountains and cliffs with perilous terrain. Players merely need to tap the screen, and their game character will automatically explore the fortuitous event interface. Of course, each exploration requires the use of exploration scrolls. Exploration scrolls are divided into ordinary exploration scrolls and advanced exploration scrolls. An ordinary exploration scroll costs 1 piece of high-quality spirit stone. An advanced exploration scroll costs 100 pieces of high-quality spirit stone. The price difference is significant, and the items found vary greatly. Lin Yu decisively recharged another 100 million. The mobile game Piamiao considers players well. Under normal circumstances, if players want to explore for fortuitous events, they need to buy high-quality spirit stones and then exchange them for exploration scrolls. The process is theoretically cumbersome. However, in practice, players can directly recharge in the fortuitous event interface and explore using cash. Time-saving and labor-saving, but not money-saving. Dear VIP 11 player Chung Feng, would you like to spend 100 yuan to purchase 10,000 advanced explorations? Lin Yu did not hesitate and directly clicked the confirm button. Immediately, the same lag as in the afternoon occurred. Lin Yu's phone screen was completely frozen. After more than 10 minutes, it finally returned to normal. At that moment, Lin Yu's 10,000 high-level adventure explorations were also completed. However, at this time, Lin Yu suddenly saw the envelope button on the phone screen light up. Then he received a system notification. Your package's full adventure rewards have been sent to your mailbox. Please check. Lin Yu opened his package and found it was indeed full. The 1,000 slots in the package were all filled with spirit beast eggs and cultivation manuals. Lin Yu had not yet dealt with the spirit beast eggs he obtained from the spirit beast lucky wheel. At least half of the space in the package was occupied by spirit beast eggs. Seeing this, Lin Yu decisively controlled his character back to the sect. Then he clicked on the sect leader Jingxin Jinren, who had always stayed in the sect and never went out. Gift Lin Yu sent all the useless spirit beast eggs and some spirit beast skills to Jingxin Jinren. Lin Yu had no idea why Jingxin Jinren had so much storage space, but after sending out a lot, she accepted everything with pleasure. Lin Yu then opened his mailbox and retrieved those cultivation manuals. Spending 100 million, he received 2 Imperial level manuals, 6 Celestial level manuals, while the rest were below Celestial level. Lin Yu kept 2 Imperial level manuals, 2 Celestial level manuals, and then gifted all the remaining manuals to the sect leader Jingxin Jinren. System notification: Dear VIP 11 player Chung Feng, Jinren, your intimacy level with Jingxin Jinren has increased to the level of life and death together. Please explore the details of this level on your own. Another self-exploration. Lin Yu was pressed for time now and had no time to explore these. But just hearing the term life and death together indicated that their relationship was definitely solid. However, life and death together. Just living together would be fine, but dying together could be avoided. At this moment, Lin Yu suddenly noticed that Jingxin Xinren's cultivation had actually reached the great perfection of the Dongxi realm. It should be noted that just 2 days ago her cultivation was only at the spirit division stage. This meant that after he had given her some items last time, she had actually advanced 2 major realms. This was simply a bit ludicrous. Is cultivation really this simple? She's an NPC who can't spend money. Lin Yu thought for a moment and unhesitatingly spent 100 million on high-quality spirit stones, then traded all of them to Jingxin Xinren. She is an NPC and naturally cannot spend money, but he could help her spend money. This was also part of Lin Yu's long-planned strategy. If other players knew about Lin Yu's actions, they would definitely explode with rage. It's one thing to spend money himself, but to give an NPC 100 million. 99% of players would definitely call Lin Yu a fool, and the remaining 1% might clamor to be NPCs. After gifting 100 million high-quality spirit stones to the NPC, Lin Yu felt no ripple. After all, after spending 100 million on manuals, he still had 700 million in cash left, so giving Jingxin Xinren 100 million was no big deal. Moreover, Lin Yu's intimacy level with Jingxin Xinren had now reached the highest level of hidden intimacy, life and death together. When a player's intimacy with an NPC reaches an inseparable level, betrayal is basically impossible, and Lin Yu's intimacy with Jingxin Xinren was even 2 levels higher than that. If he didn't give Jingxin Xinren some benefits to maximize her cultivation, it would be a waste of this intimacy. Lin Yu could foresee that when NPCs from the game appeared in the real world, he would definitely have a powerful backing. It might even be stronger than his own abilities. At that time, if someone dared to provoke him before he even made a move, Jingxin Xinren would probably have already dealt with the enemy. After giving Jingxin Xinren the spirit stones, Lin Yu began to study the manuals in his backpack. The manuals he obtained by spending 100 million looked quite good. The celestial level manuals were reserved for Xiaowang, while Lin Yu planned to use those 2 imperial level manuals. One was called the Hunyuan Xiandian, and the other was the Qingyan Sword Art. The 2 imperial level manuals, one is a cultivation method, and the other is a skill manual, one external and one internal, quite perfect. Lin Yu clicked on each manual twice and automatically learned these 2 manuals. In the game, Piaomiao Xian 2 manuals do not require leveling up. This is somewhat considerate. In other words, the process of players obtaining powerful manuals is relatively difficult, but once obtained, there are no further expenses. Lin Yu opened his skill interface. The attributes of the 2 manuals also appeared in Lin Yu's view. The attributes were quite simple, but the values were not simple. Hunyuan Xiandian Imperial Level Manual Absorption Speed of Spiritual Energy increased by 1000 A, and Spiritual Energy Consumption Speed in Combat reduced by 80. Qingyan Sword Art Imperial Level Manual Attack Power increased by 1000. When using sword-type treasures, flight speed increased by 500, attack speed increased by 500, and obtained the skill Qingyan 9 Styles. Seeing the attributes of these 2 manuals, Lin Yu couldn't help but smile slightly. One manual enhances his cultivation speed, while the other enhances his combat capabilities, which is indeed quite good. Moreover, the Qingyan Sword Art comes with a skill, which he will automatically learn when the skill feedbacks to him, and even in the real world, he could unleash the Qingyan 9 Styles. Some lower-level manuals do not have specific skills. Only manuals of heavenly level or above will have accompanying skills. However, the skills of imperial level manuals will definitely be strong, and Lin Yu is looking forward to it. After finishing learning the manuals, it was just midnight. At this time, there were still 2 full days left until the game feedbacks cultivation and closes the recharge channel. That's a total of 48 hours. Lin Yu still had 600 million left. Lin Yu decided to stay up late. The night was relatively quiet, making it suitable for spending money. Moreover, time waits for no one. After all, there are only 2 days left, and the sooner he spends the money, the more at ease he would feel. Lin Yu picked up the previously written spending plan and began to review it. At this point, Lin Yu had already improved 5 aspects of the plan. These were cultivation equipment, spirit beasts manuals, and the sect. The items gifted to Jingxin Xinren were to enhance the sect and also to create a powerful backing for himself. After looking at his plan, Lin Yu made a decision. The next thing to improve would be the spiritual root. The spiritual root is also a very important aspect. In the game, the strength of the spiritual root will have 2 aspects of influence. One affects the player's cultivation speed. This influence will be very important when the cultivation feedbacks to the real world. After all, once in the real world, players can only rely on their own cultivation to improve their abilities. The stronger the spiritual root, the faster the cultivation speed. When paired with a better manual, players' cultivation speeds will gradually widen the gap. The other aspect is that players' spiritual roots will grant their attacks additional attribute damage. Usually players will primarily cultivate a single attribute of the spiritual root. This maximizes the additional damage. The higher the level of the spiritual root, the greater the additional damage. In the game, the levels of spiritual roots are divided from low to high as follows: low-grade spiritual root, mid-grade spiritual root, high-grade spiritual root, earth spiritual root, heaven spiritual root, celestial spiritual root, divine spiritual root, and Tao spiritual root. At this point, Lin Ye's spiritual root was only a heaven spiritual root. The top of the spiritual root rankings was the celestial spiritual root. That person was also a familiar face, Songyin Emoju. Lin Yu was still staying up late. During these days, aside from eating and sleeping, Lin Yu was engrossed in gaming, seldom paying attention to anything else. What Lin Yu did not know was that his extravagant spending had gone viral. It had spread beyond the community. On the official forum of Piaomiao Xintu, nearly all posts were discussing the player known as Chengfeng Jinren. Posts of other types would get drowned out as soon as they appeared. Many players were keenly following Chengfeng Jinren's journey of spending money. There were even posts specifically tracking and calculating Lin Ye's expenses. According to some players' calculations, the player known as Chengfeng Jinren had spent over 200 million already. This was a conservative estimate. Such an amount of spending on in-game purchases had never been seen across the entire gaming community. Spending 200 million on a game was quite absurd. If they knew Lin Yu had actually spent 400 million and was planning to spend 600 million more, they would surely find it even more outrageous. Due to the absurdity of Lin Ye's actions, discussions about this matter began cropping up on many other gaming forums. Soon after, videos about Chengfeng Jinren's 200 million spending started appearing on various video platforms. Some entertainment news outlets even began reporting on this matter. Tabloid news: spending 200 million on a game, is it madness or foolishness? Mobile game Piaomiao Xintu player Chengfeng Jinren in just a few days has spent over 200 million, drawing widespread attention from society. Limiting minors' gaming consumption seems to have become a topic of concern, with hopes that relevant authorities will implement restrictions. Urban Express, 200 million, can you imagine how much that is? 99% of people in the world will never see that much money in their lifetime, yet someone has spent 200 million on a game. The issue of wealth disparity in society has once again attracted widespread attention. Entertainment news: the two hottest keywords these days are 200 million and Piaomiao Xintu. To explore the mystery behind this, I personally downloaded the Piaomiao Xintu mobile game to give it a try, and found that the game is filled with ways to entice players to spend money, particularly minors who are easily attracted to the dazzling spending events. I hope relevant authorities will strengthen regulation. Dragon Country Gaming Regulatory Center, a special task force, has been established to investigate the issue of excessive charges in games. Beijing. Dragon Country Gaming Regulatory Center. In the director's office, an elderly man appearing to be in his 50s sat behind his desk, his expression cold. In front of him stood several staff members from the Gaming Regulatory Center, their heads bowed, resembling children who had done something wrong. Smack! The elderly man suddenly slammed his hand on the table and stood up. I asked you to investigate the game Piaomiao Xintu, and after a day you found nothing. What are you doing? Are you idiots? The elderly man was clearly very angry. In recent days, news about Piaomiao Xintu was everywhere online, and he was under significant public pressure. He had no choice but to personally assign some elite members from the department to investigate this game. However, he did not expect that after a day these capable individuals would come up with nothing. A young man with a distressed expression said, "Director, we have investigated this game through various channels, but it seems to be as if it doesn't exist at all. Its registered address is a nursing home." The director with a stern face replied, "What happened to your professional skills? If the address is incorrect, it means this game is illegal. How did it get its game license? How is the official forum website approved? What about its bank account?" At this moment, the young man started explaining again. "Director, we have checked all of this." "Huh? You checked everything, but found nothing?" the director asked in confusion. The leading young man nodded and said this game never applied for a game license. Its license is fake, but for some reason it was able to be released. The game's official forum website is not on record with the network center, and we don't even know how it managed to log in. As for the bank account, it doesn't belong to any bank, and we have no idea where the money players deposit goes. Lin Yu never imagined that his spending would create such a significant ripple in society. Of course, Lin Yu did not have the time to pay attention to these matters. At this moment, with less than 2 days left before the game feedback on Cultivation and the closure of the payment channel, Lin Yu had to focus all his energy on spending money. Lin Yu poured himself a cup of coffee to perk himself up. Then he opened the spiritual root interface in the game. Players' spiritual roots have 5 attributes: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Under normal circumstances, players would choose one attribute and invest all resources into it. Lin Yu had only enhanced his metal attribute spiritual root. Now Lin Yu's metal attribute spiritual root had reached the level of heavenly spiritual root. Upon reaching the heavenly spiritual root level, each of Lin Ye's attacks would inflict an additional 800 points of metal attribute damage and increase his cultivation speed by 50%. The higher the level of the spiritual root, the greater the additional metal attribute damage, and the more the cultivation speed increased. Of course, if players had the energy, they could also enhance the levels of other spiritual roots simultaneously. However, enhancing a second spiritual root requires double the resources of the first. Therefore, in the game, most people do not simultaneously enhance two spiritual roots. But Lin Yu was not an ordinary person. Lin Yu decisively began to spend money directly using cash to boost his metal attribute spiritual root. Dear VIP 11 player Chungfeng Jinren, do you wish to spend 983 million to upgrade your metal attribute spiritual root to the level of Dao spiritual root? Confirm. After clicking confirm, Lin Ye's metal spiritual root began to flash incessantly. The value skyrocketed. A few seconds later, it gradually came to a stop. At this moment, Lin Ye's metal attribute spiritual root had reached the level of Dao spiritual root. Dear VIP 11 player Chungfeng Jinren, congratulations. Your metal attribute spiritual root has been upgraded to the level of Dao spiritual root. Metal attribute Dao spiritual root. Each attack inflicts an additional 100 points of metal attribute damage, and cultivation speed increases by 100. Just this additional damage was immensely powerful. Perhaps if he went to tackle those dungeons now, a mere strike could slay those BOSSES, as they would hardly withstand his additional damage. Of course, this was not the end. Lin Yu clicked the enhancement button for the wood attribute spiritual root. Dear VIP 11 player Chungfeng Jinren, do you wish to spend 20 million to upgrade your wood attribute spiritual root to the level of Dao spiritual root? Earlier, enhancing the metal attribute spiritual root to the level of Dao spiritual root only cost over 9 million, and combined with the previous enhancements, it should be around 10 million. But now enhancing the wood attribute spiritual root to its maximum level requires 20 million. The cost is double that of before. But Lin Yu did not care. Lin Yu decisively clicked the confirm button. Then the level of the wood attribute spiritual root began to rise. Dear VIP 11 player Chungfeng Jinren, congratulations. Your wood attribute spiritual root has been upgraded to the level of Dao spiritual root. Wood attribute Dao spiritual root. Each attack inflicts an additional 100 points of wood attribute damage, and cultivation speed increases by 100. After enhancing the wood attribute spiritual root, Lin Yu continued to upgrade the water attribute spiritual root. Then came the fire and earth attributes. Before long, Lin Yu had elevated all 5 of his elemental spirit roots to the Tiandao spirit root tier. His expenditures on spirit roots far exceeded what he had spent on upgrading equipment and spirit beasts. Upgrading the second spirit root cost 20 million. The third cost 40 million. The fourth 80 million. The fifth alone drained Lin Yu of 160 million. All told, he had spent roughly 310 million. Although the outlay was immense, the returns were equal. With every spirit root raised to the Tiandao tier, each of Lin Ye's attacks now carried 5 elemental attributes: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, each dealing 10,000 points of damage. Taken together, that amounted to 50,000 additional elemental damage. Yet that was not the most important effect. Most crucially, the blessing of the 5 Tiandao spirit roots accelerated Lin Ye's cultivation speed by 500%. That 500% applied to his base cultivation rate. In other words, the 5-fold increase in base speed could stack with the acceleration granted by his cultivation techniques. This was Lin Ye's paramount aim. In his previous life, ever since the game's cultivation feedback, his advancement had crawled at an outrageously slow pace. A decade had passed without him advancing from the out-of-body stage to the separation-of-spirit stage. Such snail-like progress had even eroded his desire to train. But now everything was different. With 5-element Tiandao spirit roots and the blessing of imperial-grade techniques, even after the game's cultivation feedback, Lin Ye's real-world training speed would no longer be painfully slow. Lin Yu opened the game's leaderboards. Within the game, a player's power could be enhanced through several principal avenues. He had already pushed those avenues to their limits. Naturally, he had spent the lion's share of his funds. He now had roughly 290 million left. Lin Yu glanced at the remaining leaderboards: mounts, layers, wealth, elixirs, and so on. These rankings did not dramatically affect combat capability, but they still conferred useful advantages. With about 290 million remaining, taking first place across them would be no problem. Next, he would begin upgrading those aspects. But it was already late. After checking everything, Lin Yu went to sleep. Having exhausted his essential expenditures, he slept soundly that night. These days, Jiang Yun had become a night owl. She found herself unusually idle. Since Lin Yu had converted his assets to cash apart from collecting her salary, she was practically unemployed. So Jiang Yun began playing the game at night as well. At 3 in the morning, she had still not gone to bed. She was still fighting in the game. While grinding dungeons, she kept an eye on the activities of Chungfeng Jinren. Although they were only dual cultivation companions in the game and had no real-world relationship, Jiang Yun could not help frequently checking Changfeng Xinren's profile and the leaderboards. Mainly because Changfeng Xinren had been spending lavishly of late, it was impossible not to notice. He occupied first place on multiple leaderboards. As Jiang Yun was clearing a dungeon, a call suddenly came in. She frowned slightly as she looked at the number. "Why is Dad calling so late?" Jiang Yun muttered to herself. The caller was indeed her father. She seldom communicated with her father. He served in Longwo's military and held a fairly high position. Years ago, when Jiang Yun wanted to study abroad, her father had been resolutely opposed, so she had gone without his approval. Because of that, their relationship had been strained while she was overseas. In her memory, he had been an unbending, old man impervious to reason. But upon returning, she found him much older, both harbored some guilt, and their contact had increased somewhat. Still, why would he call so late? Jiang Yun answered. Her father's voice came through the line. "Yun, are you asleep?" "Not yet, I was just about to." She was not actually about to sleep, but she would not tell her father that she planned to stay up. After a little small talk, her father revealed the real reason for calling. "Yun, I remember you play the mobile game Piamiao too, do you not?" Jiang Yun was taken aback. She had no idea how he had learned of the game. "Yes, I do," she answered. Her father said, "This game seems very popular lately. When you have time, come home and teach me to play it, will you?" Jiang Yun was baffled. Her father calling late to ask her to teach him a game. Had the sun risen in the west? A senior military figure playing video games. She found the idea incomprehensible. Her father did not wait for her reply and continued, "Why don't you come back tomorrow? Early in the morning, I'll have your mother make you breakfast." Jiang Yun replied with a dazed "no." Then the call ended. Jiang Yun sat on her bed in a daze for a long while before regaining her senses. She could not fathom what had happened. Her obstinate father interested in a mobile game. What could possibly explain it? Jiang Yun had no idea. In the end, she turned off her phone and lay down to sleep. After all, she had to return home in the morning, and it would not do to show up with dark circles under her eyes. In Jingqing, within a military housing compound, Jiang Yun's mother gently massaged her husband's temples. As she did so, she asked, "What exactly has been happening recently?" Her husband sighed. "Recently, every country has discovered a strange game appearing within its borders with no registration records. Game companies cannot trace them. It is as if those games materialized out of thin air. Yet these games have existed for quite some time. Our Longwa has one as well. It feels as though a terrifying web is weaving something. The state is taking it seriously and has assigned me to investigate. I remembered our daughter plays the game, so I asked her to come teach me tomorrow. If I try it myself, I will understand it more quickly." Though the assignment came from above, it was not highly classified. After all, the phenomenon was global and reports had already leaked. It did not require extreme secrecy, so he could speak of it with his wife. He turned to his wife and said, "Strange things have been happening lately. Don't go out unnecessarily, do you understand?" His wife nodded. Though she did not know the particulars of these odd occurrences, she was the dutiful, obedient spouse and complied. He looked out the window, worry clouding his gaze. He had not told his wife everything. Those peculiar games were only a small part. Over the past 2 days, a number of strange, unnatural incidents had appeared worldwide. It seemed as if something dreadful was imminent. Moreover, all of the unnatural events appeared to have some connection to those games. The world itself seemed to be undergoing a strange transformation. No one knew the precise cause. Jiang Yun's father had been seconded from the military to serve as the head of Longwo's investigative task force, probing these phenomena. The next morning, early in the morning, Jiang Yun drove back to her parents' home. Having only fallen asleep after 3 in the morning, dark circles were definitely under her eyes. She could only apply more makeup to cover them up. After having breakfast, Jiang Yun's father immediately called her in. He then took out his phone. "I have already downloaded the mobile game Piamiao Xianlu. Please tell me how to play this game." Jiang Yun's father was well prepared. Piamiao Xianlu is quite mysterious, yet the download channels are surprisingly numerous, and it can be found in any app store. However, as a nearly 60-year-old man, being able to handle a smartphone proficiently is already quite impressive. Playing games is still a bit beyond him. Moreover, this mobile game Piamiao Xianlu has some peculiar aspects. He couldn't even understand what the cultivation levels and similar things meant. The various chaotic systems were exceedingly complicated. Jiang Yun could only explain patiently. Cultivation, equipment, spirit, beast, skills. She went through each system in the game with her father. Furthermore, she helped her father create an account. However, when Jiang Yun mentioned that a little investment would make the game more convenient, her father refused. The old man was still somewhat skeptical about spending money on games. After teaching for about 3 hours, Jiang Yun was feeling overwhelmed. Though she spoke dryly, her father still couldn't grasp it. Even though her father's official position was high, he was still a bit lacking when it came to gaming. As Jiang Yun explained, she taught her father how to operate the game step by step. After 3 hours, her father's character had only reached the mid-stage of chi refining. Jiang Yun felt a bit tired and decided to lie down in the bedroom. After all, she had slept too little the night before. However, her father called out to her saying, You should stay at home for a few more days if you have nothing to do. Your mother has been saying she misses you for a while now. Jiang Yun nodded slightly. Anyway, she indeed had no work lately, so she could stay at home for a couple of days. After she left, Jiang Yun's father suddenly raised his head and looked out the window. There were many things he hadn't shared with his daughter. Keeping her at home was also for her safety. Then Jiang Yun's father lowered his head and glanced at the screen of his phone, where Piao Xinlu was still running, revealing a faint smile of difficulty. This game, so complex, is indeed unsuitable for an elderly person like himself. Jiang Yun's father opened his work WeChat group and said to his subordinates, "You all download the mobile game called Piao Xinlu and try it out. Knowing oneself and the enemy will lead to 100 battles without peril. Use your rest time in the evening to play out. Tomorrow morning during the meeting, everyone must share their thoughts." The investigation team, led by Jiang Yun's father, consisted of young men he had brought from the army. They were all quite young and should be able to understand this game. Approaching noon, Lin Yu finally woke up. After having lunch with Xiao Guang, Lin Yu returned to his bedroom. Yesterday, Aunt Wang had already moved into the villa. Xiao Guang's gaming journey had gradually started to get on track. Lin Yu's strength in the game had also basically reached its peak. Therefore, Lin Yu was in a good mood now. The only thing left to do was to spend the remaining 290 million. Even if it only slightly improved his strength, it was better than saving it. In the future, as the game cultivation feedback reaches the players, the role of money in this world will become increasingly diminished. Powerful strength will be the most important factor for survival and comfort in the future. Lin Yu half lay on the bed and opened the game again. Dear VIP 11 player Chengfeng Jinren, you have not returned to the game for 8 hours. We present you with a returning player gift pack, which allows you to enjoy the thrill of rapid cultivation improvement for only 5800 yuan. Confirm. This returning player gift pack is considered one of the most cost-effective gift packs in the game. The cost-performance ratio is extremely high. However, Lin Yu had also tried before. It couldn't be purchased indefinitely. Each day, this returning player gift pack would only appear 3 times. After 3 times, logging in again would not yield any more. This also prevents players from continuously spamming the returning player gift pack. After purchasing the returning player gift pack, Lin Yu also bought the Valentine's Day gift pack. For the past 2 days, Lin Yu and his never-met dual cultivation partner Shuiyun Fairy had maintained a daily purchase of the Valentine's Day gift pack. Thus, the two of them had consistently ranked first on the Heartthrob leaderboard. After purchasing the Valentine's Day gift pack, Lin Yu also took care of all the daily gift packs and similar items. Just these alone cost hundreds of thousands. However, for Lin Yu, hundreds of thousands was merely a drop in the bucket. After all, Lin Yu had already invested over 700 million in the game. There were not many areas left for improvement. A day and a half was sufficient. Lin Yu opened the alchemy, and alchemy is also very important in the game. There are many types of pills. Some can heal wounds, some allow players to break through bottlenecks, and some can keep mortals eternally youthful. Lin Yu planned to prepare some of each type of pill and store them for when the game feedbacks to the real world, so he could use whatever pill he wanted. For pills, it is still more convenient to refine them oneself, and it can also improve his alchemy skills. To refine pills, one needs pill formulas. There are only 2 ways to obtain pill formulas. One is through the official mall, and the other is through various dungeons. Within dungeons, various pill formulas can drop, and they vary in quality. This seems to be the only place in the game that doesn't rip off money. Moreover, pill formulas can be traded. This means that after players obtain a pill formula, they can put it on the trading market to sell for profit. Many players who don't spend money earn money this way. However, to refine pills, having only the formula is not enough. The most important thing is the alchemy furnace. High-level pills require alchemy furnaces of corresponding quality. And to upgrade the alchemy furnace, one must spend money. Lin Yu decisively spent money to upgrade the alchemy furnace to the highest level. This time, upgrading to the top level didn't cost too much. A total of over 3 million was spent. Immediately after, Lin Yu bought all the formulas he hadn't learned from the official mall. Then he opened the trading market and selected the pill formulas. Regardless of the tier of the formula, after completing these preparations, Lin Yu began to refine pills. While refining pills, he purchased the materials needed from the mall and the trading market. As long as one is willing to spend money, nothing is unattainable. Moreover, under normal circumstances, alchemy requires a significant amount of time. But with Lin Yu's disregard for costs, any time could be shortened by spending money. For an entire afternoon, Lin Yu repeated these operations, buying materials, refining pills, and spending money to quickly skip waiting times. Lin Yu's alchemist level gradually increased. In the game, the alchemist levels are divided from low to high: beginner alchemist, intermediate alchemist, advanced alchemist, master alchemist, grandmaster alchemist, pill emperor, and pill saint. Lin Yu had little interest in alchemy before, so his alchemist level was only at advanced alchemist. But after an afternoon of continuous pill refining, Lin Yu raised his alchemist level to the pill saint level. The higher the alchemist level, the greater the efficiency and quality of pill refining. Lin Yes's ranking on the Alchemist leaderboard also skyrocketed from outside the top 100 to the first place. That afternoon, Lin Yu spent a total of 30 million. Not only did his Alchemist level reach the top tier, but he also stored a large number of pills. There were all kinds of tiers. These will all appear in the real world as the game feedbacks. In the evening, Lin Yu had a simple meal and logged into the game again. Just after logging into the game, Lin Yu received a notification. Dear VIP 11 player Changfeng, Jinren, your sect Changha sect has greatly increased in strength, elevating its level from a first-class sect to a super sect. Congratulations, you have received 8,000 points of cultivation. Friendly reminder, your sect will be elevated again, reaching the Holy Land level. Once the sect level reaches the Holy Land, players will enjoy the treatment of Holy Land disciples. Holy Land disciple treatment in the sect. The cultivation speed will be increased by an additional 20%. The success rate of alchemy and artifact refining will be boosted by 10%. The recovery speed of spiritual energy will increase by 10%, and spirit stone salaries will be distributed weekly according to players' positions and levels within the sect. Lin Yu did not expect that within the time it took to have a meal, his sect had actually leveled up. It had upgraded from a first-rate sect to a super sect. Lin Yu hurriedly controlled his character to enter the sect. Sure enough, the cultivation of the sect leader Master Jingxin had already reached the great ascension stage. The strategy of helping NPCs with cash was quite effective. With a sect leader at the great ascension stage and the intimacy level already maxed out, his backing was solid. At the same time as the sect leader's cultivation rose, the ranking of the Changha sect was elevated to the super sect level. However, advancing from a super sect to a holy land would not be easy. This was because advancing from a super sect to a holy land required not just the personal cultivation of the sect leader, but the overall strength of the sect. Lin Yu looked at the previous system notifications again. After the sect was elevated to a holy land, there were so many benefits that Lin Yu had previously been unaware of. It seemed he needed to contribute even more to strengthen the sect. Lin Yu opened the sect donation interface. Then he directly donated cash. He had already learned how many resources were needed for a sect to upgrade from a super sect to a holy land while checking guides. Thus, Lin Yu unhesitatingly entered a string of numbers in the sect donation interface. 300,000,000. 30 million. As a distinguished VIP 11 player Changfeng Jinren, are you sure you want to donate 3 million top-tier spirit stones to your sect Changha sect? Donations to the sect are irrevocable. Please spend wisely. 30 million cash was automatically converted into 3 million top-tier spirit stones. Lin Yu directly clicked the confirm button. Immediately, 2 system notifications appeared before him. System notification: due to your outstanding contribution, your position in the sect has been elevated to the vice sect leader level. System notification: your sect's strength has greatly increased, ranking elevated to Holy Land level. You have received 800 points of cultivation and the treatment of a Holy Land disciple. The 800 points of cultivation did not concern Lin Yu. After all, his own cultivation had already reached the pinnacle and could no longer grow. What Lin Yu cared about were the various benefits of being a Holy Land disciple. Moreover, he did not expect to become the vice sect leader of the Changha sect. Lin Yu had never donated to the sect before. He had only given gifts directly to Master Jingxin. Thus, his position was merely that of an inner sect disciple. This position was still elevated through completing tasks, not through donations. In the sect, the ranks of disciples from low to high were handyman, disciple outer sect, disciple inner sect, disciple direct, disciple deacon elder, and vice sect leader. In each sect, there could only be one vice sect leader. This meant that Lin Yes's position was second only to one in the Changha sect. Right now, it seemed to have little practical use. After all, he could not use the vice sect leader position to command those NPCs to do anything. However, once the game feedback occurred in the future, it would be different. By then, the entire sect would descend into the real world, and as the vice sect leader, he would hold much greater power. Lin Yu could envision himself commanding a throng of disciples, overwhelming the enemies completely. That feeling of commanding with authority should be exhilarating. With this in mind, Lin Yu decisively opened the sect donation interface again. Since he was already the vice sect leader and had a life and death bond with Master Jingxin, the entire sect was practically his private property. Then why not donate a bit more? Lin Yu had 230 million left. That was more than enough. So he decided to donate another 30 million. Lin Yu entered 300 in the donation interface and clicked confirm. After donating another 30 million, the Changha sect visibly became more powerful. In the background of the sect, countless cranes soared in the air and more powerful spirit beasts frolicked on the ground, with the number of NPC disciples in the sect increasing rapidly. In the game Piamiao Xiantu, there were many sects. There were nearly countless sects. Many sects had only one player while everyone else were NPCs. Lin Yes's Changha sect was one such example. Of course, there were also some sects with more appealing names, or those starting at higher levels that had several, or even dozens of players joining simultaneously. Naturally, there were also sect leaderboards in the game. Previously, the Changha sect had no chance of ranking. But now, Lin Yu opened the sect leaderboard, and indeed the Changha sect had reached the top. Thus, the vast majority of the leaderboard first places in the game had become Lin Yu or were related to him. After elevating his sect to the top of the leaderboard, Lin Yu glanced at the time. It was now 8 o'clock in the evening. There were 32 hours left until the game Piamiao Xiantu began to reward cultivation points and close the recharge channel. Time was pressing. Lin Yu had to spend the remaining 200 million within these final 32 hours. Only by spending this 200 million could Lin Yu's VIP level rise from level 11 to level 12. The importance of VIP levels goes without saying. Tonight would inevitably be another sleepless night. Meanwhile, as Lin Yu continued to spend money, the topic of Lin Yu on the official game forum had not diminished at all. On the contrary, its popularity was increasing. However, aside from topics about Lin Yu, some other posts also appeared. After the equipment leaderboard, this Chengfeng Jinren has also successively climbed to first place in the Spirit Beast leaderboard, the Cultivation Technique leaderboard, and the Alchemist leaderboard. Moreover, I suspect that the recent changes in the sect leaderboard are definitely related to Chengfeng Jinren. There are so many impoverished areas in the world where people cannot afford to eat, yet someone is spending billions in the game. How ironic. It's his own money, he can spend it wherever he wants. What's there to criticize? I don't believe that it's his money. This player named Chengfeng Jinren must be a rich second generation. The money he spent is definitely from his parents. Isn't the money from his parents his? Yesterday morning I caught a spirit beast in the game, which was a three-tailed fox. Then in the afternoon I took my girlfriend, who is 1.7 meters tall and weighs 46 kilograms, with very fair skin, to the zoo and suddenly saw a fox with 3 tails. It looked exactly like the three-tailed fox I caught in the game. Do you think foxes in reality really have 3 tails? Did the poster's eyes have a problem? How could there be a 3-tailed fox in reality? The poster might have been clouded. Didn't you see the point? This is a pure bragging post. Damn, listening to you say this, I suddenly remembered that last night I saw a firelight on a tree in my yard jumping around on the branches before flying away. I thought I had a visual error, but now that I think about it, that firelight seemed to resemble the spirit beast Chien bird in the game. Damn, I'm a zookeeper, but I work in the aquarium. Yesterday, a fox keeper in our zoo was taken away by a group of men in black. It was said they took a fox. Could it be the one the poster mentioned? Listening to you, why does it feel like we are living in a world of immortals? My dad is almost 60 years old and recently started playing the game Piamiao Xiantu. He even told me to go out less. Could this be related to what you all are saying? Does the father of the poster know some insider information? Eyes on it, waiting for insider news. Eyes on it, waiting for the poster to reveal themselves. The next day at noon, Lin Yu slowly opened his eyes while lying in bed. He had slept until noon again. In recent days, Lin Yu had been waking up only at noon, enjoying his sleep immensely. In his previous life, apart from the initial stages of cultivation, which were relatively relaxed, his daily life became increasingly tense as time went on. Although Lin Yu was also a Qi departure stage cultivator in his past life, he was quite powerful even among ordinary people, to the point where he was unafraid of any firearms. However, as the game progressed, the world became exceedingly dangerous. The dungeons and formidable bosses in the game were quite difficult to deal with. Moreover, the game was not just filled with villainous bosses. There were also minor leaders in dungeons, low-level monsters, and even scheming NPCs, all of whom were hard to handle. Many demons and magic cultivators specifically targeted player cultivators. All players lived in a state of constant fear. The entire nation was nearly paralyzed. Of course, it was not just Long Country, the whole world was engulfed in extreme chaos. In his past life, Lin Yu, as a Qi departure stage cultivator, had to face battles at all times. The constant tension and anxiety left Lin Yu, a half-hearted cultivator, feeling quite exhausted. Therefore, after his rebirth, Lin Yu felt that these days had been very comfortable and joyous. At this moment, Lin Yu sat up in bed, shook his head, and dispelled those chaotic thoughts. In this life, let's see if those arrogant demons dare to appear before me, Lin Yu muttered to himself. After investing several hundred million, Lin Yu's current strength was such that even if all the demons in the game charged at him, they would certainly not be his match. Of course, he still needed to continue spending. The remaining 200 million cash must be spent. This afternoon was the last opportunity. Because at midnight tonight the game would close the recharge channel and begin to reflect the cultivation levels. Lin Yu picked up his phone, got out of bed, and headed to the dining room. To Lin Yu's surprise, Xiao Guang was already in the dining room, devouring his meal. Lin Yu walked into the dining room and asked in confusion, "Xiao Guang, why are you up so early today?" In the past few days, Xiao Guang seemed to have become completely addicted to the game, waking up later than Lin Yu every day. He didn't expect to be up earlier today. Could it be that something was happening? Hearing that his cousin had arrived, Xiao Guang quickly turned his head. Lin Yu was taken aback by Xiao Guang's appearance. Xiao Guang looked quite haggard with bloodshot eyes, seeming exceptionally exhausted. "Xiao Guang, are you all right?" Lin Yu hurriedly asked with concern. Xiao Guang chuckled, "I haven't slept since yesterday noon." After learning those two celestial-grade techniques, I felt so powerful that I challenged several players of the same level and won easily. Xiao Guang was obviously very excited despite being tired. He looked completely awake. Seeing Xiao Guang like this, Lin Yu couldn't help but smile bitterly. This kid is truly addicted. If Uncle finds out, he will probably have to deal with him severely. Fortunately, there isn't much time left until the game reflects the cultivation levels. Once the game begins to reflect cultivation levels, everyone in the world will know that those who play the game will gain immense power. At that time, Uncle will also be relieved that his son is playing this game. However, right now, Xiao Guang's cultivation in the game had not yet begun to reflect, and he was still just an ordinary person. It wouldn't be good to keep staying up like this. Hurry up and eat and go back to sleep after you're done. Lin Yu feigned anger as he spoke. Hearing his cousin scolding, Xiao Guang immediately showed a sheepish smile. He had always listened to his cousin Lin Yu since childhood. Lin Yu's words often carried more weight than those of his parents. Xiao Guang quickly nodded and said, "Okay, I'll sleep after I'm full. This time I'll sleep until tomorrow." Although Xiao Guang seemed quite excited, he indeed looked a bit overwhelmed. However, at this moment, Lin Yu suddenly shook his head slightly and said, "Set an alarm for yourself to wake up before midnight. I have something to tell you tonight." Upon hearing Lin Yu's words, Xiao Guang showed a look of confusion. However, just as he was about to ask, Lin Yu interrupted. "Don't ask too many questions, you just do as I say. Some things are indeed too complicated to explain, so it's better to let Xiao Guang figure them out himself after midnight. After midnight, the game will begin to reflect cultivation levels. It's best to stay awake at that time. Because players will have just gained immense power, they may sometimes lose control. In his previous life, Lin Yu had accidentally demolished his own villa while sleeping during the reflection of cultivation levels. He did not want Xiao Guang to end up like himself in his past life, destroying their home in his sleep." Xiao Guang could only nod with a hint of confusion on his face. Lin Yu also sat down at the dining table. Soon Aunt Wang had prepared lunch for Lin Yu. Lin Yu looked at Aunt Wang and said, "Aunt Wang, please go buy some groceries this afternoon. Buy more and stock up. I see that the weather won't be too good in the coming days, so don't go out." "Is the weather forecast predicting rain for tomorrow?" Aunt Wang asked in confusion. She seemed to have just checked the weather forecast, indicating that tomorrow would be sunny. Lin Yu did not explain too much, but smiled and said, "Weather forecasts can sometimes be inaccurate. Oh, just do as I..." Seeing Lin Yu so insistent, Aunt Wang could only nod. Lin Yu was usually kind and polite to everyone, even treating Aunt Wang with great respect. However, since Aunt Wang worked for Lin Yu, she also respected his opinions. "Alright, I will go grocery shopping soon." As Aunt Wang spoke, she began tidying up the kitchen. Lin Yu, meanwhile, started to eat heartily. There was a reason for Aunt Wang to go out less these days. With the reflection of cultivation levels in the game, many players gained immense power, but the qualities of these players, some were even small thugs in society. In the early stages of the game's reflection, these guys thought that having gained immense power meant they could act recklessly, causing quite a stir in society. Moreover, aside from these dangers, as the game reflected cultivation levels, some small animals in Long Country began to undergo varying degrees of mutation. The mutations in these small animals seemed to be due to an increase in spiritual energy in the real world. This situation resembled a recovery of spiritual energy. These mutated small animals posed a significant threat to ordinary people. Especially in the first few days after the game's cultivation reflection began, there would be many incidents of animals attacking people worldwide. That is why Lin Yu advised Aunt Wang to take advantage of this afternoon before the game starts reflecting cultivation levels to stock up on food. After avoiding the most dangerous first few days, things would be much safer. After finishing his lunch, Lin Yu returned to his room. Xiao Guang also went back to his room to sleep. Lin Yu returned to his soft bed, picked up his phone, and opened the mobile game Misty Celestial Path. This afternoon, Lin Yu planned to spend the last 200 million. Before the game reflected cultivation levels, he aimed to raise his VIP level to level 12. The task was heavy, but fortunately Lin Yu had already planned everything. As a countdown appeared on Lin Yu's phone screen indicating the remaining time for the heartfelt ranking prize announcement, his eyes immediately lit up. With just over 2 minutes left, Lin Yu glanced at the time on his phone. It was now 11:57 a.m., meaning the prizes would be announced at noon. With just 2 minutes to wait, he placed his phone on the bed and went to prepare himself a cup of coffee. As he picked up his phone, it was exactly noon. When he saw the question-marked gift icon transform into another icon, Lin Yu's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Is this really the reward?" Lin Yu exclaimed with excitement as the icon originally indicating a reward morphed into a small castle. This icon was familiar to Lin Yu. Every player of the game Piao Shinta would recognize it as representing a cave dwelling. Every player possesses a cave dwelling, yet each one is unique. In the game, a cave dwelling is akin to a player's home in reality. Cultivators reside in cave dwellings. While they do not directly enhance a player's combat power, they possess many other functions. Within their cave dwellings, players can recover stamina, meditate, refine pills, and weapons. Additionally, cave dwellings have a certain defensive capability. If a cave dwelling's level is not sufficiently high, it may be challenged by other players, even when the player is off. Hence, cave dwellings serve as a refuge for players in the game. However, their true significance lies in the real. As a reborn individual, Lin Yu was acutely aware of the importance of cave dwellings. He had set aside part of his 2 billion yuan in cash specifically for expending on cave dwellings. The reason for delaying the upgrade of the cave dwelling was simply that it does not directly increase a player's combat power, making it slightly less critical compared to systems that enhance cultivation or equipment. Lin Yu had a cave dwelling in his previous life, but it was only a third-grade cave dwelling. In Piaomiao Xintu, cave dwelling levels are categorized into 4 major ranks: Heaven, Earth, Mysterious, and Yellow. Each rank is further divided into 9 sublevels, with the lowest being Yellow rank 1 and the highest being Heaven rank 9. Acquiring a cave dwelling is quite challenging, even harder than obtaining powerful spirit beasts. Good cave dwellings are generally acquired through in-game purchases during various events. Of course, there are cave dwellings available for sale in the shop, but the highest tier available, there is only Earth rank 9. Lin Yu initially planned to directly spend money in the game shop to purchase a cave dwelling. However, he never expected the final reward for the Valentine's Day event would indeed be a cave dwelling. Thus, he no longer needed to buy one from the shop, as the cave dwelling obtained from the Valentine's event would undoubtedly be of a higher tier. However, the distribution time for the final rewards of the heartfelt ranking event was set for midnight, coinciding with the start of the cultivation feedback period. Hence, Lin Yu knew he could not immediately claim his cave dwelling reward. After a brief moment of thought, he made a decision. Since he couldn't obtain it now, he would gather the materials needed to upgrade the cave dwelling in advance. Then once the rewards were distributed, he would directly upgrade his cave dwelling to its pinnacle. Without delay, Lin Yu opened the shop interface and began spending. As a distinguished VIP 11 player, he was prompted to confirm whether he wished to spend 80 million yuan to purchase cave dwelling high-level expansion tickets X80000. The cave dwelling expansion tickets are the most crucial items for enhancing the cave dwelling, divided into standard and high-level types. Each high-level expansion ticket could increase the area of the cave dwelling by 1 square meter. Lin Yu decided to purchase 800,000 of them. This meant Lin Yu could expand his cave dwelling's area by a staggering 800,000 square meters. This plan had long been in the making. While this figure appeared immense, it was not entirely outrageous for a cultivator's cave dwelling. Moreover, the internal space of a cultivator's cave dwelling does not manifest externally. Increasing the internal area of a cave dwelling would not enlarge the dwelling itself. After purchasing the high-level expansion tickets, Lin Yu spent an additional 20 million to prepare a powerful defensive array for his cave dwelling. All the materials for arranging the array were ready. At this moment, Lin Yu still had 1 billion yuan remaining. Lin Yu decided not to use this billion to enhance his own strength, but rather to purchase 1 billion worth of spirit stones from the shop. He bought 300,000 superior spirit stones, 30,000 exceptional spirit stones, and 400 immortal spirit stones. In Piaomiao Xintu, spirit stones are categorized from low to high as follows: inferior, medium, superior, exceptional, and immortal spirit stones. Immortal spirit stones hold the highest value, with 1 immortal spirit stone convertible into 100 exceptional spirit stones and 1 exceptional spirit stone convertible into 100 superior spirit stones. Lin Yu purchased these spirit stones for use in the real world after the game feedback. The importance of spirit stones for cultivators cannot be overstated. Whether for enhancing cultivation, healing injuries, or for refining weapons and pills, spirit stones are indispensable. They can even replenish the qi consumed during combat. It can be said that the significance of spirit stones to cultivators surpasses that of food to ordinary people. After spending 1 billion on spirit stones, Lin Yu also climbed to the top of the wealth ranking. Lin Yu finally breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing the gleaming VIP 12 insignia shimmering above his in-game avatar's head. His spending spree had at last come to an end. Only several 100,000 yuan remained in Lin Yu's bank account. Together with this villa, it constituted his entire worldly fortune. Yet Lin Yu felt no trace of anxiety. Once the game began feeding spiritual cultivation back into reality, money would become mere scrap paper. A single high-grade spirit stone could fetch over 1 million yuan in the mortal world, and he possessed 3 million such stones. Still, what mattered most was his own strength. For once, Lin Yu set aside his phone and closed the game interface. Time slipped away swiftly while gaming. It was now 4 in the afternoon. 8 hours remained until the game's spiritual feedback commenced. Lin Yu decided to unwind and rest for a while, knowing full well that much would demand his attention after those 8 hours. He opened the door and stepped into the villa's courtyard. The courtyard was spacious, adorned with abundant flowers and trees. Since his return through reincarnation, Lin Yu had never once crossed the threshold, had not even laid eyes upon his own garden. He had been wholly absorbed in cultivating his in-game avatar's power. Now, standing amid the blossoms and greenery, he felt an immediate sense of serenity and ease. He drew a deep breath, The sweet fragrance of flowers instantly filled his nostrils. Perhaps having long been deprived of this sight, Lin Yu suddenly found the flora dazzlingly vivid, as if freshly watered, lush, radiant, and glistening with vitality. At that moment, Aunt Wang wheeled a cart up to the courtyard gate. Lin Yu hurried forward with a warm smile and helped her push it inside. A large supermarket stood just a few hundred meters from Lin Yu's villa. Everything one might need was readily available, making grocery runs effortless for Aunt Wang. She puzzled slightly over Lin Yu's sudden instruction to stockpile provisions, since even inclement weather posed little obstacle to food procurement. "This cartful should last us a full week," Aunt Wang remarked with a gentle laugh. 3 people now resided in the villa, including Xiao Guang, whose appetite rivaled that of 2 grown men. So Aunt Wang had purchased an unusually generous quantity of ingredients. As she spoke, Aunt Wang lifted her gaze toward the sky, clear, cloudless, and brilliantly blue. She turned back to Lin Yu, her face alight with amusement. "Looks like your weather forecast is off, Xiao Yu." Lin Yu shook his head faintly. "Whether it's accurate or not will be clear by midnight tonight." As a man reborn, he knew precisely how the coming days would unfold. His memory was sharp. On the very night the game's spiritual feedback activated, lightning split the heavens and thunder shook the earth. Hell itself seemed to descend upon the world. Then came 3 days of torrential rain. When the downpour finally ceased, the world emerged renewed, fresh, cleansed, and reborn. Hearing Lin Yu's words, Aunt Wang remained skeptical but smiled. "Then I'll stay awake tonight to see for myself." With that, she turned toward the kitchen to prepare the newly purchased groceries. When Lin Yu suddenly asked, "Aunt Wang, did you water the flowers in the courtyard just now?" Aunt Wang paused, then shook her head. "We've only just moved in. Been too busy to tend the plants yet." Lin Yu, still smiling, he said, "I'd assumed you just watered them given how radiant they look." Aunt Wang glanced curiously at the garden. "They do seem brighter than a few days ago, yet I truly haven't watered them yet." Her words stirred something in Lin Yu's mind. "Aunt Wang, I'm quite all right. Please go ahead and tend to your tasks," Lin Yu said. Though puzzled herself, Aunt Wang dismissed the anomaly without further concern. Perhaps Xiao Guang had done it. Lin Yu's thoughts diverged sharply from hers. He knew full well Xiao Guang was no gardener by nature. Clearly, these subtle changes in the flora were somehow linked to the imminent spiritual feedback from the game, a detail he'd overlooked entirely in his past life. Seconds ticked by, each one stretched thin by anticipation. On the western outskirts of Longwa's capital stood a freestanding 3-story office building, its perimeter guarded by armed sentries, tightly secured and rigorously patrolled. Inside the third-floor conference room, Jiang Yun's father presided over a meeting. Some 20 individuals filled the room. Aside from Jiang Yun's father, all appeared young. The eldest no older than 30, the youngest barely out of their early 20s. Each sat upright and alert, exuding the disciplined bearing of seasoned military personnel. Jiang Yun's father sat at the head of the long table, hands folded calmly before him. His expression serene, he spoke slowly. "You've each tested the game for 2 days. Share your assessments." As soon as he finished, voices rose steadily around the table. "Sir, after 2 days playing Mist-Shrouded Immortal Path, I find it indistinguishable from ordinary pay-to-progress Xinxiao mobile games. Nothing within it appears anomalous. Except one thing: its monetization ceiling is extraordinarily high. Most such games cap at several hundred thousand, or perhaps 1 million yuan. To achieve peak combat prowess here, however, demands hundreds of millions. Sir, my investigation into the game's spirit beasts revealed troubling inconsistencies. The mutated creatures appearing across our nation bear uncanny resemblance to those featured in-game. Coincidence seems highly improbable. I believe the recent wave of animal mutations across our country is inextricably tied to this game. Sir, among dozens of similar titles I've tested, Mist-Shrouded Immortal Path stands alone as the prime suspect. Sir, I combed through official forums and unearthed valuable data. Sir, my review of foreign websites reveals that nearly every nation has reported bizarre phenomena over the past 3 days, converging within the same narrow window. Sir, I spent an entire month's salary on in-game purchases, and so it went. Each of the 20 subordinates presented their findings in turn. Listening, Jiang Yun's father's expression grew increasingly grave. The ongoing investigation into Mist-Shrouded Immortal Path had yielded nothing. No origin, no developers, no corporate footprints. The game had materialized as if conjured from thin air, leaving no discernible trace. Not in its payment channels, nor in its official forums. Ghost-like, silent, and utterly elusive. The meeting concluded without resolution. Jiang Yun's father shared his own analysis, then issued precise directives to his team. Tapping lightly on the table, he instructed, "Tonight, continue testing the game, without restraint. All expenses are reimbursable through your section leader. Team 1, redouble efforts to uncover the game's origins. Do not relent. Team 2, intensify surveillance and containment. Above all else, protect civilians from harm inflicted by mutated fauna. This is your paramount duty." "Understood. Understood." The young officers responded in unison. The eerie correlation between mist-shrouded immortal path and the sudden surge in animal mutations warranted national-level intervention. Hence, this critical assignment had been entrusted solely to them. These elite military operatives rigorously trained by the state possessed the singular focus and unwavering discipline required to fulfill such a mission. The anomalies surrounding mist-shrouded immortal path and the real-world mutations defied rational explanation, making this task both urgent and extraordinary. Within the borders of the Dragon Kingdom, many strange occurrences have emerged in recent days. Most of these phenomena manifest in certain animals and plants. It bears the meaning of a simplified revival of spiritual energy. However, the anomalies are not limited to the Dragon Kingdom. Other countries on Blue Star are also experiencing peculiar events. The manifestations, however, differ. The neighboring country to the south of the Dragon Kingdom, known as Asen, has also seen some unusual occurrences in recent days. In a temple, a radiant light suddenly filled the air. The golden light illuminated the entire temple for 10 minutes. At that moment, there were many visitors in the temple. Those visitors who were bathed in the golden light all claimed to have witnessed a miracle kneeling down in front. Although Asen is the birthplace of Buddhism, it has gradually shifted to the worship of Asenism, resulting in the diminishing influence of Buddhism in the country. Not all the people in the temple were Buddhists, most were merely tourists. However, after witnessing that radiant light, they all converted their faith, switching from Asenism to Buddhism. These individuals became devout followers of Buddhism. In addition to the events occurring in this Buddhist temple, many other Buddhist temples in Asen have also experienced various anomalies. However, the Asen government has not paid much attention to these matters. Some officials even stepped forward to clarify that the golden light was actually a manifestation of the Asen deity unrelated to Buddhism. In the Dragon Kingdom in Jianghai City, not far from Linyes Villa, a middle-aged man was also playing the mobile game Misty Immortal Path. He is the character Yifeng Jinren in the game. Recently, perhaps influenced by the in-game character Chungfeng Zinren's spending, he has been playing the game more frequently. Although he hasn't spent much money recently, his extended online time has still allowed his cultivation level to rise one position on the leaderboard, from 100th place to 99th. In mobile games, the most satisfying achievement for players is the improvement of their leaderboard rank. Yifeng Jinren has recently become a bit addicted. He was already preparing to spend some money again. What if I spend another 10,000? Perhaps I could raise my rank in the cultivation leaderboard to within the top 80. The middle-aged man muttered to himself. The temptation of spending filled his mind. However, just as he was about to click the recharge button, his phone suddenly rang, interrupting his purchase. The middle-aged man answered the call, and the voice of a deputy captain from his company's fleet came through. Mr. Gao, we are short a driver for tonight's fleet. Both backup drivers are on leave, and I can't find anyone. Could you think of a way? The middle-aged man's surname is Gao, and his name is Gao Sheng. He grew up in a poor family facing hardships and later became a long-haul truck driver. Through his hard work, he became the godson of the fleet captain, gradually improving his living conditions. Later, when the fleet captain passed away, he left the fleet to Gao Sheng. Gao Sheng finally completed a leap in social class, transitioning from a truck driver to the captain and owner of the fleet. Hearing his subordinate's words, Gao Sheng frowned slightly and said, both backup drivers are on leave. Where am I supposed to find a driver on such short notice? The two backup drivers were meant to handle special situations. Unexpectedly, a special situation arose, and both backup drivers were unavailable. What a coincidence. What are their reasons? Can't they be called back? Gao Sheng asked. The deputy captain hesitated and said both of them drank alcohol at noon. Drinking alcohol means they are completely unfit to drive. Being a truck driver is somewhat different from being a regular car driver. Being caught drinking has serious consequences. Gao Sheng said impatiently, then just stop one truck. That's not feasible, Mr. Gao, the cargo tonight is very important and must be delivered by morning. Gao Sheng sighed, ultimately resigned, and said fine, I'll head over to cover for a bit. From now on, anyone who drinks at noon will be fired. After saying this, Gao Sheng hung up the phone. He glanced at the game's recharge interface on his phone screen, then reluctantly closed the game. Forget it, I'll recharge tomorrow and focus on improving my cultivation. Gao Sheng thought to himself. After all, he came from a background as a truck driver. Although he was increasingly reluctant to endure the hardships after becoming a boss, he was still capable of returning to the job of a truck driver when necessary. Gao Sheng arrived at the garage of the villa, got into his Benz, and sped towards his fleet's parking lot. In just over 10 minutes, he arrived at the fleet's base. Before long, a total of 10 large trucks set off into the distance. This mission required a long journey, and they wouldn't arrive at their destination until 5 o'clock the next morning. As a truck driver, staying awake at night is a necessary skill. Gao Sheng was no exception. Occasionally driving at night was not too exhausting, he just couldn't play games. As night gradually descended, the moon tonight was particularly full and bright. The stars in the sky seemed to shine even more brightly than usual. Gao Sheng was in a good mood. Listening to music, he drove the truck towards the destination. Time slowly passed. Lin Yu stood in the yard for a while before returning to his bedroom to sleep. It wasn't until 11:30 at night that an alarm clock woke him up. Taking an early sleep at night helps to avoid drowsiness in the later hours. Being well-rested allows for better acceptance of the game's cultivation feedback. Lin Yu thought for a moment and decided to check on Xiao Pang in the adjacent bedroom, just in case this guy had not woken up gaining powerful strength in his dreams. He might cause himself some trouble. Lin Yu knocked on Xiao Pang's bedroom door. Xiao Pang with bleary eyes opened the door for Lin Yu. This kid was indeed still half asleep. You should wash up a bit to wake yourself up and come with me to the study, Lin Yu said. Xiao Pang nodded sleepily without asking why. Lin Yu took his phone and was the first to arrive at the study. Xiao Pang had not yet come, so Lin Yu did not open the game, but rather opened the official forum. Lin Yu remembered that in his previous life players mentioned that 10 minutes before the game's cultivation feedback began an announcement would appear on the official forum. At this moment the time was 11:40. There were 20 minutes until the game's cultivation feedback and 10 minutes until the official forum announcement. Taking advantage of this time, Lin Yu casually browsed through the posts on the official forum. Almost half of the posts were related to him. I encountered Chengfeng Jinren on the street yesterday, and I even took a photo with him. I added him on WeChat. If anyone wants his WeChat ID, you can add me, and I'll share his contact card. Is that true? Even if you did see Chengfeng Jinren, it's impossible for you to know him, right? The poster must think everyone is an idiot. If you know Chengfeng Jinren, then I must know the President of the United States. What the hell? I just added the poster on WeChat, and he asked me for a 10 yuan red envelope. If I don't give him the money, he won't send the contact card. What a joke. If I had 10 yuan, I'd rather buy a bag of spicy strips to eat. By the way, have you all noticed that the sky tonight is exceptionally clear? Those stars seem to be shining much more brightly than before. I saw the stars too. Next to my house is a chemical factory, and I haven't seen stars at night for many years. I never expected the sky to be so clear tonight. At 11:48 p.m., Xiao Guang walked into the study. After freshening up a bit, he appeared much more spirited. As soon as he entered, he saw Lin Yu sitting behind the desk. He asked with some confusion, "Brother, is there something happening?" Though Xiao Guang usually seemed a bit dazed, he was far from foolish. On the contrary, he was quite clever. Earlier in the day, his cousin had made him set an alarm, and even personally woke him up, clearly indicating that something important was happening tonight. However, he couldn't guess what it could be. For the past few days, all his energy had been devoted to playing games, completely oblivious to the events outside. His parents, knowing he was at Lin Yes, felt reassured, and with too much happening in the company recently, they hadn't called him much. Naturally, Xiao Guang was unaware of the strange occurrences outside. Thus, after pondering, he couldn't figure out why his cousin had called him. However, Lin Yu didn't elaborate, but instead glanced at a chair beside him. The meaning was clear. Xiao Guang displayed a helpless expression and walked over to sit down. Recently, his cousin seemed to be acting mysteriously, somewhat different from before. After sitting down, Xiao Guang took out his phone, preparing to play games for a while. He didn't want to waste a moment of gaming time. However, Lin Yu unexpectedly stopped him and said, "Don't log into the game yet. Go to the official game forum. There might be an announcement soon." Upon hearing Lin Yu's words, Xiao Guang was slightly taken aback. An announcement might be coming. What announcement? He felt puzzled. Nonetheless, he followed Lin Yu's suggestion and opened the official forum. As soon as he logged in, he was captivated by two posts on the forum. At that moment, there were two pinned announcements in bold red font on the official forum, quite eye-catching. Xiao Guang turned to glance at his cousin Lin Yu sitting beside him. Lin Yu was also lowering his head, looking at his phone, seemingly on the official forum for floating Immortal Path. Xiao Guang frowned slightly and checked the timestamps on the two pinned announcements, which were exactly 1150 p.m. At that moment, the time displayed on his phone was also 1150 p.m. This meant that these two pinned announcements had just been posted. It seemed his cousin had known in advance when the announcements would be released. Xiao Guang clicked on them with curiosity, and his expression became somewhat dazed. This game announcement felt like a prank. Game announcement 1: Dear players of Floating Immortal Path, the game will begin to refund cultivation levels to all players starting at midnight on February 14th, 2123, with the refund period lasting for a week. After 1 week, the refund will end, and all players will receive cultivation levels equivalent to their VIP level percentage. For instance, VIP 1 players will receive 10% of their game character's cultivation level, VIP 2 players will receive 20%, and so on. All efforts made by players in the game will receive equivalent rewards. After the refund period ends, Floating Immortal Path will initiate the next round of refunds. At first glance, Xiao Guang felt this was a joke. Refund cultivation levels. What nonsense. His cultivation level in the game was at the out-of-body stage. Could it be that he would receive out-of-body stage cultivation levels and become an out-of-body cultivator in the real world? If that were true, wouldn't he be able to do anything in heaven and earth? Xiao Guang not only loved gaming, but also enjoyed reading novels. He had read many cultivation novels and naturally knew how powerful an out-of-body stage cultivator was. However, it seemed they were saying the refund would be based on VIP level percentages. Fortunately, he was a VIP 10, so if there were indeed a refund, it would be 100%. Xiao Guang had poured all his 1 million into the game. Reaching VIP 10 required exactly that. Xiao Guang suddenly pouted, thinking to himself, what am I even thinking? This announcement must be some kind of prank. He had actually followed the announcement's suggestion, imagining himself becoming an out-of-body stage cultivator. It was simply absurd. At that moment, it seemed Xiao Guang thought of something and slyly squinted at his cousin Lin Yu beside him. If this announcement were true, then his cousin would be even more ridiculous. He had no idea how much his cousin had spent, but he was always at the top of every leaderboard. His cultivation level had even reached the highest tier in the entire game. If the cultivation levels in the game really were refunded to players, wouldn't his cousin directly ascend to immortality? Looking at this announcement, Xiao Guang felt it had too many loopholes. It seemed like a gimmick allure to entice players to spend money. If 1 out of 100 players fell for it, wouldn't they all be spending their entire fortunes in the game? Then the game company would make a fortune. Xiao Guang shook his head, helplessly feeling he was too clever, immediately figuring out the true purpose of this game announcement. Then he closed this announcement and opened the second game announcement. Game announcement 2. Dear players of Floating Immortal Path, we regret to inform you that in order to ensure fairness in the cultivation level refunds, Floating Immortal Path will close the game's recharge channel at 1150 p.m. on February 13th, 2123, and it will never reopen. When Xiao Guang saw the second game announcement, he was instantly dumbfounded. The slap in the face came so quickly. Closing the recharge channel at 1150 p.m. meant it couldn't be recharged now. Had the game officials gone mad, issuing an announcement that they would never reopen the recharge channel, not making money? This was unreasonable. Xiao Guang carefully looked at the publishers of these 2 announcements. Both were published by someone called Floating Immortal Path Game Editor. Moreover, there was a title before the name Forum Administrator. What the heck? Could it be real? Or had the game officials gone insane, intending to play tricks on all players? Xiao Guang felt utterly confused. He put down his phone and looked at his cousin Lin Yu. At this moment, it seemed only his cousin could explain the reasons to him. However, when Xiao Guang looked at his cousin Lin Yu, he found him staring at his phone screen, the corners of his mouth slightly lifted, as if he were grinning foolishly. Brother, Xiao Guang called softly. Lin Yu then turned his head to look at Xiao Guang, but his smile became even more radiant. Brother, are you okay? Compared to his confusion about the 2 announcements, he was more concerned about whether his cousin was having some mental issue. At this moment, Lin Yu suddenly asked with a smile, Xiao Guang, have you finished reading the game announcements? Xiao Guang nodded and weakly said, I did finish reading, but what? Lin Yu asked with a smile. Xiao Guang increasingly felt something was off about his cousin. This smile seemed so strange. Could it be that his cousin believed these 2 announcements? Brother, you don't actually think these 2 announcements are true, do you? Xiao Guang widened his eyes and asked in shock. In Xiao Guang's eyes, his cousin Lin Yu had always been the image of maturity, steadiness, and wisdom. How could he suddenly seem less intelligent today, believing in such things? Looking at Xiao Guang's shocked expression, Lin Yu didn't rush to explain. He lowered his head and checked the time on his phone screen. Then with a smirk, he said slowly, there are 3 minutes left until the cultivation level refund. While Lin Yu and Xiao Guang, the 2 brothers, were in the study looking at the game announcement. In the game, the character Yifeng Jinren, who is actually Gao Sheng, the boss and captain of the truck convoy, drove the leading truck and arrived at a small road with his team. Such truck convoys usually prefer to take some slightly remote roads. As long as the road is wide enough, although the small road is generally quite dark and lacks streetlights, it is also rare to encounter traffic police on duty. For these large trucks, the biggest fear is the traffic police. After all, for them, being overweight is an everyday affair. If caught by the traffic police, besides fines and demerits, it would also delay their delivery tasks. Especially since this task was particularly urgent, they had been choosing to drive on small roads all the way. Just as the convoy was driving on a rural road, a huge stone suddenly appeared in the middle of the road, blocking the convoy's path. The appearance of this stone was rather strange, positioned perfectly in the center of the road. Gao Sheng hurriedly hit the brakes and came to a stop. However, he did not rush to get out of the car. Instead, he used the walkie-talkie in the truck to contact the drivers of the 9 other vehicles behind him. There's a stone in the middle of the road ahead. Everyone be careful. Gao Sheng squinted his eyes and said coldly. As a veteran truck driver, he had experienced all kinds of storms. Seeing the stone, he knew it was not just a coincidence. His right hand reached under the seat beside him and pulled out a baseball bat. The baseball bat was an essential item for truck drivers who often drove at night, very useful for self-defense. After waiting in the truck for a while, and noticing that there seemed to be no movement outside, he spoke through the walkie-talkie to the drivers behind him. Everyone grab your gear and get out of the truck to gather at the front. Gao Sheng also opened the car door and stepped out. Shortly after, the remaining 9 truck drivers arrived in front of Gao Sheng. They were all experienced drivers and noticed that the stone on the road ahead was a bit suspicious. At that moment, the truck drivers suddenly heard many footsteps around them. 2 truck drivers with flashlights hurriedly shone their lights around. Upon shining the light, their hearts sank. A large group of people, at least 20 or 30, had appeared around them. Each person was holding shiny weapons like machetes and steel pipes. The situation was already very clear. The opposing group had come prepared. Those 20 or 30 individuals completely surrounded Gao Sheng and the other 9 truck drivers. A leader with yellow hair stepped into the beam of Gao Sheng's truck lights. He was dressed in ripped jeans, had dyed yellow hair, and was chewing on a cigarette. The yellow-haired guy looked young, but had a boastful expression on his face. You guys have been quietly using this road at night for over half a month now. The quality of the roads in our village was already poor and have been damaged by your trucks. He casually flicked the cigarette, but at Gao Sheng's feet, and said nonchalantly. Upon hearing the yellow-haired guy's words, Gao Sheng immediately understood the other party's intention. It was already quite obvious. This was about toll fees. Traveling on such small roads at night, one fears encountering situations like this. Gao Sheng's expression grew increasingly serious. Today it seemed he wouldn't get away without shedding some blood. Gao Sheng squinted his eyes and took a couple of slow steps forward, saying directly, "So how much do you want?" It was late at night, and the other side clearly outnumbered them, so Gao Sheng thought it better to minimize trouble. After all, he was already a boss, now no longer the reckless young man he once was. If it had been when he was younger, he definitely wouldn't have been so cowardly. However, Gao Sheng also understood the principle that being kind can lead to being bullied. Without waiting for the other party's answer, he quickly added, "As truck drivers, we also earn money with difficulty, so don't ask for an unreasonable amount, otherwise things could escalate, and it wouldn't be good for anyone." Gao Sheng reminded the other party. If they asked for less, he might just give it, but if it was too much, it could lead to a disastrous situation. At this moment, the yellow-haired leader suddenly grinned and raised 3 fingers. 3,000. Upon hearing this number, more than 20 people around burst into laughter. 3,000 was indeed a bit ridiculous. In the dead of night, each person would only get a little over 100, not even enough for their hardship. 30,000, the yellow-haired guy shouted loudly. Gao Sheng's expression remained cold, showing no significant change. 30,000 was the number he had anticipated. For this delivery with 10 trucks, he could earn over 100,000, so giving the other party 30,000 to appease them was something he could reluctantly accept. All right, then it's 30,000, Gao Sheng said. Upon hearing his words, the 20 or so individuals around laughed again. At this moment, the yellow-haired guy took a couple of steps forward, and the light from the truck illuminated his almost ferocious face, making him appear somewhat terrifying. "What I meant is 30,000 per truck." The yellow-haired guy shook the weapon in his hand and said arrogantly. Upon hearing this, Gao Sheng's expression completely darkened. 30,000 per truck meant 300,000 for 10 trucks. They really took him for an ATM. Gao Sheng's anger surged and his face turned slightly red with fury. He suddenly remembered how he used to be when he was young back then. He could take down 7 or 8 guys like the yellow-haired leader by himself. He glanced at the surrounding enemies. These guys were just a bunch of small-time thugs. Although they were numerous, they looked weak and feeble. While they only had 10 people, each was strong and sturdy. In a fight, it was hard to say who would win. If they saw a bit of blood, those small-time thugs would probably flee in fright. Gao Sheng couldn't help but tighten his grip on the baseball bat. At this moment, it seemed the yellow-haired leader also realized something and tightly gripped his weapon. A brawl, however, just then a flash of lightning suddenly appeared in the sky. The enormous lightning seemed to pierce through the entire sky. Immediately following, a thunderclap exploded in everyone's ears. Boom! Then large raindrops suddenly fell from the sky. Around them, the sound of raindrops hitting the crops echoed. The previously clear sky was suddenly covered with lightning flashing and thunder rumbling. The heavy rain poured down. The yellow-haired guy seemed startled by the thunder, but he reacted quickly, clutching his weapon and charging towards Gao Sheng. Though his body was not particularly strong, he had a fierce determination inside him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become the leader of this group of small-time thugs. However, just as the yellow-haired guy rushed towards Gao Sheng ready to claim the first blood, Gao Sheng stood frozen in place, as if stunned. The torrential rain impaired the yellow-haired guy's vision. He thought the opponent had been scared silly by his madness. But what he didn't see was that after the enormous lightning struck, Gao Sheng's body suddenly swelled up as if inflated like a balloon. Then it suddenly shrank back down. In just a few seconds, Gao Sheng's body underwent several strange cycles of swelling and shrinking. When the yellow-haired guy's weapon came before Gao Sheng, he suddenly jolted awake. Looking at the weapon that was slowly descending towards his shoulder like a snail, Gao Sheng suddenly had an absurd thought arise in his mind. "I think I can easily dodge that knife. No, I just need to lift my hand slightly to block that knife with the baseball bat in my hand, and I can even smash the opponent's skull in the process." In Jiang Yun's parents' home, Jiang Yun, who was lying on the bed playing games, suddenly caught sight of a massive flash of lightning through the bedroom window. Immediately, a rumbling thunder echoed in her ears. Jiang Yun hurriedly set down her phone and approached the window. She remembered that just a moment ago the sky was clear and sunny. How could it suddenly start thundering? Even stranger raindrops were already splattering against the window. The weather's abrupt change was faster than her own. Jiang Yun shrugged and prepared to lie back down to play on her phone again. However, at that moment her body suddenly froze, standing motionless by the bed. Then something even more terrifying happened. Jiang Yun felt a sudden swelling in her body, not the kind that comes from being full, but as if every part of her was being inflated like a balloon. Her brain, limbs, and chest felt as though they were about to explode. A surge of panic rose within Jiang Yun. What was happening? Am I going to die? This kind of death seems a bit too tragic. Just as strange thoughts flashed through Jiang Yun's mind, she suddenly felt that swollen sensation vanish. It came quickly and left just as swiftly. But before Jiang Yun could show any signs of joy, her body swelled. Thus, Jiang Yun's body expanded and contracted several times in succession. Finally, that swollen feeling completely disappeared. Though Jiang Yun felt she had experienced a lot, the entire process lasted no more than 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, her body changed several times. Of course, the swelling sensation did not mean her body suddenly became as large as a balloon. It was merely a very slight change. From the outside, it wasn't very noticeable. It was just that Jiang Yun felt it quite intensely. After the changes in her body subsided, Jiang Yun began to feel something strange. Her vision seemed a bit blurred. Since she had been playing games, she had kept her glasses on. She was somewhat nearsighted. With her glasses on, she could see clearly. But now, even with her glasses, things appeared hazy, as if she weren't wearing them at all. Confused, Jiang Yun reached out to take off her glasses. My! Jiang Yun was even more puzzled. After removing her glasses, she could see clearly. It was clearer than when she had been wearing her nearsighted glasses. What was going on? Had her nearsightedness somehow cured itself? Jiang Yun, a highly educated individual trusted in science. But what was happening? She hadn't undergone any surgery for her nearsightedness, and science couldn't explain how her vision improved. Jiang Yun looked at her hands, then at a painting hung on the bedroom wall. She wanted to see how much her eyesight had improved. However, just as she was about to focus on the painting, she suddenly felt as if something flew out of her brain. Moreover, she realized that not only could she see the outside world with her eyes, but there seemed to be another pair of eyes allowing her to feel this world. It was a very marvelous sensation. Jiang Yun felt that those other invisible eyes saw even clearer and had a wider range akin to a camera's wide-angle lens, allowing her to see her own body and the entirety of her bedroom. No, not just the entire bedroom. Jiang Yun cautiously controlled those eyes to look around, and to her shock, she discovered that they could penetrate walls and see into the neighboring room. Jiang Yun was completely stunned. What on earth was wrong with her body? At that moment, Jiang Yun's eyes spotted her phone screen, where 2 lines of bold red announcements suddenly appeared on the interface of the game, Piao Miao Xian 2. The 2 announcements appeared simultaneously at the center of the game interface, extremely eye-catching. Jiang Yun's eyes, along with those suddenly appeared bizarre eyes, simultaneously focused on the 2 strange game announcements. Then Jiang Yun saw the 2 game announcements that Lin Yu and Xiao Guang had spotted in the game forum. Both the official game forum and within the game, these 2 announcements appeared, although the in-game announcements would come 10. In his past life, Lin Yu had not played the game that night, so he was unaware that announcements had also appeared in the game. He only knew they would be on the forum. That was why he and Xiao Guang specifically checked the game announcements on the forum. At that moment, Jiang Yun also saw the content of the 2 game announcements. Game Announcement 1: Dear players of Piao Miao Xian 2, the game will begin rewarding cultivation feedback to all players starting from midnight on February 14, 2123, for a duration of 1 week. Game Announcement 2. After reading these 2 announcements, Jiang Yun was stunned. If it were at a different time seeing these 2 announcements, she would definitely think it was a prank, just like Xiao Guang. But now, upon seeing these 2 announcements, she instantly connected it to the strange condition of her body. Could her improved eyesight be because she received feedback from the game's cultivation and became a cultivator? Cultivators naturally cannot be nearsighted. And what about the sudden appearance of the other pair of eyes? Could it be her divine sense? As a seasoned player of Piao Miao Xian 2, Jiang Yun certainly knew what divine sense was. However, this was just too fantastical. Jiang Yun could only describe this situation as surreal. Everything was too unscientific. At that moment, Jiang Yun suddenly thought of a question. Her father had also been playing this game. Thinking of this, Jiang Yun hurriedly set down her phone and rushed out the door. Her father was getting older. Could he be in some trouble? Jiang Yun was very worried. She reached out, just placing her hand on the bedroom door, when it suddenly shattered into pieces. Jiang Yun stared at her hand in shock, her face displaying disbelief. Was this the power of a cultivator? She hadn't even used any force, and the wooden door had shattered. However, at that moment, Jiang Yun could no longer afford to investigate her own body. She hurriedly went to her father's room, gently pushing the door open. In the dark bedroom, Jiang Yun's father seemed to sense an unexpected guest had arrived, and his military instincts caused him to sit up immediately and turn on the light. But upon seeing his daughter burst in, Jiang Yun's father was momentarily at a loss for words. Why are you running around at this hour instead of sleeping? He thought his daughter had gone into the wrong room. But soon he noticed that his daughter's expression seemed a bit off. She looked a bit shocked and a bit delighted. "Dad, your hair." "What about my hair?" "Your hair is black again," Jiang Yun exclaimed in surprise. Her father, nearly 60 years old, had long since gone gray. But now his hair had completely turned black. Moreover, not only that, Jiang Yun noticed that the wrinkles on her father's face seemed to have diminished. Hearing Jiang Yun's words, her father appeared slightly puzzled and reached out to touch his hair. But when he reached out, he was also taken aback. His hand felt much more agile. The loose skin on the back of his hand seemed to have tightened a bit. At that moment, the conversation between Jiang Yun and her father finally woke her mother, who had been sleeping nearby. Jiang Yun's mother opened her eyes, glanced at her daughter, then at her husband, and a look of shock suddenly appeared in her sleepy eyes. She widened her eyes and looked at her husband and said, "Lao Jiang, am I seeing things? How did you be?" However, Jiang Yun's father did not feel that swelling sensation. After all, he had played the game for too short a time, and his cultivation level in the game was only at the early stage of heart movement. Originally, Jiang Yun had only guided her father to the mid-stage of qi refinement. Later, Jiang Yun's father had played alone for several hours for work and even spent 6 yuan to increase his VIP level to level 1. It was precisely because he recharged 6 yuan that he also received the cultivation feedback from the game. After all, a VIP level of 0 would not receive any feedback. But merely a 10% cultivation feedback at the early stage of heart movement had already made Jiang Yun's father appear several years younger. Neither Jiang Yun nor her father had the mood to continue sleeping. The two went to the living room to share their feelings. Meanwhile, Jiang Yun's father hurriedly called his subordinates. In his investigation team, there were about 20 young men, and he had ordered them all to play Piao Miao Xian 2. They were all young men, and if they played well, their cultivation levels would surely be higher than his. Everyone assemble at the unit immediately. Jiang Yun's father commanded in the VX group. This night was destined to be anything but peaceful. Throughout the Dragon Kingdom, powerful cultivators emerged in many places. Although the feedback of cultivation levels would last for a week, the first day would likely reflect about half of all players' cultivation levels. For example, if a player's cultivation is at the initial stage of leaving the body and their VIP level is 7, then, by the end of the feedback, their cultivation might reach the nascent soul stage. The cultivation feedback on the first night alone was sufficient for that player to reach the golden core stage. The subsequent week would gradually reflect all cultivation levels. The mobile game Piao Miao Xian 2 has been available for 2 years, and it can be downloaded from various channels, so there are many players. Moreover, since it is a pay-to-win game, without spending money one can hardly progress. Almost all players would purchase a monthly card or something similar with at least a 6 yuan initial charge. Therefore, that night, nearly 1 million players within the Dragon Kingdom gained the powers of cultivators. Some were tearing down their own houses in their sleep. Some accidentally destroyed assembly line machines while working the night shift. And Gao Sheng smashed the head of a yellow-haired thug with his baseball bat. Gao Sheng's cultivation in the game was at the late stage of leaving the body. Moreover, his VIP level had also reached 7. That night, he attained the cultivation of the nascent soul stage. The blood of the yellow-haired thug mixed with something white splattered onto Gao Sheng's face, completely igniting the fury within him. He wielded his baseball bat, his body turning into a fleeting shadow as he charged into the crowd. With terrifying strength and powerful divine sense, he moved like a wolf among sheep. The sounds of wails and breaking bones echoed through the night. In less than half a minute, Gao Sheng eliminated all his enemies. Moreover, it was a complete elimination. When Gao Sheng stood before his team members covered in blood after killing all the thugs, those employees were terrified. At that moment, Gao Sheng looked like a demon from hell. The respect in their eyes was replaced by fear and terror. One driver was so scared he turned and ran. His escape prompted the other drivers to also succumb to their terror and flee into the distance. In such a situation, they could no longer care about their trucks. They feared that the demon-like Gao Sheng might kill them. Gao Sheng did not chase after them. He stood dazedly in place as if at a loss. Having just gained his cultivation and coincidentally encountering those thugs, he had acted without hesitation. Only now did he finally calm down. His heart was filled with various emotions: fear, worry, shock, and a tinge of delight. Gao Sheng did not know where his power came from, but he understood that he was no longer the same. After standing still for a while, he turned to look at the surrounding corpses. Around him, blood had completely dyed the ground red, and there were no survivors. The torrential rain caused the blood on the ground to gather into a small stream. Suddenly, Gao Sheng realized he had caused a huge disaster. Although he possessed great power, this was the Dragon Kingdom, and intentional murder was a serious crime. Gao Sheng felt his heart race violently. He was somewhat at a loss. He was not a criminal mastermind, and with so many witnesses, he knew he could not clear himself of suspicion. Having just recovered from a state of rage, he never thought about killing to silence witnesses. At this moment, the only thoughts in his mind were to hide or to flee far away. Gao Sheng took one last deep look at his tin trucks before running into the darkness. Perhaps he would never be able to be the team leader again. Perhaps the calm and carefree days would never return. However, after taking just 2 steps, he felt something. It was as if his footsteps were so light that with just a bit more force he could take off. A glint of sharpness flashed in Gao Sheng's eyes as he crouched slightly and then exerted force with his legs. To his astonishment, his body actually flew into the air. In the pouring rain, Gao Sheng struggled to control his wobbling body as he soared to his villa. As time passed, his flying speed increased. Inside the villa's safe was his savings from all these years. He now had only one thought: to get his money and then hide. Although he had gained immense power, Gao Sheng still thought like an ordinary person without the corresponding intellect and ambition that came with his cultivation. Aside from the events occurring in the Dragon Kingdom, that night every country in Blue Star had a game that granted its players immense power. In the Eagle Nation, a vampire game provided feedback on cultivation levels. Hundreds of thousands of players in the dark of night caught the scent of blood. In one night, the Eagle Nation saw tens of thousands of withered corpses. Those corpses seemed to have all their blood drained. The entire nation was thrown into chaos. In the country of Asan, countless Buddhist lights appeared on its land with millions of players clasping their hands together, chanting Amit Ba. That night, countless Asan religious statues and temples were destroyed. The brilliance of the Buddha seemed to shine once again on the land of Asan. In the United States, a game adapted from a comic granted players immense strength. That night, giant green figures appeared on the streets of various cities. They ran wildly down the streets, able to crush a car with a single stomp. Countless green giants fought among themselves like the end of the world. There were also figures wrapped in thunder casually releasing terrifying lightning. People clad in golden red steel armor flew through the sky. However, their armor was from the earliest generation. It seemed that the more advanced armors had not yet been released. The entire world was in turmoil. Leaders of various countries held emergency meetings overnight and even deployed the military seeking ways to resolve these disturbances. But the military was powerless against these supernatural abilities. Those terrifying green giants could withstand artillery fire, and those lightning strikes could easily kill soldiers in tank armor. The vampires were even more elusive in the night, their shadows barely visible. In the Dragon Kingdom, Jiang Yun's father took his daughter to work when he received a mysterious phone call. After the call, Jiang Yun's father's expression grew more serious. Dad, what exactly happened? Did that game really grant cultivation levels? Jiang Yun still found it hard to believe. Jiang Yun's father nodded slightly and said, not only in our Dragon Kingdom, but other countries have also experienced the same situation, and many countries are in chaos. Every country in the world has games that grant cultivation levels. Is Blue Star about to leap from a technological civilization to a cultivation civilization? Could it be that all countries in Blue Star have cultivators? Jiang Yun asked again. However, Jiang Yun's father shook his head and said what appeared in other countries were not cultivators, but various professions. I don't know the specifics, but I know that this world is about to change. At this moment, Jiang Yun's father suddenly looked at Jiang Yun, his face serious, and asked Yuner, tell me, what rank can you achieve in that game? Having played Piao Miao Xian 2 and investigated the game for some time, Jiang Yun's father understood the terrors of cultivators, which is why he asked his daughter this question. Only cultivators could deal with cultivators. Seeing his father so serious, Jiang Yun naturally would not hide. She thought for a moment and said, in the past few days I've spent a lot on microtransactions, and my cultivation level has improved significantly. I can rank over 90 on the cultivation leaderboard, but I'm not sure how much I can rank in actual combat. There are many factors in the game that can affect combat power, and it isn't determined solely by cultivation level. Jiang Yun, being an experienced player, understood the game thoroughly. In the game, cultivation is just the foundation, though many factors truly affect combat power, such as equipment, spirit beasts, and techniques. At this point, Jiang Yun suddenly paused. She thought of someone. That guy had been spending like crazy in the past few days. Not only his cultivation, but everything else that could influence strength, he ranked first in the entire game. A sudden thought arose in Jiang Yun's mind. If the game's cultivation levels were fully reflected to the players, wouldn't that guy become invincible? A few minutes ago in the study of Lin Ye's villa, Xiaoguang looked bewildered at his cousin Lin Yu, completely unable to comprehend what was wrong with him. He actually believed in the absurd idea of game feedback on cultivation, watching the time, and waiting for the game's cultivation response. How could his cousin's intelligence suddenly go offline? Brother, are you feeling sick? Xiaoguang leaned closer to Lin Yu, reaching out as if to check his forehead. Get lost, Lin Yu said curtly, sending Xiaoguang away. Without caring whether Xiaoguang believed him or not, Lin Yu directly ordered, when the cultivation feedback arrives, do not move around or touch anything in the room, understood? Hearing Lin Ye's words, Xiaoguang remained somewhat bewildered. However, seeing his cousin's serious expression, he couldn't help but nod. After all, he had always been Lin Ye's shadow since childhood. When his cousin was serious, he dared not disobey. Even if he went home to complain, his parents would side with Lin Yu. Xiaoguang was quite experienced. At this moment, Lin Yu checked the time on his phone again, and then a faint smile appeared on his lips. He murmured to himself, 10 seconds left. 9 seconds. 8 seconds. 7 seconds. Xiao Guang couldn't help but look at the time counting down in his heart. Suddenly a flicker of anticipation arose in his heart. It seemed that his cousin's serious demeanor made him believe a little in that announcement. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. Boom. A tremendous thunder suddenly resounded in the sky, causing Xiao Guang to stagger. He hurriedly looked out the window. A massive lightning bolt seemed to span the entire sky. However, Lin Yu appeared to have anticipated this, showing no reaction, his smile only growing wider. At that moment, Xiao Guang suddenly felt his body swell up. His already somewhat plump figure became even rounder, his face becoming more chubby. Yet the expression on Xiao Guang's face was one of extreme terror. Anyone encountering such a situation would surely be terrified. That feeling of swelling was as if his body was about to explode. However, Lin Yu was different. He remained calmly seated, a smile on his face, as if he were completely unconcerned about the abnormal situation. This was already Lin Yu's second experience with such a phenomenon. He felt no fear, only a sense of relaxation. After being reborn, waiting for 7 days, and exhausting all his assets, Lin Yu was all in. If in this life the game did not provide cultivation feedback like in the last life, all of Lin Yu's efforts would have been in vain. Fortunately, the mobile game Piaomiao did not disappoint him. The cultivation feedback arrived as promised. Lin Yu felt completely relieved. Xiao Guang's bodily abnormality lasted for 2 seconds before coming to an end. At that moment, he hurriedly looked over at his cousin Lin Yu. However, at this time Lin Yu still sat motionless in his chair, his body continuing to swell and contract repeatedly. Lin Yu's cultivation was vastly superior to Xiao Guang's. Although it appeared that there were only 3 levels separating their ranks, the cultivation required increased exponentially in the later stages. If compared by the cultivation values they possessed, Lin Yu's cultivation was definitely hundreds of times that of Xiao Guang. The time required for the first cultivation feedback would also correspondingly be much longer. Lin Yu's bodily abnormality lasted for a full half-minute before finally ending. At that moment, Lin Yu slowly stood up, 2 beams of light flashing in his eyes. He gently clenched his fist, and a series of cracking sounds erupted. Lin Yu silently sensed it, his heart growing increasingly excited. Just from the first feedback, he had surpassed the cultivation level he had reached at his peak in his previous life. He was now at the early stage of the Dongxi realm. Lin Yu himself did not expect that the first feedback would allow him to reach the Dongxi realm. But after a moment of thought, he understood. In this life, his VIP level had been raised to level 12, and naturally the cultivation feedback would be 120%. Thus, just from the first cultivation feedback, he had reached the Dongxi realm. At that moment, Xiao Guang could no longer contain his curiosity and asked, "Brother, does this mean we've become cultivators?" While Lin Yu was still receiving the game's cultivation feedback, Xiao Guang had already experimented. He lightly pressed a finger against the table, and a small hole appeared on the surface of Lin Yu's study desk. Lin Yu glanced at Xiao Guang's astonished face, then looked down at the small hole the size of a fingertip on his desk, and said with a gloomy expression, "This desk cost me $1 million." Xiao Guang's face changed dramatically. He hurriedly covered the small hole with his hand, a forced smile on his face as he said, "Brother, I didn't mean to. I can't afford to pay $1 million." Lin Yu looked at Xiao Guang's palm, which was already embedded in the desk, and sighed. "I already told you not to move. Now gently pull your hand back and come with me to the gym." Hearing his cousin's words, Xiao Guang finally realized that he had inadvertently pressed his palm into the desktop. He reluctantly withdrew his hand. His face was awkward. After giving Xiao Guang a glare, Lin Yu walked outside. There was a gym in Lin Yu's villa. The gym was quite spacious, just right for him to adapt to his current body. Xiao Guang followed his cousin Lin Yu. Lin Yu was not in a hurry to test his abilities. As a reborn individual, he was quite clear about the powers of cultivators in this life. He only had a higher cultivation rank, so a little adaptation would suffice. Now Lin Yu needed to help Xiao Guang adapt to his newfound abilities. If he couldn't control his body, their house would surely suffer. Standing in the center of the gym, Lin Yu faced Xiao Guang and slowly began, "Cultivators have a body vastly different from ordinary people. What you need to do now is adapt to your current body, and I will teach you how." Xiao Guang hurriedly nodded. At this point, he no longer wanted to ask any confusing questions. Clearly, becoming a cultivator was already a confirmed deal. Rather than digging into the reasons behind it, he would prefer to dream about the future. First, you need to get used to using your divine sense to observe your surroundings. Close your eyes for now. Even though it was Lin Yu's first time teaching someone else, he appeared quite competent due to his rich experience. Half an hour later, Lin Yu had basically finished teaching what he needed to. Looking at Xiao Guang, who was diligently trying to control his power, Lin Yu said, "Try a few more times on your own. If you have any questions, just ask me." After arranging things for Xiao Guang, Lin Yu finally began to study his current strength. Since the initial feedback from the game had only provided cultivation feedback, it was relatively simple to research. Lin Yu slowly sat cross-legged, and his immense divine sense instantly manifested in the practice room. He felt that his divine sense was quite powerful. Compared to his previous life, it was at least dozens of times stronger. Lin Yu excitedly controlled his divine sense, flying out of the practice room and ascending into the air. Although it was pouring rain outside, it had no effect on Lin Yu's divine sense whatsoever. His immense divine sense gradually hovered over Zhonghai City. The entire Zhonghai City was clearly displayed in Lin Yu's mind. Lin Yu could see every drop of rain, could see all the players in Zhonghai City who had received cultivation feedback, yet due to the vast difference in strength, they could not sense his gaze. Many players in Zhonghai City had gained cultivation. Some were extraordinarily excited, some were wrecking their homes, and it seemed there was even one fellow panicking and flying toward him. That was a nascent soul player. It appeared he had not yet learned to control his body, flying in a crooked manner. Lin Yu's immense divine sense detected a trace of bloodlust from him. Following that, Lin Yu's divine sense traced the direction from which the player had come, spotting corpses scattered between Zhonghai City and Lin City. This guy seemed to have killed someone. However, Lin Yu did not bother with it. Such incidents of newly empowered individuals losing control and killing others would occur frequently tonight. In the future, this world would become even more chaotic. What Lin Yu wanted was not to act as the world's policeman. His goals were only two. One was to protect his family. The other was to ensure that he would not repeat past mistakes, refusing to allow any future monsters or bosses that crossed over into the real world to destroy his world. Lin Yu tested the range of his divine sense before retracting it. The strength of the divine sense in the Dongshu realm exceeded Lin Yu's expectations. Lin Yu's divine sense could nearly cover the entire Dragon Kingdom. And this was just in the Dongshu realm. Lin Yu couldn't help but wonder how powerful his divine sense would be once his cultivation fully returned. What Lin Yu could be certain of was that once his cultivation fully returned, no demon or monster boss would be able to escape his divine sense. Even if they hid underground, he could easily find them. Thinking of this, Lin Yu felt increasingly excited. In his previous life, those demon and monster bosses had caused him much despair. Now, it was their turn to despair. After retracting his divine sense, Lin Yu began to explore other abilities. Cultivators possess many abilities. However, at present the game had only reflected his cultivation level, though various treasures and spirit stones had not yet been returned, and even the cultivation techniques had not been reflected, yet leaving many abilities of the cultivator unusable. Currently, Lin Yu only possessed a few abilities. One was longevity. The higher a cultivator's rank, the longer their lifespan. As for just how long, Lin Yu was uncertain. This was because he had died somewhat early in his last life. Yet Lin Yu could be certain that his lifespan was certainly at least 10,000 years, if not longer. The second ability was divine sense, which Lin Yu had already tested. The third was that a cultivator's body was significantly stronger than that of an ordinary person. The higher the cultivation, the stronger the body. In his previous life, Lin Yu was already unafraid of any firearms. In this life, he would certainly be even less afraid. Lastly, once a cultivator's cultivation reached the nascent soul stage, they could fly. Lin Yu, being in the Dongshu realm, was no exception. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Lin Yu gently closed his eyes again, and soon his body began to slowly float. However, just as Lin Yu's body was floating up, Xiao Guang suddenly exclaimed, "Holy crap, bro, how can you fly?" Xiao Guang exclaimed. But then he seemed to think of something. It was like when players reached the nascent soul stage in the game, they could fly. Could it be that he could also fly now? Earlier, Xiao Guang had already used his divine sense to look inward and discovered his own nascent soul. This meant that he was a cultivator at the nascent soul stage. Then he could definitely fly. Xiao Guang's eyes lit up as he prepared to try flying. But at that moment, his cousin Lin Yu suddenly appeared right in front of him in the blink of an eye, moving at incredible speed. Xiao Guang was startled. "Bro, how are you so fast?" At that moment, Xiao Guang was like a curious little child, intrigued by everything he saw. But Lin Yu did not explain why he was so fast. Instead, he said, "You can fly too, but don't fly inside my house, go outside." Lin Yu certainly didn't want Xiao Guang to crash through the roof of his villa. The cave dwellings in the game would take a long time to reflect in the real world, so Lin Yu needed to stay in this villa for a long time. Hearing his cousin Lin Yu's words, Xiao Guang hurriedly nodded and ran outside. It was still pouring rain outside, but Xiao Guang didn't mind at all. He didn't even grab an umbrella and just ran out. Standing in the villa's yard, Xiao Guang wiped the rain off his face, excitedly extended one hand, clenched his fist, and pointed at the sky. With the other hand, also clenched into a fist, his little arm rested at his waist. Then with his legs together and slightly bent, he shouted, "Fly." Xiao Guang shouted loudly. Meanwhile, in the first floor of the villa, Aunt Wang had already been startled awake. Suddenly hearing someone shouting in the yard, she hurriedly pulled back the curtains to look outside. "It's really pouring. Did the weather forecast get it wrong?" Aunt Wang initially froze for a moment, surprised as she spoke to herself. Then she saw the figure standing in the yard. Very fair, slightly plump. Who else could it be but Lin Yu's cousin? However, what was he trying to do with that stance? Aunt Wang found it a bit hard to understand. In such heavy rain, he didn't even bother to grab an umbrella. Was he not afraid of catching a cold? Aunt Wang hurriedly grabbed an umbrella, wanting to take it out to Xiaoguang. But when she reached the door and opened it, she suddenly froze in place. At that moment in the yard, Xiaoguang's feet actually began to slowly lift off the ground, and he started to fly. Although his body was somewhat wobbly and it was hard to maintain that strange stance, he was indeed flying. The flying ability of a nascent soul cultivator is something inherently possessed, requiring no learning. All it needs is practice to make it smoother. Aunt Wang stood at the door, her eyes wide and round, exclaiming, "My goodness, a superhero." At that moment, while Xiaoguang was trying to fly in the rain, Lin Yu had returned to his study. After nearly half an hour of experimentation, Lin Yu had basically understood his current strength. In this world, one could say that Lin Yu was nearly invincible. This was still in the early stage of the cultivation feedback. In a week, once all cultivation was returned to the players, Lin Yu would become even stronger. Everything was proceeding according to Lin Yu's plan, without any deviations. Sitting at his desk, Lin Yu picked up his phone and opened the mobile game Piamiao Xintu. Piamiao Xintu could only be played for 7 more days. After the cultivation feedback ended, the game would permanently shut down. This meant that there were only these last 7 days to improve his strength in the game. However, in these 7 days, only a small amount could be improved. After all, the game's recharge channels had already been closed. Without spending money, it was extremely difficult to enhance one's cultivation. Moreover, the number of players whose cultivation could be reflected had already been determined. Even if someone registered a new account to join the game, now they couldn't gain any feedback due to the inability to raise their VIP level. The feedback ratio for VIP 0 players was also 0. But Lin Yu was different. He still had many areas he could improve. Upon entering the game, Lin Yu first opened the Valentine's Day event interface. At this time, the rewards for the Valentine's Day Heartthrob ranking were already available for collection. Below that castle icon, there was a button Collect. Lin Yu decisively clicked the Collect button. Immediately, he received a game notification. Dear VIP 12 player riding the wind, congratulations on ranking first with your DAO partner in the Valentine's Day event, earning the reward, a heavenly grade 9 cave dwelling. Seeing this game notification, Lin Yu instantly felt excited. A heavenly grade 9 cave dwelling. He didn't expect that the cave dwelling reward for this Valentine's Day would actually be the top level heavenly grade 9. Lin Yu hurriedly opened the cave dwelling interface. At that moment, the interface of Lin Yu's cave dwelling in the game was completely renewed with spiritual energy swirling everywhere, resembling an immortal realm. In his previous life, Lin Yu's cave dwelling was only a mystic grade 3, and due to Lin Yu's low VIP level, once it was reflected in the real world, his cave dwelling had become a yellow grade 9. The yellow grade was already the lowest level among the 4 cave dwelling grades: Heaven, Earth, Mystic, and Yellow. However, despite its low grade, Lin Yu was still very pleased when the cave dwelling reflected in the real world. Even a yellow grade 9 cave dwelling was far superior to the villa Lin Yu currently resided in. And now Lin Yu unexpectedly possessed a heavenly grade 9 cave dwelling, and given that his VIP level was 12, what would the cave dwelling's grade be once it reflected in the real world? Even Lin Yu the Reborn, one couldn't guess what his cave dwelling would be like. After all, in his previous life, the cave dwelling that ranked first on the leaderboard was only a ground grade 9. It was a whole grade lower than his current cave dwelling. At this moment, Lin Yu was not idle either. He opened the backpack interface and began to use the high-level cave dwelling expansion tickets he had bought earlier. System notification: would you like to use 8 high-level cave dwelling expansion tickets simultaneously to increase the scale of your cave dwelling? Confirm. 800,000 high-level cave expansion tokens equate to 800,000 square meters. Coupled with the space of the Tier 9 cave itself, Lin Yu's cave will undoubtedly exceed 1 million square meters. This number may not be very intuitive. However, a comparison reveals its vastness. A football field covers over 7,000 square meters, which means that the interior area of Lin Yu's cave is equivalent to more than 100 football fields. Lin Yu couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. A cave the size of over 100 football fields could easily accommodate a bedroom the size of 1 football field. Having a bed the size of a football field in the bedroom would be perfectly fine. Now that's what I call a spacious bedroom. Lin Yu adored soft, large beds. Since his rebirth, Lin Yu had been playing games in bed, showcasing his affection for large beds. At this thought, a figure suddenly appeared in his mind. The Water Cloud Fairy. She was the only DAO partner he had in the game, yet he was unaware of her true identity in the real world. In his previous life, Lin Yu did not specifically seek out the Water Cloud Fairy. He had no idea what had happened to her afterward. Of course, the reason Lin Yu didn't look for her was quite simple. Initially, Lin Yu was preoccupied with studying how to enhance his cultivation and didn't think about that matter. Later, when the demons and bosses from the game began to manifest in the real world, it became exceedingly difficult for Lin Yu to ensure his own safety, let alone seek out the Water Cloud Fairy. But this time was different. Lin Yu not only possessed the ability to protect himself, but his strength could now reach an invincible status. Perhaps in this life, he would have the chance to meet the water cloud fairy. Of course, if she insisted on occupying his spacious bedroom, he would have no way to refuse. Lin Yu chuckled to himself, merely joking. In the game's affection leaderboard, they were tied for first place, indicating that the water cloud fairy also possessed a tier 9 cave. Although her cave was undoubtedly smaller than his, having a spacious bedroom would not be an issue. Lin Yu shook his head, slightly dismissing all the chaotic thoughts in his mind. In this life, Lin Yu's mood was entirely different from his past. After all, with his invincible strength, he felt much more relaxed. At this moment, Lin Yu began to enhance the defensive formation outside his cave. All the materials had long been prepared, he merely needed to establish the formation. While Lin Yu was preoccupied with constructing the external formation, Xiao Guang was flitting about chaotically. In the capital city, in a conference room of Jiang Yun's father's workplace, Jiang Yun's father announced a very important directive. This order came from higher authorities. Jiang Yun's father had not anticipated that matters would escalate to such a degree. At this time, sitting in the conference room were not only Jiang Yun's father's subordinates, but also Jiang Yun herself. Jiang Yun was still a bit bewildered. She thought she was merely accompanying her father, but unexpectedly, after her father learned of her strength in the game, he insisted on having her join his organization. He unceremoniously brought her directly into the conference room. Jiang Yun felt somewhat speechless. However, since he was her father, she found it hard to refuse. At the front of the conference table, Jiang Yun's father slowly spoke. You should have heard some news about the events that occurred at midnight tonight. However, the situation is far more serious than you can imagine. It has now been confirmed that the mobile game called Misty Immortal Path has indeed transmitted a portion of cultivation to the players, and some of these players have acquired formidable powers. According to police reports, the number of calls made tonight has exceeded 10 times the usual amount. Bloodshed and injury incidents are occurring all over the country. Although there is no exact count of the players of Misty Immortal Path, the estimated numbers are certainly not small. The higher authorities have issued an order to cancel our original organization and establish a new one, named the Immortal Cultivator Management Office, abbreviated as the Management Office, with me serving as the first director. Now let's tally your VIP levels and cultivation levels in the game. The young men in the conference room had all played Misty Immortal Path, and most had spent money on it. By assessing our cultivation levels, we can more conveniently arrange tasks. At this moment, the young man sitting at the front stood up first, saying, Report Director, my VIP level in the game is level 1, OI, and my cultivation is Late Foundation Establishment. Report Director, my VIP level in the game is level 1, OI, and my cultivation is Early Foundation Establishment. Report Director, I haven't spent money, my VIP level is level 0, and my cultivation is Late Chi Refining. Report Director, my VIP level in the game is level 5, and my cultivation is Late Golden Core. Hearing this, the others were slightly taken aback. This guy is truly fortunate. The situation is already clear. The higher one's cultivation and VIP level in the game, the greater the feedback received. Upon hearing this young man's report, Jiang Yun's father couldn't help but nod slightly. The reports continued. A total of 20 people were present, with 3 not having spent money, 2 achieving VIP level 5, and both at the Golden Core stage. The others had VIP levels below 5, and their cultivation was also below the Golden Core stage. After the reports concluded, Jiang Yun's father suddenly turned to Jiang Yun, who was sitting nearby, and slowly said, Please introduce yourself to everyone, and then report your VIP level and cultivation in the game. In this scenario, with many people present, all of whom were her father's subordinates, Jiang Yun did not contradict her father's words. Instead, she confidently reported, Report Director, my name is Jiang Yun. My VIP level in the game is level 8, and my cultivation is Late Out of Body. Upon hearing Jiang Yun's report, all the young men present were taken aback. VIP level 8. Cultivation at the Out of Body stage. They had all played Misty Immortal Path and knew how difficult it was to increase cultivation as one advanced. The Golden Core stage is a significant hurdle. Players who do not spend money or spend very little usually get stuck at around the Golden Core stage, unless they have played for an exceptionally long time. Even then, they can't compare to those who spent money. Unexpectedly, this girl was actually at VIP level 8 and had an absurdly high cultivation. At VIP level 8, the feedback ratio for cultivation is also high. After all the cultivation feedback concluded, her cultivation was estimated to be at least early out of body. The 20 young men looked at Jiang Yun with envy. Jiang Yun smiled graciously and then sat back down. Her VIP level had only recently been raised. At this moment, she couldn't help but think of that name again. If it weren't for that guy constantly spending on Valentine's Day gifts, and if she had not followed suit, her VIP level would probably still be level 7. Now it seemed that she should be grateful to him. At this time, Jiang Yun's father finally announced a new directive. Starting now, Jiang Yun officially joins our management office as a special consultant. Although she is my daughter, I will not avoid employing talent. At this critical moment, having a powerful immortal cultivator join us will greatly benefit our work in the management office. Upon hearing Jiang Yun's father's words, a warm round of applause erupted. Jiang Yun had no choice but to rise again and bow slightly to everyone. In truth, Jiang Yun's father had selfish motives and was considering his daughter's feelings. If it had been someone else, he likely would have directly brought them in as the deputy director. However, being the deputy director would bind her to the management office completely. The position of special consultant seemed more like an external role with less obligation. If Jiang Yun wished to leave in the future, it would be much easier. Thus, the foundational team of the management office was established. Our management office's strength is still too weak. To cope with the upcoming crisis, we must continue to expand our capabilities. From now on, everyone must think of every possible way to contact any players of Misty Immortal Path you know and invite them to join the management office. Of course, ensure the character and background of the invitees are sound. Do you understand? Understood. Everyone shouted in unison. Jiang Yun did not shout. Upon hearing her father's words, she again thought of that name. Master Qingfeng. If he joins the management office, wouldn't that significantly boost its strength? After Jiang Yun's father gave the order, everyone began to get busy. They took out their phones and started contacting. At the same time, Jiang Yun's father separately approached those subordinates who had not invested money and assigned them individual tasks. These 3 subordinates who had not invested money could not report their cultivation levels, making it seem that they would be unable to participate in external duties in the future. However, internal duties suited them well. After all, they had been working here for a long time and were quite familiar with the mobile game Piao Miao Xian 2. The tasks assigned by Jiang Yun's father were also very simple. They were instructed to post recruitment ads on various platforms. The strength of the Cultivation Management Office must be enhanced as quickly as possible to handle the complex situations that may arise later. Under normal circumstances, units directly affiliated with the government would not recruit so openly, but given the special circumstances, they had to be treated specially. Soon, recruitment information from the Cultivation Management Office appeared on various job platforms, even on the official forum for the mobile game Piao Miao Xian 2. When the recruitment post appeared on the official forum for Piao Miao Xian 2, it immediately sparked enthusiastic discussions among players. Is this recruitment information real or fake? Cultivation Management Office. It looks real. The official response is quite fast, establishing an organization to manage cultivators right after feedback on cultivation levels. Truly worthy of our great long nation. This recruitment information doesn't mention any benefits. I wonder if there are 5 insurances and 1. What the heck, the person upstairs must be out of their mind. This type of unit is a guaranteed job, not to mention 5 insurances and 1 fund. It's definitely among the best units in the entire Long Nation. Yes, why question the benefits of such a unit? Just apply without thinking. I'm off. I need to make a call to inquire. Once I figure out how to fly, I'll sign up. The person upstairs is awesome. They can fly. They must be a big shot above the nascent soul stage. So envious. Envy 1. Soon after the recruitment information was sent out, the phone lines of the Cultivation Management Office were flooded. The people of Long Nation are different from those of other countries. The vast majority still have faith in their nation. Although the world is gradually becoming chaotic, people believe that as long as the country takes action, the chaos will surely be quelled. At this time, Jiang Yun's father also came to her side. He gave his daughter an apologetic glance and said, "My Cultivation Management Office was just established and is in desperate need of people, so I had to drag you into it. I hope you won't hold it against me." Jiang Yun smiled casually and replied, "It's fine. After all, you are my father. Besides, I really don't have much to do lately and am quite free, so helping you is the least I can do." Jiang Yun's words brought a soft smile to her father's face. His daughter had indeed grown up. She was completely different from the rebellious girl she used to be. Jiang Yun's thoughts had changed significantly, especially tonight. Seeing her father at such an age still working hard for the country made her quite worried for him. Fortunately, her father had received some feedback on his cultivation levels. Though not much, it had made his body significantly stronger than before. At this moment, Jiang Yun's father spoke again. "Yun'er, do you know any players who are ranked higher in the game? Why don't you try to bring over a few strong ones?" Jiang Yun's father was primarily concerned about his work, or rather the establishment of the Cultivation Management Office. Only by making the Cultivation Management Office strong could they ensure that those with ill intent among the cultivators do not commit outrageous acts, thus guaranteeing the safety of the people of Long Nation. Upon hearing her father's words, Jiang Yun seemed to ponder for a moment and then nodded slightly. "I do know a few, but not many. I'll give it a try," Jiang Yun said weakly. She didn't communicate much with other players in the game. She preferred to play alone. The player she had private chatted with the most was probably her in-game partner, Chengfeng Jinren. However, their conversations were mostly about the game. If one were to say how good their relationship was, it wasn't that great. After all, they were merely cultivation partners in the game and had never cultivated together in reality. They hadn't even met in person. Jiang Yun's father gently patted his daughter's shoulder before turning to leave. He certainly would never have imagined that the person his daughter wanted to contact was actually her in-game cultivation partner. Jiang Yun naturally hadn't mentioned to her father that she was married in the game, as such matters would be too shocking for an older man like him. Jiang Yun took out her phone and opened the mobile game, Piao Miao Xian 2. She opened the friends interface and found the name of Chung Feng Zhenren. In the friends list, Chung Feng Zhenren was listed first as arranged automatically by the game. After all, logically two partners would have more contact than regular friends. However, what surprised Jiang Yun was that Chung Feng Zhenren was actually online. At this time, there weren't many players online. Most players had just received their cultivation feedback and were studying the changes in their bodies. Given the strength of Chung Feng Zhenren after the first feedback, his cultivation level must have become quite strong. The fact that he was not studying his abilities but instead playing the game made Jiang Yun slightly surprised. At this moment, seeing Chung Feng Zhenren online, Jiang Yun felt somewhat hesitant. How should I approach him? She wondered inwardly. In Longhai City, Lin Yu spent half an hour finally placing all the materials into the large formation. With a brilliant flash of light, a massive formation enveloped Lin Yu's cave dwelling. This formation was called the Star Luo Thunder Fire Formation. It was said to be a grand formation combining defensive attributes of thunder and fire arranged according to the positions of the stars. The power of this formation need not be elaborated on, as Lin Yu spent 20 million to set it up, making it unique in the game. Looking at the formation and his cave dwelling, Lin Yu couldn't help but smirk. In the future, once the cave dwelling in the game fed back to the real world, he would possess a vast and invulnerable cave. After setting up the cave, Lin Yu opened the game's leaderboard. Every week, the game distributes rewards based on the leaderboard rankings, and the reward details are announced a day before. Now the reward details had been announced. The time for distribution was set for midnight tonight, exactly 24 hours after the game feedback on cultivation levels. Based on the last leaderboard rewards and posts he had seen on the official forum, Lin Yu had a hunch that this time the rewards would be quite generous. However, upon seeing the prizes for various leaderboards, he couldn't help but be shocked. This time the rewards were indeed very generous. Compared to the last time, the rewards were even better. For instance, the reward for the cultivation leaderboard. Last time the reward was a semi-immortal flying sword. This semi-immortal flying sword reward was already unprecedented, but this time it was even more outrageous. It was still a flying sword, but its level had reached the immortal grade. An immortal grade flying sword refined to level 10 after a 102% feedback. How powerful would it become? Lin Yu couldn't help but feel more anticipation. Fortunately, Lin Yu had previously invested 100 million spirit stones. Even if the game closed the recharge channel, he could still buy golden equipment refining stones with high-quality spirit stones in the game store. The top 100 on the cultivation leaderboard all have rewards, but the best reward is for the first place. Currently, Lin Yu is first in all the leaderboards in the game. After looking over the rewards for the cultivation leaderboard, Lin Yu began to check the rewards for other leaderboards. As expected, none were lacking. At that moment, Lin Yu suddenly noticed a private message. Usually, he would automatically filter out regular private messages. As being the strongest player in the game, many people often sought him out for private chats. Lin Yu couldn't be bothered to waste time chatting with them. However, this time the private message was from Shui Yun Xianzi. Lin Yu smiled slightly and opened the message. Initially, Lin Yu thought Shui Yun Xianzi would discuss something related to the game, since the Valentine's Day ranking rewards had just been distributed and they both received good rewards. However, to Lin Yu's surprise this time, it was not about the game. I would like to invite you to join the Cultivator Management Office. Are you willing? Shui Yun Xianzi's words were very direct and straightforward. The tone sounded polite and gentle. Lin Yu remembered that Shui Yun Xianzi had never spoken to him in such a manner before. She had always spoken to him in a tone like a strong big sister when they chatted privately. However, upon seeing the words Cultivator Management Office, Lin Yu furrowed his brow slightly. Naturally, Lin Yu knew about this organization. In his past life, he had interacted with people from this organization before, but not in depth. Although this organization is on the side of justice and is an official unit established by Long Nation, its overall strength is quite average. Lin Yu slowly shook his head. If it were another request, he might not refuse. But Lin Yu truly had no intention of joining such an organization. Joining an organization like the Cultivator Management Office would be like putting on shackles. One would have to report and explain for ages, even for killing someone, which did not suit his personality.